The skeleton collapses onto the dungeon floor with shattered bones, devastated by his failure to protect his master, Mistress Succubus. As a mere low-level soldier tasked with guarding her in this small dungeon, he had ultimately failed his only duty. Her body hits the ground just as he desperately raised his hands in a futile attempt to shield her. A heavy dark blow struck from behind, crushing his remaining ribs and sending his skull rolling across the floor to rest beside her. Staring at her lifeless face, he could only beg for forgiveness. A peaceful life with Mistress Succubus inside this small dungeon had been his only dream, yet here he lay, defeated in her blood. Nearby, the human adventurers mocked them with smug, arrogant sneers. They had been hiding deep inside a dungeon, posing no threat to the outside world. The skull rolled side to side before lunging, jaws clamped hard into the nearest soldier's foot, tearing away a chunk of flesh. Dripping in blood, the skeleton felt his consciousness fade into the darkness, and then gets completely crushed but satisfied that his miserable existence was finally at an end. A blue system screen flickered before his eyes, warning that his assimilation rate had decreased from 97% to 94%. The sound of rain pulled him back to consciousness. Waking with a jolt inside a cold stone tomb, he realized his bones were no longer shattered. Though the surrounding stone felt strangely familiar, a system screen hovering nearby displayed a shocking status. He was now a level 1 skeleton, far from his previous level of 36. From the shadows, a young girl commanded him to rise from his grave. Her name was Rubia, the novice necromancer who had first brought him to life 20 years ago. The realization left him reeling. Standing up, he stared at his hands and wondered, had he truly traveled 20 years back in time? Skeletons do not dream, so he was not dead, and this was no illusion. Time travel was the only explanation. Rubia was destined to be hunted down and killed by bandits very soon. They had to leave this place immediately. He refused to let her suffer the same tragic fate as Mistress Succubus, realizing with a bitter pang of guilt that his lady had not been the first person he failed to protect. Before the confused girl could react, the nameless skeleton scooped her up and threw her over his shoulder. Rubia shrieked, demanding to be let down, but her anger turned to sheer bewilderment when the skeleton actually spoke, insisting he was there to protect her and that they had to flee. They managed to slip away and hide behind a large boulder just as a group of bandits approached. From the shadows, the skeleton watched them pass, realizing these men were actively hunting her. Once the danger seemed to fade, Rubia let out a sigh of relief, relaxing for a second. That was a close one. I should introduce myself. I am the legitimate heir of Cut Her Off, tearing through the air and plunging deep into her shoulder. Looking toward the trend line, the skeleton saw a crossbowman sneering at them. Nearby, a brute wielding a heavy warhammer approached, eyeing Rubia's bleeding form. The brute dragged her to the cold ground, saying he needs to have a taste of her before she bled out. Rage consumed the skeleton. Creeping up from behind, he hoisted a massive rock and brought it down on the brute's head, killing him instantly. Turning to the injured girl, he vowed, I will protect you with my life. But his declaration was cut short. A devastating blow from a warhammer struck his head, sending his fragile body flying across the clearing. The brute muttered in confusion, astonished by the sheer strength of a simple level 1 skeleton. As No Name's vision blurred, he could only curse his weakness. He had wasted his second chance. Once again, he had failed to save her. And then the cold rain began to fall. He jolts awake inside the stone tomb. Rubia stands before him once more, offering her introduction. The protagonist's name has been raised again with all his memories. Now a memorial window appears, offering either +20 goodwill with necromancers or +40 blunt resistance. He picks the second one. Then he tells a shocked Rubia to hide before the mercenaries show up, making her wonder how he can speak and know that. Next, he asks for her dagger and promises to protect her while she hides. The mercenaries arrive and split up to search for Rubia. No Name ambushes and kills the careless crossbowman, levels up, and then gets smashed. Then his skull gets crushed by the great hammer user. Even with the bonus, the blow is too much. The mercenary wonders if a dungeon is nearby, then pounds No Name into dust, killing him a second time. When MC Name rises again, he spends the points from killing the crossbowman on agility. In his third life, he kills the hammer user, but the crossbowman kills him. After gaining more experience and levels, he finally beats and kills both mercenaries in his fourth life, finally saving Rubia after dying 3 times. While traveling with Rubia through a cave, No Name goes over his situation in his head. Each time he dies, he returns to the moment he was first summoned, back at level 1. But he keeps his skills and stats and gets a memorial bonus. If something changes from a previous life, he also gains a new ability. Still, he doesn't know how many more times he can come back. Rubia snaps him out of it and explains she's the daughter of Lord Ray, an honest man who stood against the changes forced by the newly crowned war-loving king. For that, he was murdered, leaving Rubia alone. No Name remembers the king will soon start a huge war that lasts 9 years to unite every land under his rule, and not long after, the 16 devils will rise again. He doesn't have the strength to stop that war, but he can at least protect this girl caught in the middle. To do that, he has to grow stronger and someday meet his mistress again. They decide to head for a village and move through the mountains. When Rubia tries to joke around with him, No Name reminds her that skeletons are usually without emotion. They're going to Ublam, and Rubia suggests buying armor there so Name can hide what he is and not scare people. A little later, he saves her from slipping to her death, and she's glad he was there. After crossing the mountains, they finally reach Ublam. There, Rubia chooses to enter alone, while No Name waits outside so the protagonist one gets frightened. She tells him she'll be fine and come back soon. No Name waits for 3 days, worrying about her. On the third day, a door opens, and an old man comes out with a wheelbarrow to dump something. Memories of his time with Rubia flash through No Name's mind as he walks up to her battered corpse. Staring at Rubia's body, MC Name grieves that he failed her again when he hears 2 men coming. They are Rubia's jailers, saying she killed herself before they could sell her, and their superior beats one of them for it. One leaves, while the other looks for the corpse. He drops his sword when he finds it, and No Name grabs the blade and stabs him from behind before he can react. When he Name questions him, the man says the innkeeper brought the girl to them, and they were following orders from the leader of the guards. After that, No Name runs him through. After closing Rubia's eyes, he decides to find the innkeeper. That night, No Name goes to the inn, his body hidden by a cloak, and kicks the owner inside. Terrified, the man shouts that he knows nothing about the two dead organization members sent after the daughter of the Lord of Erst, mistaking No Name for someone else. The protagonist Name then tells him what happened to Rubia and demands answers, stabbing him through the thigh before he can run. The innkeeper admits he only handed her to the guards and didn't know what would happen, because the guard leader sends girls to the Necron Society as slaves. Before he can explain more about the society, the snake tattoo on his neck comes alive and strangles him. No Name realizes the Necron Society and the Ublum guards must be working together. That much is clear. Knowing he needs more strength and remembering Rubia's advice, he puts on a set of purple plate armor, swearing not to lose anyone else. He leaves. No Name cuts down another skeleton as he enters the Spectre's charnel house dungeon. It's a small dungeon, and when he notices it has other skeletons, he removes his helmet and tries to connect with them, but fails. He thinks how sad it is to be unable to speak. Just as he's about to leave, an alert window warns him the dungeon boss is coming. He turns and sees a giant horned skeleton with a war mace. The boss smashes one dungeon skeleton and signals the rest to attack No Name, who puts his helmet back on and starts fighting. He quickly destroys the smaller skeletons, avoids the boss's blows, breaks one of its legs, then takes a hit. Knowing a skeleton's weak spots, he rushes forward and climbs onto the boss's skull, drives in his sword, and lands the finishing blow. The kill gives No Name 5 levels and triggers a quest window that offers level 1 swordsmanship for swinging his sword 10,000 times. Since he doesn't need food or sleep, he knows he can finish it easily, so he decides to use the now empty dungeon as a training ground. Outside the dungeon, a fat knight arrives with 2 women. One has red hair, the other is blonde. The knight brags to impress the women, while the redhead plays along as he shows off a bag full of costly healing potions. She's clearly using him, and the blonde studies the situation, deciding the knight has valuables and the redhead only wants to get close to steal them. The blonde is named Reyna. She plans to use the monsters as cover to kill and rob the knight, but while she plays along, the redhead points out that since Reyna is an adventurer, she should scout ahead, which annoys her. The knight tries to stop the bickering, while secretly wishing the dungeon had stronger monsters and a tougher boss so he could look cool and maybe win over both women. Then both women point out they should have seen skeletons by now. The knight brushes it off, though he wonders the same thing, until they find the dead boss and skeleton soldiers. He's stunned to see the boss dead, and just as an annoyed Reyna is about to stab him from behind, No Name steps forward in full armor. The knight faces him and laughs when the redhead suggests it could be a monster, while Reyna suspects it's a skeleton. No Name tells them to leave because this dungeon is his now. That's his warning. The knight agrees, sensing the opponent is stronger than he is, but as he tells the women they should go, Reyna snaps at MC Name for taking the dungeon and for not removing his helmet. She demands his loot or says he'll have to face the knight. Love-struck, the knight orders No Name to show his face, while Reyna smirks to herself, already planning to take the knight's things too. Then all three freeze in shock when they realize he's a skeleton. No Name tells them to leave. The redhead realizes he may not be an ordinary skeleton, but the knight ignores that and despite the warning, gets ready to fight. Trying to show off, he swings at him, Name with his blessed morning star, but after warning them to leave, No Name cuts his hands off before the blow can land. But Reyna is captivated by it. While the knight writhes in pain, the redhead tries to run, but Reyna cuts her down without hesitation with a thrown blade. No Name thinks the attack was meant for him and gets ready to face Reyna, but she quickly begs for mercy. She says she's part of the TNT Guild, a thieves group that handles assassinations, robbery, and intel work. Then she offers to work for No Name. Reyna explains the redhead was the one she meant to kill because letting her escape would only cause the protagonist Name trouble, so she claims she helped him by getting rid of that woman. Since he never meant to kill the redhead, No Name asks why she murdered her own partner, and Reyna answers that she knows he can't be beaten with tricks, and that woman was her target anyway. No Name then orders Reyna to leave and turns down her offer, but then he remembers she also trades in information. He asks what she knows about the Necron Society. Reyna lights up at the question and says she does know about them, but she'll talk on one condition. That makes No Name draw his sword, but she points out he'd have a hard time learning anything without ties to the guild, and the guild would never sell that kind of info to a skeleton. If he kills her, he loses his only lead. When No Name puts his sword away, Reyna gives her condition. He has to accept her as an ally. A quest window appears and lays out the deal. It shows the benefits and risks of making Reyna the branch manager of the TNT Guild. No Name thinks about how he still doesn't understand these windows or what assimilation percentage even means, but he still needs answers. Reyna keeps pressing him, even saying she could help with his training, until he grabs her by the throat. He points out how easily she killed another person, and says he won't trust someone who could stab him in the back too. Reyna shouts that she's more like him than them, and once he lets go, she says humans only care about her body, never who she really is. To them, she isn't even a person, just like No Name isn't one either, only a monster they think should be killed. In her eyes, they're the same. She goes on to explain that the Necron Society is a huge underground syndicate, tied to drugs, hired murder, human trafficking, and other illegal businesses. It also has support from nobles and other powerful people in the Empire. Nobody knows where its headquarters are or who runs it, and anything more is only known by high-ranking guild members. Reyna then offers a plan. She can bring her targets to No Name's dungeon so he can gain experience. In return, she'll she'll climb higher in the guild and eventually get the information he wants. That way both of them benefit. Still unsure, MC Name asks again if she'd really help him kill humans. She says yes, because she hates them. So he accepts the deal. Soon after, a window warns that 3 intruders have entered the dungeon. No Name quickly kills one, while Rina takes out another before the last one knocks her down. Just as that third intruder moves in for the final hit, No Name steps in and saves her. Afterward, he names dungeon affinity goes up to 19, and his swordsmanship reaches level 4. After months of this, his leveling speed starts to slow. While thinking about moving to another dungeon, Rina happily shows him all the loot they took from the people they lured in. Seeing that her love of killing humans still bothers him, she says the people she targets are criminals, and even when she reports them, bribes keep them from being punished. So in her mind, they deserve to die. No Name notices some books those criminals were carrying and picks up one called The Unsightly Mage. As he reads, he learns that mages are born with magic and enjoy special treatment, but take no responsibility for it. He starts wondering if the author hates mages, and when he reads the name Kevin Ashton out loud, a blue window appears saying his wisdom went up by 1. That shocks him. He searches through the other books and finds another by the same writer, and reading it raises his wisdom again. By then, Rina has moved so close that he feels uneasy. After watching him, she offers to bring him more books from the village, but No Name asks about nearby dungeons instead. Rina remembers 1 E-class, 1 D-class, and 2 C-class dungeons within about a week on foot. Since this one is only F-class, the protagonist figures an E-class dungeon should be his next step. Then he notices Rina has fallen asleep on his lap, and when he tries to go back to sword practice, he suddenly feels sleepy and passes out too. A blue window appears. After spending 182 nights in the dungeon, his dungeon affinity is 20. It's saying his human nature is taking over, and the dungeon is trying to devour him. When No Name opens his eyes, he sees his dead mistress, Succubus. She gently asks if he slept well and says sorry for waking him. Shocked, MC Name jumps up and realizes his armor is gone. He's in Succubus's arms as she says he must have had a bad dream and asks what story he wants to hear. Relieved, No Name tells himself they'll stay in the dungeon together forever, while the illusion pulls him deeper into the cave. Reina wakes up alone and wonders where No Name went. Meanwhile, he stays trapped in the illusion, resting in Succubus's lap while she reads, slowly starting to believe everything that happened before was just a dream, and that his mistress is really alive. Sensing something off, she closes the book and asks if the story is boring, then tells him to keep talking about his dream, especially about Reina. Outside the dungeon, Reina stretches and realizes No Name isn't there. Then she spots nearby troops and an officer gathering them. They're here to clear the dungeon because even though it was supposed to be a beginner area, for months adventurers and civilians have been disappearing after going inside. This is the Blue Lion Templar's subjugation force. Reina instantly understands how bad this is. Back in the dungeon, Succubus comments on Reina's lively nature, then asks if he's really going to let her die too, just like he left her. That jolts No Name right as an alert window says an intruder has entered. Remembering Succubus's death, he becomes determined to stop the knights from killing her again. Reina reaches him and warns him about the danger, but No Name, still trapped in the spell, stands and draws his sword, thinking he's protecting Succubus. Reina dodges his swings and tries to talk sense into him, already suspecting something is wrong, when a scout fires a bolt at her feet and calls to the others, naming No Name a monster and her the rumored witch. Reina realizes he isn't thinking clearly and begs him to wake up, while bolts keep landing around her. Lost in the illusion, No Name warns Succubus about the coming attack and swears to protect her, but she doubts him, and then Rubia appears asking why he left her to die. The protagonist's name recoils in shock as Rubia reminds him he broke his promise. Succubus says he failed to save them because he was weak, and both of them condemn him for failing until he sinks deeper into despair. Outside, a soldier reports to the Blue Lion Templar that the scouts found the targets. As No Name falls deeper into the illusion, he wishes he were stronger. In the dungeon, Reina ducks the incoming bolts and seeing his condition decides to move. Using a smoke bomb for cover, she loops a rope around No Name and drags him away, hoping to escape by leading the soldiers farther into the dungeon. She's stopped when a blade slices her shoulder and soldiers block the way. Their leader arrests her for the suspected murders of many adventurers and says she'll stand trial. He also accuses her of necromancy, then sees the dazed, silent No Name rise and orders his men to kill the monster first. At the same time, MC's Name's senses keep fading as he sinks deeper, thinking this must be the afterlife, and feeling glad he saw Succubus and Rubia one last time. But then he remembers that if he were dead, he should have revived. So this has to be an illusion. He forces himself to wake up, determined to get stronger and protect Succubus 20 years in the future. He's a skeleton warrior meant to guard his mistress and protect everyone else too. No Name wakes up to Rena's bloodied face. She had stood in front of him and taken 3 arrows in her back. Startled, he Name lifts her up and she jokes that if they live, she'll wait for his thanks. The commander snaps at his soldiers, reminding them Rena was supposed to be taken alive. Then, seeing No Name carrying her, he tells her to surrender, just as she calmly lights a fuse. The commander looks on in horror as it burns toward a pile of supplies that Rena calls her farewell gift. When it goes off, poison smoke fills the area. Rena tells No Name to carry her on his back so they can escape. Any soldiers who try to stop him are cut down, and he asks Rena why she stayed when there were so many enemies. She simply says she's his ally, and No Name bitterly regrets getting trapped in that illusion. Once they get out of the dungeon, the protagonist's Name is relieved not to see more soldiers. He starts to break the arrow shafts in Rena's back before finding better treatment somewhere else. But then he hears the Blue Lion Templar say the rumors of Rena being a powerful necromancer were exaggerated, and in the next instant he cuts No Name down. MC Name drops to the ground, his arms severed floored by the Blue Lion Templar's strike. The Templar stares at him with contempt and asks a stunned lord why he wasted his time on someone as weak as Reina. The lord says he thought she was a dangerous necromancer, then freezes under the Templar's killing glare. He tries to take his own life to pay for his mistake, but the Templar tells him to stop. Since he has somewhere else to be, he turns to leave, telling the lord to deal with Reina as he sees fit after her trial. Then he suddenly stops and turns toward No Name, who has risen again. He wonders who this Templar is, realizing he never sensed him or even saw the sword swing. He's far beyond anyone the protagonist Name has fought before. No Name wonders if he can win, but when he sees the injured Reina, he decides it doesn't matter. He'll fight MC Matter who stands in front of him. The Templar slips past his attack, and while the lord mocks him and orders the newly arrived soldiers to join in, the ground starts to shake. Then an alert window appears before a confused No Name. A message appears. The stronger Blue Lion Templar has used an advanced skill. It locks down movement for everyone nearby, including the protagonist Name. While the others are frozen, the Templar walks up to Reina and wonders how MC can still move. Reina is already unconscious, and to him she hardly looks like some top necromancer. Still, if the rumors are true, killing her now would help. He raises his sword and No Name forces his body to respond and swings at him. The Templar easily avoids the blow and snaps No Name's sword. Admitting the reports had some truth, he delivers a finishing strike to the kneeling him. That makes the protagonist Name's fifth death. As the dark closes in, he thinks of Reina and how he failed to save her. The only comfort is returning to his grave in the forest, and maybe seeing Rubia again. But then he wakes up in the dungeon completely confused and realizes he knows this place. Reina is asleep on his lap. A status window says the inheritance is complete. He now has the skill of a level 70 No Name. All stats are moving to the waypoint, and his dungeon affinity has fallen to 92.49. Looking around, he realizes that even though he's alive again, he didn't return to Rubia. He starts wondering if he'll ever see her again. Another window records that he has died 5 times and earned a bonus, upgrading him to Necromancer's Lover. It gives him plus 20 likability with necromancers close to him, and another 10 with one he works with. While thinking about whether Reina had been recognized as a necromancer, he remembers her taking arrows for him, and decides he has to repay that. First though, they need to get out of the dungeon. No Name wakes Reina and tells her they have to leave right away. He knows he must get out before his affinity rises enough to trigger hallucinations and bring the subjugation forces, so he chooses another dungeon, planning to go to the arid underground cemetery. Reina disagrees and says they should go to the ruins of Spider's Vault instead, because the cemetery is empty, like every monster there vanished at once. Thinking of the subjugation forces, he asks Reina about the Blue Lion Templars. She explains they're the Empire's first or second-ranked knight order. Their leader is Marquis Fatien von Leandro. Von Leandro, the owner of the sword Seraphim and one of the Empire's 4 best swordsmen, with no equal there. MC Name instantly knows who she means, the man who killed him. He wonders why someone like that came to such a remote place without his knights. Reina says they need to stop by a nearby town first to get supplies before moving on. She also wants a bath. No Name realizes he never thought about what she needed and agrees. At dawn, they reach the largest town nearby, Ublum. Remembering what happened to Rubia, No Name decides to stay with Reina inside town. She covers him with a cloak before they go to the gate. They get in by bribing a guard and pretending to be married, which catches No Name off guard. Once inside, Reina notices a heavy smell of opium, even though Den is nearby. Both of them can tell something is off, and the townspeople watch them carefully. As Reina cheerfully pulls him along to find a place to stay, someone hidden in an alley keeps watching them. At the inn, No Name and Reina are greeted by a pretty barmaid. While Reina asks for food and a room, the protagonist Name notices she doesn't have the neck tattoo the former owner had. The new innkeeper takes his stare the wrong way, which irritates Reina and leaves No Name confused. The next day, after Reina has rested, the two go to the general store. MC Name notices nobody has tried to sneak up on them, even though he feels they're being watched. The shopkeeper refuses to sell Reina firebombs, antidotes, or ingredients for Molotovs. He claims he's out and doesn't want to do business with them, which annoys her. Still sensing a tail, No Name drags the angry Reina out. They turn the tables on the person following them and recognize him as the town blacksmith. He tells them to come with him, warning that staying in town is dangerous. At the smithy, he explains he guessed they were heading to the ruins of Spider's Vault from the supplies Reina wanted. He says she won't get them in town because the Lord of Ublum and his guards are raising spiders for some unknown reason, and the town is falling apart. After the old lord died under strange circumstances, the new one replaced the guards with thugs. Then opium spread through town, and people sold off their things cheap to buy more. Anyone who questioned him or disobeyed, including the blacksmith's wife, was fed to the spiders. Then he asks No Name to take revenge for him, after recognizing the armor he wears as one of his creations, bought by Rubia for someone precious to her. The old smith tells infurious No Name that travelers on their own become easy prey. He admits he did nothing because he was a coward, and because age kept him from saving Rubia himself. He tells No Name that the guard captain should be taking prisoners to the cavern right now, then hands them a vial of Grasmir's flame, a fire from the sea that never goes out, so they can burn the guards and spiders. They follow chained prisoners toward the ruins of Spider's Vault, with Reina and No Name trailing behind. Near the entrance, Reina asks who should carry the flamethrower. A flashback explains that the blacksmith comes from Grasmir, a town famous for smiths, and Grasmir's flame is extremely rare. He can only make one vial, and it has to be used with that weapon. Once lit, the fire never dies. Magic is the only thing keeping it inside the bottle, and it's as hot as a blast furnace. The smith also gave them the weapon and heat-resistant powder, saying he'd rather they use it on the guards than waste it on his craft. With Reina carrying the flamethrower, they enter the cavern. caverns. No Name notices how silent and maze-like the place is. Reina cuts into his thoughts and asks about Rubia, what she really meant to him. He shuts that down at once, saying she meant nothing, that the armor was only for their shared benefit, but he still failed to protect her like he promised. While No Name tries to choose a path, a nervous Reina hands him a pendant, saying it's precious and she's lending it to him. Before he can refuse, No Name feels something sticky drip onto his helmet and turns just as a giant spider attacks. Reina cries out, but webbing snatches her up while the spider lunges at the protagonist. He draws his blade, chops off a leg, then gets jumped from behind by another spider that slams him down as he struggles to keep it back. While Reina screams for help, No Name gets his sword back and kills it, only to rise and face a whole swarm. Hanging upside down, Reina realizes just how bad this is as the spiders close in on her. At the same time, No Name keeps cutting through the ones on the ground, blocking and dodging their attacks, until several of them fire webs at him and pin him in place. One spider moves in to finish him, then suddenly goes up in flames. Shocked, No Name looks over and sees Reina with the flamethrower, grinning like a madwoman as she apologizes for being late and burns the spiders. She roasts another one trying to jump her and praises the weapon when she sees the spiders pulling back deeper into the dungeon. After cutting No Name free, the two chase after the spiders, burning anything that gets in their way. When a blue window appears, MC notices combat gives him experience faster, but before he can think more, Reina teases him and then collapses. Checking her, he realizes she's been bitten and needs an antidote. At the center of the dungeon, soldiers try to force the Spider Queen back with torches. No Name figures they must have antidotes and wonders why they try to raise monsters at all. The guard captain, marked with a snake tattoo on his neck, warns the queen to behave or he'll burn her eggs. Seeing that captain, No Name remembers Rubia and clenches his fist in rage. A rookie soldier asks why they even bring prisoners there, only to get told to shut up. Then Name appears and holds a blade to him, offering the startled captain a choice: give up the antidote and die painlessly while his men are spared. The captain only laughs and mocks No Name like he's some addict for trying this, so the protagonist Name says he came to avenge Rubia. The captain just smirks and says he doesn't even remember her among all his victims. That makes No Name drop the hostage and rush him, only to get hit with a bottle of spider egg yolk. That makes the Spider Queen drive a limb through No Name's chest, seeing him as the thief who took her egg. The captain explains people believe the queen is a chimera left behind by mages, and that her motherly instinct makes her protect the eggs. Snickering, he turns to leave, and then the queen suddenly bursts into flames. When he looks back, No Name is there without his helmet, holding the flamethrower and dumping heat-resistant powder over his head, before blasting the soldiers with fire and promising the captain a painful death. No Name burns every spider that comes near, and soon the soldiers, the eggs, and anything else that can catch fire is burning too. As MC Name closes in, the captain, now on fire, begs uselessly for his life before being burned to ash. Still raging, No Name keeps setting everything ablaze, not noticing Reina or that he has started to melt, until he drops and dies. His assimilation rate falls to 90.14 as darkness takes him. No Name revives in the dungeon beside Reina, and the blue window confirms the inheritance is complete, while breaking down how he died. When Reina wakes, he tells her they're going to Ublum, already knowing what comes next. He repeats the same steps in town. Reina fights with the shopkeeper, then they corner and follow the shocked blacksmith to his forge, where he gives them the vial of Grasmir's flame, the flamethrower, and the heat-resistant powder. This time, No Name throws the powder bag in the blacksmith's face and threatens to test it by burning him with the flamethrower, terrifying the old man. Then he explains the powder only keeps him from feeling the heat. His armor would still melt before he realized it. He asks the blacksmith why he wants them dead too. The blacksmith admits he knows No Name isn't human from the way he moves inside the armor, so he'd rather see him die after wiping out the guards. That sets off Reina, but Name doesn't think killing the blacksmith is worth it, and turns to go, saying the guards were dying either way. Then he pauses when he spots a new two-handed sword. The blacksmith objects, but No Name takes it anyway, calling it payment for trying to kill them, then walks out. With the sword and flamethrower, the protagonist Name and Reina reach Spider's vault. She warns him to be careful with the weapon, then happily heads inside. But No Name remembers how she died because of him, and he refuses to risk her again. He knocks her out and goes into the dungeon alone, promising he'll come back soon. No Name burns his way through the dungeon, using Grasmir's flame carefully, until the confused captain and his guards stop him. At one soldier's idea, the captain tries to trick No Name, pretending they'll guide him to safety while getting ready to toss another vial of egg yolk at him. This time it doesn't work. MC Name smashes the vial with his sword. Stunned, the captain asks who he is. No Name answers that he promised him a slow, painful death. The captain immediately tells his men to attack, but Name burns them all while the captain runs, knowing he can't keep using the flame too long or he'll melt again. Then the captain hits him from behind and breaks the flamethrower. He says the Spider Queen is furious with No Name for destroying her eggs, then grabs the last one. Using it like a hostage, he orders the queen to attack. No Name blocks, but the blow throws him across the cavern. He keeps defending himself, trying to think until he trips on a rock and hits the ground. Then he spots the broken flamethrower and rushes for it as the queen attacks again and crushes his helmet. The captain cheers, then sees one of the queen's legs catch fire. He turns and finds No Name holding a burning sword, repeating his promise of a painful death. The Spider Queen roars while the protagonist Name cuts through her legs and finishes her off with one final swing of the flaming blade. As No Name stands over the corpse, the captain, shocked, tries to strike from behind again. No Name cuts off his sword hand, the hot blade sealing the wound, and promises once more a slow, agonizing death. Panicking, the captain captain orders his men and the spiders to stop him, then realizes they're already dead. As he runs, his shirt touches a puddle of Grasmir's flame and catches fire. Too busy trying to put it out while fleeing No Name. The captain stumbles backward and falls off a ledge to his death. MC Name calls it a stupid way to die, and thinking it's over, decides the sword is too dangerous to keep, so he throws it over the ledge too. But when he turns around, he finds the badly wounded yet still living Spider Queen. Now unarmed and backed against the cliff, No Name freezes as the queen gently lifts her last egg and holds it close. A moment later, she dies and drops a red jewel. A blue window appears saying No Name defeated the web slinger. For clearing the dungeon, he gains a big boost in soldier points, starts the borderline adventure quest, and gets a speed skill plus a ruby. Name comes out of the cave carrying a bag of loot and meets a furious Rena. She snaps at him for knocking her out and going alone, but her mood changes fast when he shows her the bag full of gold. She vows to get stronger so she won't be a burden and tells him not to leave her behind again. After that, she takes him to her guild's branch office. A while later, they reach an orphanage, where Rena is welcomed by the children, including her sister. She introduces No Name as the knight who helped her, and the orphanage head greets them before leading them inside. Rena and the well-dressed young man catch up, then she introduces No Name. The headmaster gives his name as Lime. Noticing how quiet the protagonist's name is, he suggests taking off the armor. MC refuses, then is stunned when Lime calmly says he's fine with whatever is under it. Their talk ends when a child screams outside, and Lime says unwanted guests have arrived so they'll continue later. In the courtyard, two armed men and a woman are dragging off a child, saying she ran away. Lime steps in and asks them to let her go so they can talk. The men say they run an orphanage in a nearby village, and that she fled after being sent to a court supporter who wanted to adopt her. Lime points out she only ran because she was being mistreated. Before the men answer, the woman stops them. She warns Lime to pretend he never saw this or die here, but he refuses. Then she offers a deal, work with them and hand over whichever children they want. Lime cuts her off, saying he won't let pigs like them use kids as puppets, so she orders the attack. No Name gets worried, but Rena tells him not to be. The men are the ones who need help. The woman smiles as the men strike Lime down, only to learn he's made of slime and has swallowed both henchmen. Saying humans grow ugly and foolish as they age, Lime consumes the terrified woman too. While No Name watches in shock and Rena looks smug, Lime apologizes and properly introduces himself as Slime, the manager of the TNT Guild's Eastern Branch office. Standing among the intruders' clothes and weapons, Slime tells No Name he's a changeling, another non-human trying to live in the human world. Fat Name is surprised to meet one of the rare intelligent slimes, and asks how he'll handle the fallout. As he comforts the child they tried to take, Slime says cleaning it up won't be a problem, which leaves No Name uneasy and Rena pleased. Back inside, Slime explains he runs the orphanage because slimes have the protagonist's gender and the protagonist's parent-child bonds, and he finds it fascinating that humans change so much as they grow. He says slimes can copy any shape, but it's only a shell because they're naturally formless, then offers to look like a skeleton, which No Name politely turns down. When MC asks how he knew, Slime reveals he's an expert appraiser, and being a slime gives him a lot of freedom in the guild. To thank him for helping Rena, he offers to appraise anything No Name wants. He hands over the ruby. While Slime examines it, the protagonist realizes Rena trusted him because she had grown up with slime at the orphanage. When the appraisal ends, a blue window says the ruby can be used for a class change and lists its benefits. Slime adds that it's very valuable and becomes fit for that use after soaking up human blood and life force for a long time. Then another blue window appears telling No Name his assimilation rate has fallen to 88.68. He starts shaking hard, making Slime concerned. No Name brushes it off, praises Slime's ability, and when asked what he needs, says a spare sword would help. Instead, to thank him for keeping Rena safe, Slime offers to get one from the blacksmith, fix MC's Name's armor, and give him a room for the night, which he gladly accepts. That night, No Name studies the ruby, thinking about a class change, when Rena walks into his room and asks if he's stargazing. He asks if she shouldn't be with her sister instead, sleeping beside her. Rena says she doesn't want to make her sister hope she'll stay longer, and believes the day will come when they can live together. Then she steps closer and gives him her precious gold pendant, saying it was on her neck when she was left at the orphanage. Softly, she says it's for the day he finishes his quest, and she becomes branch manager, asking him to live with her. They look at each other in silence. The next day, No Name checks his repaired armor with Slime and admires his new sword before Rena walks in and looks away. Later, Slime asks where the skeleton plans to go next. When No Name isn't sure, Slime suggests joining the TNT Guild. He explains Rena's trainee rank limits the kind and amount of info she can get from the guild, but if No Name joins, he'd receive full member benefits under Slime's recommendation. Even though Slime thinks he'd be a great addition, he turns it down. Being tied to a group isn't his style, which disappoints Slime. No Name says he'll keep getting the information he needs through Rena, making her blush. Then he asks what Rena needs to do to become an official member. Slime explains she can complete guild requests or donate gold, so No Name offers the bag of gold from Spider's vault. Slime says it will be enough, and a blue window updates the scenario Rena's story. It also tells the protagonist's name his assimilation rate has dropped to 88.56. He wonders what that means while Slime reads the guild rules to Rena, but No Name cuts in when the branch manager mentions the duty to report any serious threat to Amber's peace. Amber is a port city and a center of engineers, and No Name remembers it will soon become the starting point of the 9 Years' War. The war will be started by Crown Prince Elton Clements II, between the Empire and the Freedom Alliance. Even though Amber is neutral, its anarcho-syndicalist system will eventually anger the Crown and block the Empire's expansion. Since it sits between the Empire and the Freedom Alliance, it will become the Empire's first target. No Name asks Slime why Amber is named in the rules for promotion, and when Slime says it's where the guild headquarters are, MC wonders if he should tell him what he knows. He decides not to say what he knows directly. Instead, he circles around it and asks if Amber becoming the Empire's biggest problem in a war with the Freedom Alliance would count as a serious threat. Slime says yes, but adds that they've already made plans in case the Empire moves against them, and he won't say anything more. After that, Slime congratulates Rena on becoming an official member. Then No Name asks what it would take for her to become branch manager, which makes Slime laugh. He says Rena should focus on her next promotion first, since that would help he name more. Slime thinks it over and says there are some hard guild jobs available, and even though Rena can't handle them alone, clearing them would speed up her next promotion if she succeeds. Rena looks uneasy and asks whether he plans to take the mission. Right then, a blue window appears, giving him the choice to accept or refuse. A host steps out before a full arena and loudly opens the Aorist tournament to the cheering crowd. He calls out the first fighter, the Dismantler, Jackcoat Isaac from the Brass Ring Free Company. Then he presents the other side, a first-time entrant, Saray Jang Philip, serving a household from Jene. No Name walks into the ring. The host tells both men to prepare and start the match. Jackcoat rushes in, leaps up, and swings his great hammer at No Name's head. A few days earlier, Slime had explained that a rich house from Jene wanted the guild to send a mercenary to fight under their crest. Their family rose through leather trade and business, but they were too busy making money to train a knight of their own, so they chose to hire one and avoid the pressure from the tournament's sponsor. That sponsor is the Lord of Etherist, a member of the Ray family, and younger brother of the dead lord. No Name will be paid for each win up to the 8th round, since the family doesn't want attention for using a hired fighter. He accepts the job, and while he and Rena ride in the back of a wagon, No Name realizes the Lord of Etherist must be Rubia's uncle, the one tied to her brother's and niece's deaths. That makes him wonder if he should kill him. Without meeting his eyes, Rena asks again what Rubia meant to him and what kind of person she was. No Name says there was nothing between them, and he doesn't even know how to answer the second part. All he says is that she was probably beautiful. Rena then asks if he would have answered Rubia differently when she asked him that question back at the orphanage. No Name bluntly says he would have said the same thing, because there's still something he has to do. Rena is clearly disappointed. Their talk ends when Arist comes into view. At the gate, people line up to enter, and the two head to a booth to sign No Name up for the tournament as a knight representing the house of Jiniyube. When the clerk asks for his name, the protagonist hesitates. Rena quickly tries to smooth things over, since the man is starting to get suspicious, and then the skeleton gives a name, Saray Jang Philip. He tells Rena it's fake, but in his mind he remembers taking it from the disruptor Saray and the savage ox Jang Philip, two of the 16 demon lords who will come down on humanity after the 9 Years' War. Figuring borrowing those names shouldn't cause any trouble, No Name never actually met the demon lords while he served in the demon army. He was just a low-rank skeleton living in misery under the necromancer's control, until he met Mistress Succubus. Rena snaps him out of it by asking for his real name, before she says it didn't matter because she thought there weren't any other walking skeletons like him. No Name admits he doesn't even know his own name. Rena offers to make one up for him. While she keeps suggesting names and annoying him, a man announces that the tournament starts the next day, and all contestants will eat and stay at the castle. They're free to move around the grounds between matches. Since this used to be Rubia's home, No Name asks the startled man where the castle library is. Once there, the librarian praises him for wanting to read as well as fight. MC Name asks if they have anything by Kevin Ashton, but she doesn't know the name and starts searching. As No Name waits, he notices the library is badly disorganized when a book drops near his feet. Looking up, he briefly sees what looks like Rubia reading on the stairs. The moment ends when the librarian returns and hands him the novel Crevice of Time by Kevin Ashton. She then picks up the fallen book and sadly says the one who used to read it isn't here anymore, making No Name ask what she means. Realizing she said too much, the frightened woman excuses herself and hurries away, leaving him by himself. He opens Crevice of Time and tears through it until Rena finds him and says they've been given a room. A blue window tells him his wisdom went up by 10, and he can now sense other skeletons. Plus he gained bonus insight. Rena says they should go, and the moment he looks at her, another window appears with her name, job, level, stats, and a likability score of 40. Later, No Name practices with his sword until a blue window shows his stats, and he notices his swordsmanship won't rise past level 5. He also wonders what the insight bonus really does when Rena comes over and tells him the tournament is starting soon. Fireworks go off as the Aorist tournament opens. The host calls for a huge welcome for Lord Ray as he enters the arena, while Rena and No Name watch from a distance. As the preliminary round starts, they talk about whether the prize is really worth all this effort, and Rena explains the real reward is the honor nobles get when their knight wins. The knights gain from it too. Outside of war, this is their best shot at building a name for themselves. That's even more true for oathless knights hoping a noble house will hire them. Soon No Name is told to prepare for his match, and even though Rena cheers him on, he plans to avoid standing out too much. In the arena, the host says the match ends when one fighter is knocked out or pushed off the platform. While No Name thinks about how hard it would be to throw this man out, Jackcoat Isaac mocks him for looking weak. Wanting to know what he's really up against, He Name uses his insight skill to check Jackcoat's stats. As the fight starts, No Name uses his greater speed to slip past the attack and shatter the hammer, leaving Jackcoat stunned and unable to believe it. No Name gives the now unarmed Jackcoat a chance to surrender. But the fighter charges in mad and throws a punch. With the protagonist's other option, No Name dodges and knocks him out with the pommel of his sword. The whole arena goes silent in shock. After MC Name points it out, the judge names him the winner, and the crowd suddenly erupts. No Name is caught off guard, but Reina is thrilled. Later, an insight window shows level 17 fighter Colin Harrow as he jabs at him, Name with a spear. No Name avoids it and knocks him down. In another match, he checks level 29 warrior Jang Philip, who tries to hit him with chains only for No Name to catch them on his sword, yank the man in, and put him down, bringing more cheers from the crowd. Later, No Name admits the insight skill is incredibly useful, since it lets him judge each enemy and fight the right way. He also wonders who Kevin Ashton really is. That thought breaks when he sees Reina trying to hold back 3 men who came looking for him. They say they represent a merchant group, a lord's land, and a noble house, and each wants No Name to work as their guard, trying to outbid the others. He turns them all down, then says he won't leave the house of Jinny Yubei, which surprises Reina. As the men keep asking him to think again, a drunk swordsman snaps at them to shut up so he can sleep, adding that he's in the tournament too. He tells the guards to deal with them and have them removed. Reina then tells a stunned No Name that the drunk is his next opponent. That makes the protagonist Name wonder how someone like that reached the quarterfinals, so he uses insight to check him. To his surprise, the window is completely empty. He tries again and gets the same result. In the arena, the host introduces No Name as Sir Ray Jang Philip and names his opponent Taybald Reynolds, famous for his speed. Taybald asks to use the restroom, but the host refuses because the match is about to begin, while No Name keeps wondering why insight won't work on him. Once the fight starts, MC Name gives up on insight and charges in to attack. Taybald grumbles that he really needs to pee, then suddenly evades the strike and appears behind No Name, saying he'll finish this fast as he uses Imperial Fencing first chapter against the confused skeleton. AR Name barely blocks it and gets praised by Taybald. Then another attack comes, and No Name finally understands why insight failed. Taybald's level is far above his. They keep trading blows, with the protagonist barely defending himself, which only seems to amuse Taybald. Then Taybald knocks his sword aside and thrusts for an opening in the armor, pointing out his lack of real battle experience. But No Name manages to close the opening in time and flips away. Taybald senses something strange, like the hit didn't land right. No Name realizes he survived only because the blade passed through his ribs, something that would have killed a human. Wondering who Taybald really is, he asks about the Imperial Fencing. Taybald answers that he used to be an Imperial Knight. Then he mocks No Name, saying he'll never be good enough to join the Imperial Knights, and drives forward again, daring him to strike back. As he keeps blocking, No Name decides Taybald is still weaker than Vachien von Leandro, and if he may have to fight strong Imperial soldiers later, he can't lose to a retired knight. During another rush, No Name spots an opening. Taybald's style relies on lunging, and that leaves his side exposed for a moment. Taking the chance, MC slashes from the side and cuts Taybald's arm before he can dodge the rest. No Name side slash lands, and the crowd gasps. Taybald survives the hit, then straightens up and says he'll face him like a true Imperial Knight. Rita starts wondering who Taybald really is, and an oathless knight says his style gives it away. He's an Imperial Knight. He's also shocked the protagonist's name is still standing. Taybald apologizes for fighting while drunk and says becoming an Imperial Knight takes more than battle sense. Still, he'll only share that secret if No Name beats him. Then he stops the skeleton swing and says defense is his stronger point before driving his blade into the floor. Right after that, Taybald launches a strange strike with a curved trajectory that catches No Name off guard and blasts him backward. Taybald says he'll finish it with one clean blow. MC Name lifts his sword to guard, but the curved strike goes through his neck and drops him to the ground. When Taybald walks toward the host to take his win, he freezes as a panting. No Name gets back up and continues the fight, making Taybald wonder if he's some kind of monster. He says he doesn't even want to be an Imperial Knight. He's after Marquis Vachien von Leandro, and he won't fall to Imperial sword arts this easily before facing him. Hearing that, Taybald snaps and asks if No Name really thinks Vachien von Leandro is that great. Then he charges in a rage, hammering the protagonist's Name's armor and yelling that if Vachien von Leandro didn't exist, he would have become an Imperial Knight, and his father wouldn't have looked down on him. Taybald follows with a second form attack that cracks No Name's breastplate. He demands to know what's so valuable about a title, while MC Name realizes he's about to lose. Then, out of nowhere, Taybald drops his sword and gives up the match, so No Name is declared the winner. Taybald sadly tells him the secret requirement is blade skill, and that weakness is why he never became a knight before leaving the arena without his sword. That night, the semi-finalists are treated to a banquet, but neither No Name nor the oathless knight takes off their helmet or eats. He steading checks the stats of the 3 men left and realizes Taybald had been the strongest fighter in the whole tournament. He also learns that without blade skills, his armor means nothing. Lord Ray sits at the head of the table with 4 guards around him and congratulates the fighters, telling them to enjoy the feast. Seeing snake tattoos on the guards' necks, No Name realizes they're members of the Necron Society. His insight window shows they're as strong as Taybald, or even stronger. Lord Ray compliments No Name's ability and offers him a chance to serve under him, and finally show his real value. The other semi-finalists are stunned. Lord Ray says positions should go to people who truly deserve them, and useless people taking those spots annoy him. No Name wants to kill him on the spot for what he did to Ruby and her father, but he holds back knowing the guards would kill him first. Irritated by the silence, Lord Ray tells him to think it over, warning that if he doesn't answer now, he may lose the chance because Ray has no use for losers. He asks the protagonist's Name to remove his helmet, but even after being refused, he lets it slide because of his talent. Then he gestures to the oathless knight and calls him Creston the Hellraiser. MC Name realizes that's his next opponent and wonders about the name. Lord Ray says he's looking forward to their match and adds that he'll see their faces no matter who wins. With a snap of his his fingers, he calls in 6 barely dressed women to entertain the room, while the other 2 semi-finalists enjoy it. Creston suddenly stands up and storms out, and No Name leaves right after him. Outside, the Oathless Knight stops the skeleton and asks why he came out, adding that he's never heard of an imperial knighthood in Janae. He doesn't believe House Janae would hire knights in a time this peaceful, and assumes No Name bribed his way in. Taimame points out he knows a lot about knights, and the Hellraiser fires back, asking if he's trying to get knighted in Eris by faking his value. Annoyed, No Name asks why Creston always keeps his helmet on, making him draw his sword and demand to know what the protagonist's name knows about him. MC answers that he knows nothing. After putting the sword away, the Hellraiser promises to smash No Name's rude attitude in his helmet tomorrow. Later, Rena goes to a man taking bets on the semifinals and puts a bag of gold on him. She's surprised when the skeleton appears behind her, and even though he hesitates at first, she tells him to go win. As the announcer introduces Saray Jang Philip and Creston the Hellraiser to the crowd, No Name plans out how to fight against Creston's sword. Creston warns him not to hold back, or he'll die. The match begins and Creston rushes in with a killing blow from his greatsword. No Name slips past the attack and hits the Hellraiser's armor. He plans to use his better speed to win, but has to dodge another heavy swing right away. Creston comments on his toughness, then slams the arena floor and throws up a cloud of dust. Using the dust as cover, he gets behind No Name and throws a full power strike that the skeleton barely manages to deflect. Creston praises his opponent's evasiveness, but says it'll only delay the end. Realizing he can't just keep dodging, No Name tries something risky and charges straight at Creston. He lands 2 quick attacks up close, breaking the knight's armor and knocking off the helmet. The crowd and No Name stare in shock when the knight is revealed to be a woman. The audience erupts and Lord Ray signals his men while the protagonist's name and Creston stand facing each other in the arena. Furious, the female warrior shouts at the skeleton, but one of Lord Ray's guards cuts in and demands her real name if she wants to stay in the tournament. She gives it as Christina de Bruiser Brewer, and the guard, saying women aren't allowed to compete, moves to throw her out. Christina demands one more chance to fight, and though the guard refuses, Lord Ray allows it if her opponent agrees. When No Name accepts, the match starts again. Lord Ray privately enjoys the thought of the fight being filled with a woman's screams, while the crowd roars over Christina's lie and the money they might lose from betting on her. Breathing hard, she tells No Name to stop holding back and asks if it's because she's a woman. Haunted by old pain, she charges at him desperately, then catches herself on the arena floor and crashes down. The crowd answers by throwing rocks and screaming at her, which disgusts Renaud. Lying there, Christina de Bruiser remembers the brutal training her father forced on her, warning he'd cut ties with her if she failed to raise the family standing. He also hated that she was born a woman, making her suffer even more. Hearing the crowd mock her, No Name tells her to hold back before she gets seriously hurt. But before he can finish, a crushing strike sends him flying, shocking everyone there. Christina de Bruiser exhales steam, her eyes glowing red as she raises her guard. A blue window tells No Name she has activated Berserk, turning her into a berserker with much higher stats. Christina de Bruiser roars and swings again with huge force, smashing the arena as No Name barely avoids it and wonders what caused this change. Once the crowd sees her berserker form and the fight turning her way, they start cheering for Christina de Bruiser. While MC Name tries to judge her new power and speed, the warrior rushes at him and launches him across the arena. To the crowd's delight, Lord Ray's interest, and Reina's worry. Even though her level is lower than his, the fight has turned completely, so No Name decides he has to move fast. He uses his speed to knock her back and circle around her. The berserker answers by swinging her sword in a wild, wide arc, but it doesn't work. No Name jumps clear and lands a slash across her back. Even that isn't enough, because Christina de Bruiser roars and stays on her feet. As he wonders what kind of monster she's become, a blue window tells him his speed skill has ended and needs time to recharge. Then he notices her berserk skill is draining her stamina, and he gets ready to use that opening. But he suddenly stops when he sees Christina de Bruiser crying and begging for the chance to keep fighting. That sight reminds him of his first death. As Rena tells him to end the match, No Name walks toward the berserker with sword in hand. Then steel clashes and everyone stares in shock. Christina de Bruiser looks stunned as the host announces her victory over No Name, who is lying on the arena floor. Rena rushes to the fallen him, panicked, and tries to wake him, tearing up at the thought that she lost him. She jolts when the skeleton stands up, mostly fine though his joints ache. Flustered, she quickly leads him away, while Christina de Bruiser watches from the arena. Later in the forest, No Name says he lost on purpose, and Rena groans about the money she wasted betting on him. Then her mood flips, and she points out they finished their mission. Christina de Bruiser catches up and asks for another fight, convinced he let her win because she no longer had the strength to beat him. The protagonist's name insists he was just careless and lost after getting hit by her sword, then tells her to go win the tournament. When she asks if they'll meet again, No Name says he doesn't know. He warns her to stay away from Eris if she wants to become a knight, then adds, almost jokingly, not to wear a helmet before leaving with Rena. Back at the TNT orphanage, Slime pays them for finishing the request. He says things are awkward now because No Name's tournament showing made a bunch of people want to become knights for the Jane family. The branch manager asks about the name Saray Jang Philip and writes it down when MC Name admits he made it up on the spot. Worried by what happened in Eris, he asks for their next job and a blue window appears asking him to confirm. For the next 3 months, No Name and Rena focus on dungeons, avoiding the North Alpine region and traveling through the mountains south of the Empire. During that time, they cross the Withering Burn, a maze full of poisonous branches, and fight centaurs in the blood-stained equestrian quota. They kept exploring dangerous places, fleeing ghouls in the Den of the Dead, earning loot and using slime to improve No Name's armor. While he thinks about that last dungeon, Reina suddenly bursts in and demands that he come with her. The protagonist has little idea why. Slime explains that Reina needs one more recommendation besides his own to become a branch manager, and she can get it from the Eastern Division if she passes an easy test. But No Name can't go with her, because the guild executive's location is hidden from outsiders. He tells her to just go, saying he'll clear a dungeon while she's away. That only makes Reina storm off angry, leaving No Name and Slime to keep talking about the goblin dungeon. Slime warns him that the place may be tied to the Necron Society. That night, a hooded man runs through the forest. Crossbow bolts fly at him, while riders chase close behind. Worn out, he drops to his knees, then forces himself back up and runs again, begging someone to hold on until he gets there. Back at the TNT branch, Slime tells No Name that people entering the goblin dungeon carry neck tattoos, and he's been finding dungeons taken over by Necron Society monsters. He adds that the dungeon is also a mine full of bloodstones, rare magic stones, and some will be part of the payment. He also says the reward will be much bigger than usual, but the mission will be dangerous and the dungeon has to be fully normalized. No Name takes the job. Later, he's in a forest trying to read a map when he realizes he's lost. Then he hears howling nearby, and when he follows it, he finds a white pup caught in a bear trap. He checks the injured animal and frees it before heading off again. But before he gets far, the pup jumps in front of him and barks hard. Not knowing why it's acting like this, No Name tries to wave the pup off and walks past it. Then the ground collapses under him, and he drops into a pit, barely saving himself by driving his sword into the wall before he lands on the metal spikes below. Looking around, he spots an adult white wolf dead in the pit, skewered on the spikes. With the pup barking above, No Name realizes that was its mother, and the pup had been trying to warn him. Even though he survived, he quickly understands he can't get out by himself. As evening falls, he stays trapped in the pit while the white pup keeps barking above. Then he hears voices. Some hunters are trying to catch the pup. No Name thinks about how to save it, but first decides to pretend to be dead. A bald man sees him and tells the others to forget the wolf for now and check the pit, thinking they can sell No Name's gear. The bald man tells one of his partners their hands are already dirty, since the man fell in, so he should climb down and grab the armor. The other man hesitates, afraid MC Name may still be alive and ready to attack. So the bald man decides to burn the pit. No Name keeps acting dead and waits for the flames to die, wondering if he can survive, when a blue window appears. It says his flame resistance skill has activated, lowering heat damage, but also weakening his strength. Once he sees he can live through it, thanks to the skill he got in the spider's vault, he stays still until the fire burns out. Then the other man climbs down a ladder and pokes at No Name, still worried he's alive. Another blue window appears, saying a new skill, pseudo-death, has been created. From above, the bald man snaps at him to hurry and take the armor, already talking about going to the pub when two soldiers walk up behind him. One reminds the shaken hunter that he was warned not to hunt there again. At the bottom of the pit, the nervous man finally removes No Name's helmet, and when the skeleton opens his eyes, the man freezes in terror at the sight of his skull, then screams as No Name calmly greets him and gets up. A moment later, he's knocked down when the bald man is thrown into the pit and crashes onto him. No Name climbs the ladder while the soldiers are busy checking for loot. Then he spots a snake tattoo on one soldier's neck and pegs them as Necron Society members. The two are about to leave when No Name calls out, making them spin around in shock. As they start to realize he came out of the pit, he tells the stunned soldier to take him to the goblin dungeon. They pull their weapons and demand to know why he's going there. No Name says he was sent to handle some business in the dungeon, then reaches for his sword ready to fight. But then the lead soldier notices his cape and asks if he's Darrenum, the new supervisor from the organization. Relieved, the man lowers his blade and says they were expecting him. No Name goes along with it, claims he is the supervisor, and the lead soldier bows, making the others do the same. The soldier explains he was told the supervisor would wear a red cape and apologizes for missing it. The protagonist's name accepts the apology and orders them to lead him to the dungeon. On the way, the lead soldier talks about how profitable the mine is until one of the others slips and says the captain messes around with the goblins, which clearly unsettles him. Thinking he can learn more, No Name asks if anything strange has been happening there. They tell him about a weird man the size of a child who keeps sneaking around and escaping capture. According to them, the man knows things about the dungeon that even they don't, and he knows the layout perfectly. They add that he once froze some slaves before they stopped him, so they suspect there's a spy. At last they reach the dungeon, and No Name sees a huge mining operation below. Goblin slaves are forced to work while overseers watch with whips. When one goblin collapses and drops its load, an overseer flies into a rage and lashes it without mercy. After that, he orders others to drag the badly beaten goblin away. Seeing the goblin slaves, No Name remembers what his mistress taught him. Goblins are cowardly but good at reading land and finding resources, and they avoid humans by hiding in the mountains. The smartest ones could become key followers of the 16 demon kings, and he'd heard they hated humans with all their hearts, which makes sense, especially after he passes a pile of dead goblins. The soldiers pull him back to the moment as they head into the dungeon, and a blue window appears to describe it. A large-scale dungeon with a base level of 10 to 20 that would normally need 15 to 20 people to clear. While No Name thinks that over, the strange man follows the group from a distance. Deeper inside, the lead soldier presents MC as the new supervisor to the captain. The captain welcomes him and reports that the mining operation is going well. He asks asks No Name to speak well of them to the higher-ups and offers full support during his stay. He praises their work while quietly thinking through how to finish the mission and kill everyone in the dungeon until the captain tells him to remove his helmet. Knowing he's close to being exposed, No Name quickly makes an excuse, saying he can't take it off because he's being treated for recent burns. When asked for identification, he says he left it at home. He starts to think his luck has run out, but the captain first laughs it off, then asks to see the snake tattoo proving he's part of the Necron Society. At that point, the captain figures out he isn't the real supervisor. As No Name reaches for his sword, the captain signals his men to raise their crossbows at the intruder, promising to torture him for answers. Outnumbered and with no better option, the protagonist Name activates his speed skill and charges into battle. He cuts through the soldiers while the panicked captain screams for the crossbows to fire. The captain celebrates when the bolts hit, but it doesn't last. No Name keeps slicing through his men at full speed and finally brings him down. The captain falls and a blue window tells MC he has earned the reward, Conqueror of the Thorny Maze, which cuts crossbow damage by 40%. As he recovers, No Name looks at the last 3 soldiers, who drop to their knees and beg to live. Saying he doesn't plan on killing them, he takes an ID from the dead captain, and now with proof of identity, orders them to lead him to the goblins. On the way, they tell him there's a second squad of 10 soldiers deeper inside, and when he notices more dead goblins, they say the other group did it. Soon they reach a tunnel where that second squad is firing crossbow bolts at a tied-up goblin just for fun. No Name recognizes it as a hobgoblin, a stronger, smarter kind of goblin that can heal and is called a royal goblin. Nearby, the other goblins cry out at the torture, so the squad leader barks for silence before noticing the approaching soldiers and No Name. When he asks why they're there, he mage steps up and introduces himself as the supervisor. The squad leader reaches for his helmet, but the protagonist Name clamps down on his arm and warns him not to touch him. Startled, the leader tells No Name to let go and asks what his problem is, while the strange man keeps watching from afar. Looking at the bound hobgoblin, MC twists the leader's arm. After protesting, the man notices the 3 soldiers' signal, pretends to apologize, then suddenly pulls a dagger and drives it through the eye slit of the helmet. No Name drops to his knees and the leader tells the others to explain, but before they can, they freeze as he pulls the dagger out of his helmet, calls the leader disgusting, and stabs him in the eye with it, and the soldiers fire their crossbows. No Name pulls the dagger free and hurls it into one soldier's face, then cuts down another with his sword. The last 4 panic and run, then he turns to the hobgoblin, checking if he's still alive as he slices through the ropes. Before he can finish, the strange man snags his leg with a lasso and yanks him upward with a pulley. The little man asks why No Name came here, and after a brief back and forth, the skeleton admits he was asked to restore the dungeon to its normal state, but he won't say by who. He adds that they aren't enemies. Hearing that, the strange man lowers him back down and reveals himself as a small goblin. The goblin then goes to his bound family member and tells No Name to leave this to him. As the hobgoblin is freed, a blue window appears and tells the protagonist Name his name is Insuka's Bumtong, the dungeon boss. Outside, 2 surviving soldiers run for their lives, convinced their attacker isn't human and trying to figure out how to escape the fake supervisor. A man in a red cape with a snake tattoo rides up on horseback and after hearing them asks what they're talking about. Back inside, No Name watches the freed hobgoblin and wonders how a dungeon boss this week got captured. When he reaches for his sword, the boss bolts in fear, while the small goblin chases after him, yelling for daddy to hold still so he can heal him. No Name finds it odd that human soldiers beat a hobgoblin, but the goblin child says they are peaceful, and the humans use traps to catch him and enslave his people. MC keeps pressing, asking why the boss is only ranked F-, which just confuses the child. He explains that dungeons are rated ahead of time to judge danger and keep people away. The child answers that even if they only hide there, it's still their home, then tells No Name to go. Just as he is about to leave, he spots a bomb rolling his way and gets blasted back. The hobgoblin runs off in fear, and No Name sees the real supervisor arrive with 3 soldiers. The man demands to know why the protagonist's name was pretending to be him. Daro LaRouge Nime, then pulls a small crossbow from beneath his cloak. Before he can shoot, the goblin child rushes in and cuts his wrist, making the man curse him as a slave. Then he fires, but the child dodges the bolt, knocks the crossbow away with his lasso, and leaps in with a dagger ready to kill him. But the goblin child is hit by a crossbow bolt through the chest and falls back. When he sees that, his father screams and runs to him, while the supervisor mocks him and raises his crossbow to finish the job. Before he can shoot, the furious hobgoblin smacks the weapon away with one fast swipe, and his eyes glowing red kills the supervisor, driving his fist through the man's chest and lifting him into the air before throwing the body at the soldier's feet. Covered in blood, the raging dungeon boss roars as the bandages on his body rip apart. The soldiers run and No Name watches from the ground. A blue window tells him the hobgoblin's mad enchantment has activated, exposing him as a hidden dungeon boss and boosting his stats until his strength or fighting spirit runs out. It also says blood-red hobgoblins are usually gentle pacifists, but when enraged they gain a powerful urge to kill. A hidden quest appears, Calm the Hobgoblin. The creature spots No Name and attacks, but the skeleton blocks the blows with his sword. He respects the hobgoblin's power, but uses better skill to get behind him and send him crashing across the room, then chokes him until he blacks out. Standing over the dungeon boss, No Name wonders if he should kill him, but then he notices worried goblins gathering around, including the boss's son. The hobgoblin soon wakes and starts speaking again, having regained his senses, and pulls his son into a hug. A blue window says No Name cleared the hidden quest, earning 200 allegiance from the hobgoblin and a 70% boost in reputation with the blood-red goblin tribe, with more to come over time. It also says the assimilation rate dropped to 88.3, making the skeleton wonder what that means. He notes that whenever something new gets recognized, the assimilation rate falls, and he tries to remember why. His thoughts are cut off when the hobgoblin thanks him and offers to repay him. No Name refuses. The hobgoblin asks his name, but the skeleton won't give it. Instead, MC tells the goblins to hide deeper inside because a human war is coming, and he thinks about the Necron Society. He wonders if Rena could learn more by becoming branch manager. He also takes the dead supervisor's ID and a pouch of gold. As he leaves the dungeon, the hobgoblin runs after him and offers another way to repay him by telling him about a special goblin mage. The hobgoblin says the goblin mage Mudcash is a secret of the goblin race, and he's obsessed with gold. He spent his whole life piling up coins, and now he wants every gold coin in the world. To do that, he made a magic coin purse with endless space, probably for other items too. That catches the skeleton's interest. The hobgoblin goes on, saying Mudcash is believed to live in the eastern mountains. To find him, No Name has to walk around shouting a secret code. Treek, 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 and Mudcash will come to him. The goblin says it means, "Do you like money? I do," and starts teaching No Name how to make the sound. Back at the TNT orphanage, T-Name tells Slime he finished the quest and even wiped out members of the Necron Society. Slime thanks him and offers to fix his armor. The protagonist Name mentions the members' snake tattoos can choke them to death, and the headmaster confirms that's magic meant to kill anyone who tries to reveal the society's secrets. When No Name asks how to break the spell, Slime says it depends on how strong the caster is. He seems to have someone in mind but says it's too soon to be sure. Then Slime tells No Name he may need to leave for a while on guild business, and that Rena passed her test and might have something to tell him when she gets back. That night, with no armor on, MC Name is looking out his window when Rena startles him from behind. He jokes with her, then notices the bruises on her face and asks about her promotion. Rena thanks him for his help, then after a pause asks him to run away with her to leave everything behind except her sister and live in hiding. No Name flatly refuses, reminding her of their deal to use each other and make her branch manager so she can help him. She sighs and says the test still isn't over. They told her she has to bring him to a certain time and place, and once she becomes branch manager, answers will become easy for her to get. Hinting they know what he really is, No Name catches the threat in that. Rena admits she's scared and worried he'll regret going with her. She says guilt doesn't matter and begs him to just run. He Name cuts her off and says it does matter because they need information, and Rena's promotion is how they'll get it. Privately, he also wants to clear the scenario. Rena says he seems even more eager than she is to get into the guild, then gives a nervous smile and agrees to go. At dawn, Rena and No Name ride in a cart, silent on the way to their destination. By night, they're almost there, and Rena leads him to a ruined arena with an altar in the middle and caves along the sides. While they wait, the pair studies the place, especially the altar. Then when the clouds clear, No Name is stunned to recognize the symbols on it as the mark of the Demon King person. Remembering his time as a skeleton soldier, he recalls Demon King of Thunder leading 26 units and wearing a lion's head as he led his army with a trumpet while riding a giant black bear. No Name realizes the TNT Guild worships a Demon King, and that the Necron Society's snake is the symbol of Demon King Duke Bodis, who led 60 units. He concludes that even though the descent is still 10 years away, the Demon Kings are already influencing this world. Suddenly, several robed figures emerge from the caves in the arena, including an old man with a turban and staff who introduces himself as Patrick Achair. Patrick Achair, a mage and the third-ranked director of TNT's national headquarters. He then introduces the others as TNT executives who share the same goal, reducing the human population. No Name is stunned and asks why he was summoned there too. Patrick Achair says they looked into both his and Rena's pasts, and the protagonist's name stood out right away from everyone else. He begins listing what MC has done since rising from his grave, praising his power. The mage says he wants to build a new world with him because of how cruel humans are to other races. He removes his turban and reveals he is one of the deer people, hunted by humans who use their horns as medicine. He adds that humans kill each other too, and thinking of Rubia and Mistress Succubus, No Name asks what he's planning. Patrick Aher answers that a great war is coming, and the blood spilled in it must be offered to their king so he can descend into the world and wipe out humans. No Name identifies that king as the Demon King, drawing applause from Patrick Aher and the others as he says the name, person. With no need to explain the old legends, the mage says their ritual to offer human blood and screams to their king is ready. Once he descends, it will mean the end of mankind. His name is shocked a group like this even exists, and since the war is about to begin, he asks Patrick Edgar if they started it. The mage says the war was begun by the crown. They only plan to make the death toll worse, block any peace talks, and manipulate the war's hero, so the Empire and Alliance will hate each other even more. Knowing the future, No Name realizes their plan will only partly work. Their god and his 12 followers will descend after the sacrifices. Then they'll butcher humanity for 10 years before they're finally killed. For a moment, No wonders how these believers would react if they saw their gods fall. He then asks Patrick of Tudar where the Empire will attack first. The answer is Amber, where TNT's main base is, and even with the city's strength and harsh methods, they couldn't stop the war. After that, the royal family pushed the war plans even faster. No asks the dear man if TNT sabotaged the peace talks. Patrick bursts out laughing at that idea. They were never strong enough to do something like that. They just failed. War was coming anyway, and they're only riding the wave. slave. Then he invites Reina and No to join them, offering power. When the protagonist asks if he means status inside TNT, Patrick says that's part of it, but he means real power. He lowers his staff and calls on something ancient. The hooded figures start changing into monsters, leaving Reina stunned. Patrick's antlers spread as he turns into a giant deer, and the others reveal their true forms as they close in on No. Looking at Person's followers, he realizes that even if they're low in the order, they're still dangerous. Patrick stomps, sending lightning through the ground. The shock around him makes No feel the crushing weight of even a tiny piece of Person's power. The deer man offers that power to him, and MC asks what the price is. Patrick says once the seal is carved into his body, Person's power will flow through him if he believes. In return, he only has to make a sacrifice every full moon. No notices the human followers among them, and when he asks, they admit they're ordinary humans who hate mankind and feel sorry for being born human. No remembers that after the Demon Kings descended, about 1 out of every 10 or 20 humans joined the monsters. Some just followed the crowd, while others had already studied black magic and had the protagonist way out. A few truly hated humanity and believed people should be wiped out. Patrick asks No if he'll accept the seal, promising a just world with balance. MC says he won't try to stop them, but he won't join either. He won't serve a king that's doomed to lose. A harpy snaps that this is blasphemy. She points out how weak No is and the power being handed to him. Inside, he knows she's right. Right now, he might not even beat a harpy. His growth has already hit its ceiling, so extra power is tempting. But he fears that once he takes the seal, they'll demand his whole life, and he still doesn't know how many revivals he has left if that happens. No matter the power, he refuses to become Person's slave. As the harpy grows restless, the protagonist turns to Reina and asks what she'll do. She answers with a question. Does he want her to take it? No says she might gain power for 10 years, but once the Demon Kings fall, it will vanish. Reina sighs and says she'd never take that power alone. As long as she and MC stay together, nothing else matters. The deer man is surprised, but No repeats that he doesn't hate their goal. He just refuses to serve someone who will lose. Furious again, the harpy spreads her talons and rushes to kill him. But before she can attack, Reina shouts for everyone to stop. If they don't let them leave, she'll fire everything in her bag, and it's packed with Imperial Army flares. That freezes the room. Reina warns that the flares will draw people here, and since these followers don't want attention, they should let the two of them go. While the harpy complains, Patrick Ajar orders everyone to back off. After checking once more that No won't take the seal, Reina says it'll be hard to stay alive now. A werewolf calls himself Brody Baldov and says Reina is bluffing. Any humans who show up won't be a problem for him. Trying to stay calm, Reina throws out a joke about the werewolf's eyes. Then Patrick Akier tells everyone to move away from Reina and No, because this is the best place for Person's judgment, and he won't drag it out any longer. Thinking they might be getting released, No says they'll be leaving. Then the deer man's antlers spark with magic and both of them are paralyzed where they stand. Patrick Akier says they heard too much, so he has to kill them. But first he gives them one last chance to join. No figures out they can't force the seal onto him, and the deer man confirms it. After thinking it over, he asks if the Necron Society follows Bodis and whether Person's contract also kills people who reveal its secrets. Patrick Akier only says the protagonist can learn that answer if he joins or die if he doesn't. But when No asks for the answer as a final gift, Patrick admits the Necron tattoos empower only the chief priest and turn everyone else into servants. As the deer man asks them to choose again, the flares in Reina's bag suddenly ignite, shocking everyone. A blindfolded woman whispers something in Patrick's ear, and he tells everyone to scatter. While the others hide, the blindfolded woman stays with the frozen pair. She says it's a shame things ended up like this, but before leaving, she has to deal with them. When she touches Reina's face, her hand turns to slime, revealing she's the headmaster of the TNT orphanage. Her mismatched eyes confirm it. As the pair starts being swallowed, No reminds the slime that children will die if war begins. She coldly says there is MC other choice and humans deserve to be wiped out. Regretting that they can't work together anymore, she keeps going as No watches Reina begin to melt until darkness takes him again. He wakes up again in the charnel house with Reina asleep on his lap. Thinking over that long life and the help TNT gave him, he realizes he can't go to them this time, or Reina will die again. He deeply regrets causing her death. A blue window says his inheritance is complete and that he gained a new bonus: corrosive resistance after his 7th death, boosting his resistance to acid. It also says the necromancer's lover bonus was chosen automatically. No decides that in this life, he has to be alone. Looking at Reina, he notices her stats are different from before and his assimilation rate has fallen to 87.75. Reina wakes up and says she had a strange dream which catches No off guard. Then she hands him her pendant, and he recognizes it as a token of trust, surprising Reina. Even though he accepts it, he says they need to go their separate ways. He's leaving, and she shouldn't stay in the charnel house longer than a month. When Reina asks when they'll meet again, No stands up and says they won't. He apologizes to her, tells her to live freely, and leaves the dungeon. As he wonders where to go next, he remembers the empty arid underground cemetery and heads there. Later, as he gets close to the dungeon, No has to hide when soldiers ride down the road. Before he can decide what to do about them, the men suddenly stop where they are. They walk up to a swordsman with a katana, and saying they're looking for spies, order him to identify himself. The swordsman makes fun of them for guarding the safest road. When they ask his rank, he chuckles and says he's the spy. The soldiers lower their spears and charge, but in one smooth move, he slices off all the spear tips. Then he says he was joking, pulls out an ID, and introduces himself as Chandler Namjack, young lord of Grasmere. The soldiers apologize and he tells them to fetch his weapon from his castle, handing over his seal as proof before they leave. As they head off, No studies the man from his hiding spot. Just as he's about to leave, he hears someone greet him. Then everything fades to black and a blue window appears, saying his understanding of skeletons from his last life has reached EX rank. No wakes up without armor, unable to move, staring at several blue windows. One says he's in a deep sleep inside a dream. In this state, his stats are lowered. His magic and field division are sealed. Another says he's under a powerful enchantment. As he checks around, he starts to move, and a window says his stats are now only 15% of normal. As he stumbles ahead, another skeleton soldier attacks him, until a warning says his health has dropped below 75. No reads the enemy's pattern, lands a hard punch that sends it flying, then breaks its collarbone. The skeleton pulls itself back together and leaves. As No notices he's also recovered, an orc skeleton appears behind him and blasts him away with one punch. Then it lifts the protagonist by the arm and shatters his humerus. No grabs his severed arm, and a blue window says his level 5 sword mastery is active at 70% power. He drives the arm into the orc's skull, shattering it and killing the skeleton before healing again. Then a stone lights up, and a sign tells No to choose from several weapons and shields. That makes him realize someone is watching him. Once he takes a sword and shield, the stat debuff disappears and his field division returns, revealing huge piles of bones. 3 orc skeletons form and move toward him. As he sizes up the fight, one swings an axe and he barely blocks it, thinking that if his skull cracks he might see Rinny again, but he can't count on miracles. After losing his shield, the skeleton dodges the orc's axe swings, trying to figure out what his captor wants. He wants to live, but sees no real hope. When the orc skeletons kick away his shield and pin him down, he wonders if this is simply the end. He can't understand why they don't just kill him, so he concludes someone is controlling them and wonders who could be that strong. In the distance, a woman watches. As the skeletons slam him down, she asks if he's still hiding something. Soon, Noah is surrounded by screaming spirits while the voice keeps questioning him. MC Name lashes out at the spirits while the questions keep coming. He starts to think the unseen speaker is mocking him and demands to know who she is. Instead of answering, the voice speaks in strange riddles, and the last one clearly points to Rubia. That sets No Name off, and the voice asks if he wants to tear her apart. Then Cooley says he's the one who will be torn to pieces. She says she can break him down, put him back together, and even add bones from other creatures. That makes No Name realize he's dealing with something truly powerful, maybe something that even knows he can revive. So he asks why he was brought here. The spirits let go, and the voice says she only wanted a friendly talk while waiting for someone. She adds that the digging is finished, the repairs are done, and now that she's examined him, she wants to hear his story. Before answering, No Name asks about Rubia. She says she saw her in his memories and asks how long it's been since his resurrection. He says by normal time about 3 months, then shouts that this is his 9th life. Even after all those lives, he couldn't protect or save anyone, and now he's just being played with. The new voice says his yelling scared her, and No Name turns to find a half-skeleton woman in red robes. She studies him, Name, with clear interest. When she taps his shoulder, a blue window appears, saying he leveled up, but the scenario can't begin because he doesn't meet the requirements. The woman then asks if this is really his 8th life. After No Name tells his story, she swallows hard and jokes that he must be crazy. Another blue window says his likability with the necromancer Gilderai de Ray has risen to 35. That makes him check his necromancer lover bonus. Then Gilderai suddenly grabs his hand and playfully says she may need to take him apart. She holds his skull, murmurs that she finds no madness or curse in him, and everything goes black again. The protagonist Name wakes on the cave floor and wonders if it was all a dream, until Gilderai speaks from behind him. She apologizes for opening up his skull, and explains she removed part of his parietal bone, replacing it with a piece of her own skull that carries her essence. Then she teases him, saying he can do something fun now. While No Name tries to figure out what she means, Chandler stumbles forward and MC asks if she killed him. She says she only woke him from his life, then hands No Name a sword and tells him to use the swordsman's weakness, since he can beat him easily. Chandler rushes in, their blades clash, and they trade parries until No Name finally cuts off his head. Even so, Chandler keeps fighting without it, until No Name kicks him back and drives his sword through the chest. Then Name notices the swordsman's hand glowing. Rai tells him to try absorbing it, and a blue window says he's gained the skill to absorb an opponent's essence, which will grow stronger the more he absorbs. As No Name reaches for Chandler's essence, another window explains that stacks under 50 can be absorbed, though his low level puts limits on the skill. When the swordsman's essence flows into him, the window says No Name has absorbed Chandler's skills and abilities, and he can use them after they finish assimilating in 24 hours. Rai confirms the absorption skill was her gift, and the protagonist's Name is amazed it can raise both his stats and skills. He asks if she's had it all her life, and she says yes, then remarks that it's strange how far she's willing to go for him. Next, she casts a gravity prison and binds him with invisible onyx chains. A blue window tells No Name he is bound to her forever unless she releases him. As he thinks about what that means, Rai says she never planned to let him go, and because of the chains she couldn't even if she wanted to. To her, he should stay by her side until death separates them. Then, all cheerful again, she tells him to take a walk outside the cave so he can test his new skills. They leave the catacombs, and when No Name warns they could be discovered, Rai says she hid the place with a barrier, and everyone nearby was already going to pull back. MC Name worries the Blue Templars might kill her, but she laughs and says nobody in this country can kill her. If anyone dies, it'll be Emperor Elton Clements. She then reveals reveals she was supposed to kill him because she serves as an honorary priest in the Red Flake Order of Assassins. The order got a request to assassinate the Emperor, but every other member turned it down to keep their neutrality. So Gilderai accepted it herself, asking for control of Wedgestone Commemoration Park and Obsidian Hill Park where humanity's heroes are buried. Then she waited in the dungeon for the Emperor to come. She says he'll arrive in 4 days to inspect the southern lands and meet the new lords. No Name figures that means he's heading to Arist. After that, she tells him to walk alone on the road without hiding inside his armor, and gives him a magic blade, telling him to stab anyone who attacks. Gilderai explains the weapon is tied to her, so it can change owners no matter who uses it. Then she points to approaching soldiers and tells him Name to move. He slips behind a tree wondering if he can win, when a spear suddenly punches through the trunk just under his ribs. Realizing he's been spotted, he dodges as a second spear tears through the tree, then rolls out to face the soldiers charging in. They identify him as a skeleton soldier and wonder where he came from. One throws a rondelle that barely misses and lodges in a rock. A soldier warns the others about No Name and his blade, and the protagonist Name realizes these are the Emperor's scouts, far too much for him alone. Then a voice comes from the rune-covered dagger, telling him to kill them, and his body starts moving by itself to attack. When the blade cuts one soldier, the runes crawl into the wound, bringing terrible pain as the man's arm swells and white blood pours out. A blue window tells No Name he has leveled up as the soldier dies at his feet. He barely has time to wonder about the blade's power before other soldiers pin him to a tree with spears. They rush in, furious, to finish him, and as No Name cuts the spear shafts to break free, a blue window warns his sword skill is less effective because he hasn't learned to use a dagger. Before they can kill him, Gilderai steps in and drops them with bone knives. Then she tells No Name to end them himself, so his absorption skill will grow stronger. He hesitates, still shaken by the dagger. Gilderai explains the runes invade the veins of anyone who touches it, even though that won't affect him as a skeleton. No Name says he hates being controlled by the weapon, but Gilderai says the blade only follows what he already wants. While he thinks that over, she urges him to finish them for their sake. He grabs one of the soldiers' swords and quickly kills them. When a blue window says absorption is possible, he takes in their essence and skills. Afterward, Gilderai invites him to eat something more nourishing before they kill the Emperor. After leaving instructions for the skeletons in the cave, sometime later, 2 of the Emperor's magicians arrive and scan the road for magic. They detect nothing unusual, so Gilderai lets them pass and keeps waiting for the Emperor. Soon, a force of knights comes down the road, followed by a gold carriage protected against spells. They figure that must be carrying the Emperor. No Name looks over the large escort and notices the leader wearing mithril armor. Gilderai grins and asks if No Name wants that armor, then rises and walks toward the road. Standing there alone, she's challenged by the soldiers. As the captain signals for the Imperial mages, one of them stops the men and identifies her as one of Ambermere's 3 guardians, and the strongest necromancer alive. When the captain asks what she wants, Gilderai calmly says she's here to assassinate the crown prince. That sends the men forward, while No Name watches from a distance. Gilderai doesn't move as the knights charge. Just before they reach her, she lifts a hand and gives a command. The earth in front of her collapses, and the confused knights drop into a sinkhole. They scramble to fight from below, while Gilderai looks down and explains to No Name that her children dug underneath the road and acted like supports, setting the trap ahead of time. Then she points to skeleton soldiers bursting from the ground among the trapped knights, flipping the carriage and attacking from every side. Some soldiers are quickly overwhelmed, but their captain holds his ground until he freezes in shock. From a cloud of black smoke, 5 huge undead warriors rise around their mistress, and she sends them into battle. They carve through the soldiers as Gilderai walks down into the pit on stairs made by her children. A spear suddenly flies at her, but she catches it in mid-air and hurls it back, skewering several knights and aiming straight for the captain. He knocks it aside, but the impact still throws him to the ground. When he looks up, he sees the battlefield turning into a nightmare. Gilderai keeps walking through the slaughter while Gillo, one of her warriors, escorts her and reports on the fight. He says Owain still has his sword mastery, and Pale Hameline is spraying nightblood with every swing to Gilderai's delight. He adds that Andre the Heartbreaker is also doing well, crushing hearts with his lance. Only Fenrir is having trouble, because he's facing a real match. The captain of the Imperial Knights is keeping up with Fenrir, dodging and countering the undead warrior's strikes. Then Fenrir leaps up and tries to strike the captain from above. Fenrir comes down from above, but the captain knocks the attack away. Seeing that, Gilderai tells Gil to back him up. Gil too cuts down the knights around him and jumps in. Now he and Fenrir team up, striking the captain together. No is stunned by how strong Gilderai really is. Then he spots the 2 Imperial mages getting ready to hit her with holy magic. Knowing how dangerous that is, the skeleton rushes to stop them before they can cast it. But Gilderai just smiles and forms an anti-divine mandala, shutting the spell down. The mages curse her and she looks toward the skeleton, touched that he tried to protect her, then briefly holds him back with onyx chains. Right after that, the mages throw a fireball. The necromancer lifts her sword and fires back with magic purge, slicing the fireball cleanly in 2. The split blast misses Gilderai and No then burns nearby knights alive while the mages stare in horror. At the same time, Gil and Fenrir keep fighting the captain, but his sword skill is so great that he blocks or avoids every blow from the undead heroes. His surviving knights rush in to help even though he tells them not to, and Fenrir cuts them down with ease. Furious over his fallen men, the captain catches a double strike from the two undead warriors and swears he'll kill them. Then he counters and charges straight at them. Nearby, Gil de Rai keeps batting away the Imperial mages' attacks until they pour everything into one last huge spell. She stays completely calm and tells the watching No that it's time to end this. MC lifts his head and sees her undead servants hoist the Imperial carriage into the air and slam it onto the mages. Their spell and the carriage's barrier wipe each other out. No can only stare at Gil de Rai's power, her 5 giant warriors, and the fact that the whole battalion of knights, captain included, has been wiped out. Gil de Rai praises her warriors, then orders the fallen Imperial knights to rise. They stand in ranks and open a path between her and the Imperial carriage. She walks up to the well-dressed man stepping out of it and immediately takes a blood sample with a syringe to check his genes. After confirming he really is the Emperor, she carries out the request and cuts his throat with her skeleton finger. Even as he bleeds out, the man cries, "Long live His Majesty, the Emperor." Gil de Rai is caught off guard seeing him praise the Emperor, and when No asks if he was a body double, she says that shouldn't be possible after the gene test. Confused, she takes a ring from his hand and sees a swirling black mass form above his head. Realizing something is wrong, she orders everyone to get back. Bone tentacles burst from the necromancer's back and stab at the black mass, but they're smashed aside. She shouts again for her troops to retreat, saying this will be her final order. The 5 undead warriors refuse and help her, driving their weapons into the mass while Gil de Rai desperately repeats the command. Then the mass suddenly breaks apart and the pieces reshape into a dark sword that tears open reality. Alarmed, Gil de Rai yells for her undead heroes to dodge, but the sword cuts all 5 of them in half, one after another, killing them effortlessly. Next, Gil de Rai throws No back with her tendrils. He wonders if she's telling him to run as she blocks the sword. Then a knight in black armor with glowing markings and a flowing red cape steps out of the rift, holding the sword. Furious, Gil de Rai vows to destroy him and sends her tendrils to attack. The knight answers with one slash through the air, causing huge destruction and killing Gil de Rai and her undead troops. No is horrified by what he just saw, and when the knight notices him, he swings again, saying he'll make an application. After the hit lands, a blue window tells the confused No that he gained level 1 two-handed sword mastery, wide slash, and 1 strike. He tries to make sense of everything that just happened and of the strange knight, but then the man summons several blades from the rift and sends them at him. They pass right through his body, and a blue window says his assimilation rate is 84.68. Then a blank window appears in front of the puzzled No. The Black Knight's armor starts glowing red, and after saying something in an unknown language, he glares at the skeleton, turns away, and disappears back into the rift. When the rift closes, No is left alone among the dead, feeling completely helpless after failing to save anyone and only watching the whole battle happen. He wanders in despair, asking why he survived and why the Dark Knight let him live, before looking back at the blank window. When he touches it, his fingers go right through, making him jerk his hand back in shock. Thinking it might be spatial magic, he tries putting a sword inside, and the sword turns into an icon on the window. He figures the window appeared when those blades passed through him and starts wondering what it is. He first thinks about taking all the weapons around him, but gives up the idea, worried Imperial troops might show up, so he plans to leave fast. Then he goes to Gil de Rai's body, and is startled when a glowing ball of essence appears in her chest. The essence from everyone who died in the battle merges into one huge mass, and No realizes he can absorb it, so he moves closer. The blue window asks him to confirm his choice. The protagonist hesitates. Should he absorb the essence or try to protect Gil de Rai in this life? In the end, he decides he needs more power if he wants to save her someday, so he confirms the absorption. The massive essence flows into his body, and a blue window says he gained the bone sharing perk and that his absorbing efficiency rose a lot, raising the cap to 75. More windows pop up, saying his stats rose greatly and that he gained the Bone Monarch skill, which lets him steal an enemy's bones and build complex bone structures. He wonders if that means he can make his own bone servants, and thinks it will be useful later. Then he thinks about what to do with Gil de Rai's body, but decides to leave her there and hurry to absorb the remaining essence from the dead warriors. As he takes in the Imperial Knight's essence, blue windows tell him what skills he got, and then a timer appears, saying the absorption will finish in 24 hours. Next, he goes to the captain, noticing how strong the warrior's essence is, and starts to absorb it, gaining several tactical skills. A red window appears and says he has hit the limit of 50 active skills. Upset that he can't absorb more, No turns to taking the captain's mithril armor, and when he removes the helmet, he finds out the captain was a woman. He closes her eyes. After putting on the armor and attaching the magic blade, No climbs out of the pit and wonders where to go next. Thinking he could be a danger to Reyna in his current state, he decides to head somewhere deserted and sort out his new skills. Then, using dash, he speeds away. By night, a lone figure arrives at the site of the slaughter. Marquise Von, leader of the Blue Lion Templars, walks up to the body of the Imperial Knight's captain. He calls her Isabel and kneels beside her in quiet grief, then looks up with hate and resolve in his eyes. After using dash, No finally stops, wondering if he's gone far enough, and deciding to save one last use for an emergency. He has been using dash for several days, and after covering so much ground, he figures that even if the Imperial family sent troops after him, finding him won't be easy. Elsewhere, Bona follows his trail, No feels the place where he stopped is familiar, and after looking around, he finds the skeleton of the wolf pup he met in his past life, stuck in a bear trap, unable to save itself. Remembering Bon Monarch, he wonders if he can bring it back and decides to try. The pup's skeleton rises, and not knowing what else to do, he covers it with cloth so it won't draw attention. The pup then runs off on its own since No's Bon Monarch level is too low to control it, and he follows it through the forest. Meanwhile, Vonov uses a magic compass that points toward No and makes the skeleton's armor start glowing, which leaves him confused. That night, MC and the pup reach a cabin. He guesses it may have belonged to hunters and realizes the pup brought him there to rest. After checking the area for danger, No goes inside and looks around. The pup then urges him upstairs, where they find a barrel holding a dead troll. No absorbs its essence, gains new skills, and decides to stay in the cabin until the absorption is done. Nearby, Vonov passes the bear trap and heads for the cabin. As No's armor starts glowing again, he looks at the dead troll and wonders if he can revive it like the pup. He puts a hand on its head, orders it to rise, and energy starts to flow, but a red window warns that the troll needs 35 control, and he doesn't have enough. That makes him wonder just how much control Galel's Darai had, since he can't even guess the amount needed for the army she used in the ambush, and if he could ever reach that level someday. Suddenly the pup goes alert and barks, making No wonder what is wrong, though he first thinks it's just warning him that he's out of control. Then he notices a book on the table, and when he checks it, the title is So You Want to Kill a Troll by Kevin Ashton. No jokes that it's almost like it was left there for him to read. As he goes through it, he finds a page written in an unknown language, and a blue window tells him Eastern Language Level 1 is being used. A moment later, he feels dizzy, and a window says his assimilation rate has dropped to 83.94. He picks up the book again, and now that he can read the language, he manages to gain a +1 intelligence bonus, even though he still doesn't understand what the text means. Then the door opens. The pup starts barking again, and No Name wonders what set it off. He turns and sees Vaughn standing right beside him, grim-faced with his sword raised. Refusing to die for nothing, the protagonist Name lifts his magic sword and blocks the seraphim blade. Remembering what it can do, he thinks he still has a shot if he can land one cut on the knight. As No Name pushes against the seraphim blade, it starts to glow and throws up a force field that blasts him into the wall. With no opening in sight, he wonders if he's about to die again without even scratching Vaughn. MC's sword and stolen armor end up on the floor while Vaughn pins the skeleton's head down, and when No Name asks why he isn't questioning him, the knight just knocks him out. Name wakes beside a campfire, trying to figure out what happened, then realizes he's tied up. Since Vaughn left him alive, he assumes the knight wants something, probably about the Emperor's assassination. No Name decides to learn something first. He mocks Vaughn, saying his mission is pointless, now that the Emperor is dead, but gets the protagonist answer. So he asks who Vaughn thinks wanted the Emperor dead most, hinting that he might know. The knight turns, then quickly pulls off his jaw so he can't speak. That tells No Name Vaughn doesn't want information at all. Now he knows talking won't help, and escape is his best option. But since he'd get caught if he ran now, he waits for the knight to fall asleep. After a while, he starts wondering if he should go or keep waiting, since he can't tell whether Vaughn is really asleep or not. Then he feels bugs land on his skull. Hearing odd sounds, No Name uses detection and finds that he can only sense the horse. Vaughn is too strong for his current skill level. Then the leaves rustle, and a shadow leaps from the brush, charging the sleeping knight, who wakes at once and blocks the strike. The attacker wears a canine mask and fights with clawed weapons. To No Name, this looks like the perfect chance to run, but Vaughn tells the attacker he'd been waiting for the skeleton's master, which leaves MC confused. When they separate, the attacker admits Vaughn is far stronger than the intel said. The Blue Templar vows to take both her arms and pushes his attack, but his blow goes right through the fox-masked woman, stunning both Vaughn and No Name. She rushes in and hits the knight, telling him she'll take his heart. As Vaughn coughs up blood, she announces that codename Starlight Fox is now in action. Vaughn grabs his wound and she clicks her tongue, saying she missed, something that shocks No Name. The knight then pulls out a potion and bites the bottle open, leaving the woman stunned by how much he drinks. She decides to get serious, calling out a swarm of mechanical bugs. No Name remembers the beetles from earlier and stares as she sends the swarm after Vaughn while he rushes for his horse. The bugs explode, turning the knight into a bloody crater. No Name is still trying to process it when the attacker yanks him free of his bindings and carries him farther away before stopping. After a quick search, she takes out his jaw, puts it back on, and unties him. No Name asks why she's helping, and she introduces herself as Elwyn Esau, the summoning nun of the Red Flakes Order of Assassins, codenamed Starlight Blue Fox. She was sent to confirm the Emperor's assassination, and she already confirmed that in Gella's death. But now there's no one left to collect the reward. The Red Flakes can't take it because Gellas accepted the mission after leaving the Order, and as the only minion left, No Name should claim it. He tries to turn it down, saying he was only watching, but Elwyn says he carries Gella's suppressive essence, which let her track him, and that counts. While No Name silently thinks about thanking Gellas in another life, the nun tells him to come with her. They head to a magic motorbike shaped like a scarab, and Elwyn tells No Name to get on. At the same time, Vaughn rises from the blood pool, his eyes glowing red as he remembers the beetle attack and calls him Name and Elwyn murderous bastards. Elwyn and No Name race through the forest on the bike, and it reports a speed over 500 kilometers an hour. The protagonist Name clings on, wondering what this thing even is, and the nun says it's made from polymer resin shaped with carbonic acid and came from her inheritance. When No Name admits those words mean nothing to him, she says she doesn't know either. She's just repeating the records. As they keep moving, No Name thinks about how wildly different this life has become. They reach a cliff, and the bike warns them there is MC Road ahead. To No Name's horror, Elwyn speeds up and drives straight off. He covers his eyes, eyes, sure they're dead, but the bike switches into flight mode. At Elwin's urging, No Name opens his eyes and looks out as she points to Eublum's blacksmith and Arist in the distance, showing how close they really were. It leaves No Name feeling strange after struggling so much in such a small area. Later, they land on a barren plain. Elwin says the vehicle is called Perseus, an amphibious sailplane built by science, what she calls magic from an older age. She says she'll explain inheritance to No Name later, and for now they need to push the bike to save fuel. Perseus was made with methods lost to their time, methods even Amber can't copy, and it slowly refuels when left under starlight. No Name suggests moving it at night, but Elwin reminds him the sun is also a star. When he thinks she's joking, she corrects herself while patting his head. Then Elwin asks if he's ever been to Amber, and he remembers going there in his first life as a skeleton soldier, along with all the destruction he saw. He says he was there in 1157, which amuses the nun since it's only 1147 now. No Name decides there's him point warning her about the coming war. She'd never believe him, so he asks where they are instead. Elwin says this wasteland is Area B14, also called the Red Marsh. No Name is confused by that until he spots a red cloud far away. Looking closer, he sees it's made of countless red mechanical bugs. Elwin says there are probably tens of billions of them, similar to the bugs she used, except smaller, and they eat everything. Saying they don't need to go around, she decides to show him something fun. She touches a panel, and the bike projects a topographic map like Google Maps with a 16-kilometer radius set to track inheritances. She explains that the red patch isn't the swarm, but an undiscovered inheritance called the Million Ship. Its wavelength is 10,000 times stronger than the strongest inheritance found so far, and 30,000 times stronger than Perseus, which is why the swarm gathers around it. The Empire sent its best magicians to study the place, but learned nothing, then erased the records of that failed mission. Looking at the map, No Name wonders what this inheritance really is. He asks Elwin about a small dot on the display beside Perseus, and she says everyone needs a trump card. Even though he's curious about her other inheritance, he lets it go. Elwin gets moving again, switching Perseus to high-frequency mode to drive the bugs back with its emitted wavelengths. They reach the sea and head for the docks to get to Amber. No Name worries about sea monsters, but Elwin says they'll only use a ship near the danger zone, then continue on Perseus. Since it can repel monsters the same way it repelled the swarm, they should be safe as long as they stay out of stronger creatures' territory. Back in Area B14, Vaughn cuts through the swarm with his Seraphim blade, still coming after them. As their ship pushes through rough weather, Elwin warns No Name that Amber will be loud because it's getting ready for war. She says Amber plans to strike the Empire with the Freedom Alliance and turn the Red Marsh into neutral land. But No Name points out that if the Empire falls, the Alliance could turn on Amber. The island nation is far smaller and less populated than either neighbor. He says Amber stayed independent by balancing between both powers and their ideas. Elwin cuts him off and says Amber survived for another reason. It controlled both sides from the shadows, pushing them to fight each other and leave Amber alone. No Name asks why the Alliance would go to war with the Empire instead of controlling it too, and she coldly answers that the Empire suddenly became impossible to control. That's why Emperor Elwin was assassinated. But if that doesn't work, they have to use the chance to attack. No Name then remembers Persian's followers saying the Empire was preparing for war too. He asks what happens if Amber wins, and Elwin says the Red Flakes will secure the Million Ship so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. As the storm gets worse, Elwin tells No Name to get ready to board Perseus, because they're nearing the Kraken's territory. On deck, the protagonist Name wonders who the captain is, sailing alone and asking no questions about him. Elwin says the man only cares about money and that she's a regular customer. She greets him and says they'll be leaving soon. The captain barely gets out a reply before something lands behind him and cuts off his head. Elwin and No Name curse their luck as Vaughn appears on the deck standing on the railing with sword in hand. Vaughn slashes at Elwin but it does nothing. That confirms to him she can pass through objects because of her inheritance. The nun raises her weapons and tells him to prove it, and the Blue Templar accepts, cutting at her neck for nothing. She asks if he has any more elixirs, then strikes back saying he'll die when she tears out his heart again. Vaughn drives a kick straight into her chest and sends her flying. He realizes the way to beat her is to keep attacking until her inheritance runs out. Elwin notes his stubbornness and Vaughn declares her sentence for killing the Emperor, then attacks again. Elwin starts mocking him, then notices his strike also wrecked the ship. She asks if he'd really go this far to kill her even if she's innocent. Vachien von Leandro shuts that down, saying she came for the skeleton who saw the murder. That makes no fear. He thinks Elwin did what Gellis did because of him. Elwin snaps at Vachien von Leandro to go die by himself and stop tearing apart the ship, then hurls her clawed weapon at him. The knight catches it and counters, saying if she had any honor she wouldn't be sneaking across the border. While Elwin figures out her next move, Vachien von Leandro keeps quoting laws, warning that everyone is in trouble if they run into something worse out here. She hooks one end of her weapon to the rigging and swings back, shouting for him to listen, but he blocks the blow and keeps advancing. While Vachien von Leandro goes on handing down judgment, Elwin switches plans and tells No to stay by Perseus. They'll have to take the knight out to get away. The Blue Templar keeps shouting his sentence until Elwin, fed up, denies it again. That makes him snap, saying the puppet emperor never mattered. He's really hunting them for killing Isabella Simona Sinon and her guards, stealing her armor and putting it on No. Elwin, now uneasy, realizes the knight came ready to die. A grim Varen von Leandro starts glowing with raw power. Thinking of Isabel, he announces Elwin's punishment. His next strike cuts the ship in two and wrecks Perseus, setting it on fire as a giant eye opens below. Elwin drags No out of the water onto a chunk of deck, cursing their luck as they look up at the Kraken, the biggest sea monster there is. Varen von Leandro Leandro, still fearless, stands on another piece of wreckage and yells at the Kraken not to interrupt him. Then he slashes at the monster. The blow chops off several huge tentacle pieces, and everything in the sea starts to spin as a whirlpool forms, and the Kraken starts swallowing everything nearby. Now inside the monster's stomach, Elwyn brightens their surroundings. Her inheritance warns that only 10% battery is left. No is shocked that he's still alive inside the Kraken, and Elwyn says she stretched her inheritance to protect him too, even though the battery keeps draining. She adds that Vaden von Leandro is probably still alive. Red Flake got bad intel, mostly because they had no real experience with swordmasters. Vaden von Leandro was stronger than expected, hiding his true power because he refused to stay the weakest of the 4 swordmasters. MC regrets taking Isabel's armor, and Elwyn says they never should have messed with that knight, but at least he won't follow them inside the Kraken. Right then, Vaden von Leandro shows up, sword glowing in hand. Elwyn curses how relentless he is. She knows her battery is almost gone. He fires back that she's just as stubborn about showing no regret, and swings again, cutting the remaining battery in half while tearing into the Kraken's stomach wall. As the battery keeps dropping, the Kraken starts thrashing, water pouring through the wound while Elwyn grabs No and holds tight. Vaden von Leandro leaps across floating debris, getting closer as the battery falls until it finally hits 0 after one more heavy strike. Elwyn apologizes for failing to protect No and Gillis. The Kraken takes even more damage and gets forced up to the surface. Vaden von Leandro's attack pierced Elwyn through the chest. She asks if he missed. When he answers that one death isn't enough punishment for her crimes, she drives her claws into his neck, wishing she had an elixir like his. As the knight stares in shock, Elwyn laughs that at least she won't go to the afterlife alone. No stares at the 2 dead fighters and watches their essence pour out of them, and the Kraken too. With Elwyn's inheritance gone, a red window warns No that the Kraken's digestive fluid is slowly eating away his health. As he starts melting, he wonders if he can absorb all those essences before dying so he can use them in later lives. He starts taking in skill after skill while his body falls apart, trying to last as long as he can before darkness finally takes him. He wakes up in the charnel house beside Reyna, with his stats much higher, and thinks about how strange that life was, and how badly he wants to never meet Vaden von Leandro again. He checks and confirms the skills he absorbed carried over and were added right away, but a red window says he still can't use blade energy because he lacks enlightenment. Remembering Taebold's words, he realizes the skill is hard to use and wonders how to gain enlightenment. Then he steps aside to test his new powers, including Vachian von Leandro's sword mastery and the Kraken's acid and absorption. Amazed by the results and the endless uses of essence absorption, No wonders if these powers can help him save the people he lost before, including Gills. The list of people he wants to protect keeps growing, so he decides he'll get stronger no matter how many lives it takes. Reyna wakes up and sees the damage from his attack. As the skeleton starts wondering when she woke up, she grabs his hand and begs to become his disciple, calling him master. Reyna asks the protagonist to teach her after seeing his strength, promising anything if he'll train her in swordsmanship. The skeleton feels uneasy seeing Reyna like this, and bitter that he couldn't meet her the same way this time, so he makes an excuse and sends Reyna to clear some dungeons, then meet him later in Grasmere. He admits the reason he can't teach her yet is because he needs to save Gills and rushes off to where he first met her. A wandering Chandler Namjack notices No racing by and decides to attack just to test his strength, asking for a duel. Remembering who he is, the skeleton doesn't want to waste time, but he also fears killing Chandler might drag him back into the same events as before. Since he's an errant knight, No offers to settle it at the Eris tournament. After some hesitation, Chandler Namjack buys the trick and agrees to test him there, promising to wait for No at the tournament. MC feels a little bad for fooling the knight, but figures it's fine since he also saved his life, then heads off to find Gills. Suddenly he's yanked up by the ankle with Gills' bone tentacles, and the necromancer cheers at finding someone stronger than Chandler to turn into a minion. No begs her to listen while the amused necromancer thinks about what she should turn him into. To get her attention, he mentions the 2 sites she was promised for this job. That makes her stop and wonder if Red Flake sent him. He denies that but says Elwyn is waiting nearby. Gills answers that Elwyn should be on break, and No adds that she may want to see her since they're close. He also says he knows all about her plan to ambush and kill the Emperor. Hearing that, the furious necromancer demands to know who he is and how he learned her plan. No tells her to run because it will fail, saying he saw her die in a past life and came back to save her. He even brings up the names of her undead heroes. Gills pauses, lets him go, and complains that someone like him had to show up now, telling him to wait until she finishes with the Emperor before she plays with him. No keeps trying to stop her, repeating that she'll die, but Gills coldly says her plan is perfect and already in motion, and that she trusts it more than a stranger she just met. As Gills' plan moves forward, No wonders if he simply can't change the past. The protagonist matter what he says, like he's trapped by endless chains and can't save anyone. Right after the Emperor is killed, No goes to Gills, and when the rift opens again, she tells him that if they meet in another life, he should tell her she couldn't find it, not to give up and to dream as big as Lindworm's son, so she'll believe him. Gills dies again, but this time No has the words that may make her trust him next time. Then he absorbs her essence and his absorption skill levels up, unlocking perks like instant use of new skills. After that, he absorbs the mage's essences too and gains their skills, but a red window says he needs an arcane heart to use magic. He remembers Mistress Succubus mentioning that and figures magic may be impossible without a heart. Then he absorbs a meditation skill, and a blue window says it gives him a small chance to reach enlightenment. Since the skill came from mages, he decides he needs to absorb as many different essences as possible. While wondering what else he can take, he notices the captain of the knights, but he also remembers that Vachian von Leandro saw her as more important than defend the Emperor, and risked his life chasing No because of her. Not wanting to meet Vatian von Leandro again, he stays away from Isabel. When the white inventory window pops up, he decides he can't deal with it now and runs for safety. Thinking it may be dangerous to go straight to Reina, he decides to make sure Vatian von Leandro won't chase him by repeating his last life actions, reviving the puppy and heading back to the cabin. When he reads the book again, he finds text that wasn't there before, making him think there must be some hidden condition to trigger it. A blue window confirms he gained a +1 intellect bonus. He thinks over the phrase about contacting the broken pieces and what it means, then starts meditating. His focus improves, but it still doesn't give him the enlightenment needed for blade energy. Next, he draws his sword and copies the styles of the strongest fighters he's met, including Vatian von Leandro, Isabel, Gil's warriors, and the Black Knight. He keeps swinging and pushing himself until his stamina hits 0, ignoring the warning as the red window says his stamina will permanently drop by 10. At last, a blue window appears, he's reached enlightenment, and the limit is gone. That means he can finally use blade energy. Blue power rushes over his sword. A full week passes, and Vatian von Leandro never shows up, so No figures it's finally safe to head to Grasmere and meet Reina. But first, he needs a way past the city's inspection. That makes him remember the masquerade skill he took from Elwyn. It lets him wear a human face for a short time. He turns it on and checks his reflection in his blade. To his shock, he's taken on the Marquise's face. Then a blue window explains he now has a 65% match with the last person who left the strongest impression on him, and the disguise lasts 10 minutes, with a 6-hour cooldown. He heads for the city, hiding the pup inside a sack, and spots trouble at the gate. Several people are shouting, trying to buy something, while a guard says he can't fill that order right now. No guesses they're merchants hoping to buy Grasmere weapons, and a nearby trader hears him and praises his ears. He says every lord in the Empire wants weapons from Grasmere, but no one can take them by force. Then he explains to No that the city's weapons are prized because of its steel, and people believe the devil gave them that secret long ago. According to the tale, a demon-like mage gathered blacksmiths to make steel golems to guard his grave. Later, their descendants settled there, and that place became Grasmere. No wonders whether this has ties to the demon lords too. When everyone suddenly looks up at the wall, the soldiers roll out a giant ballista, which the messenger calls the messenger because anyone who sees it obeys. Then the weapon blows apart one of the rude merchant's wagons as a warning. His mechanical engineering skill kicks in, and No realizes the ballista won't last if they keep firing it like that, which shocks the merchant. He understood the machine at a glance. The man then gives the skeleton his guild's letter of introduction. He says he can become their patron if he gathers 5 of them, explains the perks, and introduces himself as Jin Yubai of the Merchant Alliance Guild, head of the Jin Yubai House. No remembers that name from his days with the TNT Guild, when he fought for that house in the Eris tournament. He's surprised to meet the man like this, and when he asks why he was given the card, Yubai says No seems worthy of their support. Then he leaves for other business and tells the skeleton to find him at the Packed Cactus Inn. The protagonist thinks Yubai's help may matter someday, but then Chandler shows up, sword drawn, accusing him of tricking him. While he goes on about finding no worthy rival except No and Tybalt Reynolds, No notices Christina de Bruiser behind him. She tries to calm him down, saying that whole mess at least let him hire her. And even though he agrees, Chandler still insists on settling the score. He lunges in, but No disarms him without killing him, making the young man shout that he is holding back and refusing to treat him like a real opponent. The skeleton says he talks too much, and just as Christina de Bruiser draws her sword, he activates blade energy and raises his weapon so they can see it, telling them both to quit being annoying. The moment Chandler sees that, he drops to his knees, apologizes for not realizing No was someone important, and then asks for the protagonist's help, leaving the skeleton confused. Once inside Grasmere Castle, Reina grumbles that guards dragged her from the inn along with Chandler. He apologizes, then gets to the point. He wants No to kill a mage named Belamode Isaac who lives under the castle, and has used Chandler's family for 300 years. MC connects it to the legend Jinyoba told him, while Chandler starts describing a dream he's had for the last 20 years. In it, humans are eaten by bugs and beasts, while a jeweled crow sits over Grasmere, guarding the city after the people are wiped out. No instantly sees the link. This dream is tied to the demon lord Malphus. Chandler explains the dream is a curse shared by the heirs of the Chandler house caused by the mage's brainwashing. He says the sorcerer protects anyone who obeys every order. Chandler hasn't been brainwashed yet because he isn't 25 yet. Once an heir reaches that age, he walks past the barrier into the basement against his own will, connects his body to the sleeping mage's coffin, and gives up his life force until he dies. After watching that happen to his father, Chandler chose to act before turning 25. But since this involves the demon lords, he couldn't ask anyone for help without bringing their anger down on him. Then No wandered into Grasmere. Renault isn't fully sold and asks if there's anything else in the basement. Chandler says Isaac's steel golems are still there, and they're strong. That's why he became a wandering knight, to learn how to fight those machines. He offers them a 300-year-old blueprint of the golems, which he got through the Merchant Alliance. No uses his mechanical engineering skill to study the plans and spot the golems' weak points and power source. He learns they run on a spell called Rurum, which acts like an arcane heart to power objects with magic. While No wonders if that could let him use magic too. Rena asks for time to think over the offer, and Chandler agrees, hoping they say yes. As he starts thinking it through, the pup stirs in his bag, and when he opens it, Rena hugs the little thing, calling it cute. She says this job could be a huge chance for them. While clearing dungeons, she once got promoted in the guild and received the TNT Guild rulebook, written by Troppen Nenyao, one of the guild's founders 300 years ago. Then Rena shows No a page, saying whoever brings Rurum to the guild becomes a branch manager on the spot. The protagonist realizes he might make Rena branch manager without help from person's followers, and then a blue window appears players about the Rina story scenario, showing how it could end once Rina becomes branch manager. After they accept the request, Rina and No are taken to the Hall of the Ancestors, where Grasmere's blacksmiths wait so he can choose a weapon. Among the choices, even a Grasmere's fire machine gun. Chandler brings No to a huge sword stuck in the wall. He says it's fused in place and guarded by magic so brute force won't pull it free. As the skeleton grabs it, his dagger skill activates, letting him draw the sword from the wall. As they move down an empty hallway, Chandler says there's a barrier ahead that lets nothing pass except the air, and No gets a bad feeling. Then Chandler opens a hidden passage, and while they go down the stairs, the skeleton considers letting the pup go. Christina de Bruiser says they must be close, and Raina gets ready for battle as Chandler warns them about the iron gate, which can only be opened by the bloodline of House Chandler. No stops before a gargoyle shaped like a jeweled crow, and Rina, feeling the same unease, says she once found a room full of spider statues in the vault of the doomed spider ruin dungeon, along with a hidden altar, and the crow gives her that same creepy feeling. Inside, No realizes she's describing a statue of Baal. He remembers serving under the Demon King during the war between humans and demons, where he was thrown onto the front lines like a worthless tool. Chandler snaps him out of it and cuts his hand, letting the blood drip into the crow's beak as an offering to open the gate. When the iron gates open, they find what looks like a temple, with a group of steel golems standing still. A blue window tells No he's inside a dungeon he can't clear at his current level, even though only one person is needed. While he's thinking that over, the steel golems activate and march toward them, saying only one offering was made, and impurities may not enter. No quickly weighs the situation, and with 6 golems in front of him, his mechanical engineering skill kicks in to analyze them. He tells the others to handle 1 golem each, then raises his sword and charges ahead to take the remaining 3. Christina de Bruiser slips past her golem's blows and aims for its joints, but it catches her sword in one hand and smashes her with the other. Chandler looks over at that, nearly losing focus, but still dodges his golem and blocks the next strike with his sword, realizing there's no time to dodge. Raina barely avoids her golem and realizes it won't be easy to reach the joints. Then she turns and sees No has already destroyed one. The skeleton realizes they're weaker than expected, rusted after centuries of inactivity. As he crushes a second golem's head, he sees Rurum flowing out of it and grabs him so Raina can become branch manager. Then he notices Chandler is about to get crushed, so No spins around and activates his black sword and acid skills, cutting through the golem with ease. He rushes over to Raina, hands her the Rurum, then turns to the next golem as she runs off and splits hers in 2 with 1 swing. Nearby, Christina de Bruiser activates her berserker skill and hammers her golem with all she has, while No leaps up and cuts its head off from behind. As Chandler starts celebrating the chance to break his curse, an egg-shaped structure deeper in the dungeon begins to laugh, amused by it all. After the golems fall, No asks Chandler where the mage is, and Chandler quickly points the way. Raina, though, worries about how easy those golems were to beat. She tells No, and he suggests she head back first, but she refuses to leave his side, even if it kills her. That makes No realize her mindset is just like Person's followers. At last, they reach the egg-shaped structure, the coffin where the mage sleeps. Raina asks if Isaac is inside, and Christina de Bruiser considers breaking it, but No tells them to think carefully first. Then he asks Chandler whether Grasmere's fire burns through everything. Then he hands Chandler the Grasmere flame machine gun so he can take his revenge himself. Chandler steps up to the coffin and fires, setting it on fire. Even then, Raina still feels uneasy. A strand of black smoke suddenly slips out of the coffin and slams into No. At once, he finds himself without his armor and walking through a sea of crows. The birds gather into a face that asks how he can still be awake. It says he isn't tied to any spirit either, something it's never seen before, but decides to swallow the skeleton anyway. No's possession resistance kicks in, but his level is too low, so it fails, and Isaac takes over his body. Raina quickly realizes something is off. The possessed No walks toward her and uses hypnosis and illusions to put her down, before heading outside to claim the reward for saving the Chandler family. There, Chandler's father Herbert meets No, thankful for what he's done. The possessed skeleton says all he wants as a reward is Herbert's signature. When the man reaches for the paper, Isaac explains it gives him permanent rights to forge weapons in the Hall of the Forefathers, control of the basement, and authority over any extraterrestrial owned by Grasmere. Then he hypnotizes the Lord, making him agree and hand over the family amulet as a small gift to use while he waits for the request to go through. Isaac then heads to his room, saying he knows the castle better than Chandler and asking not to be bothered. Once inside, the possessed No removes his armor and throws the bag with the pup to Raina, then sends her away. When she opens it, the dog bites her, but that snaps her out of the hypnosis. She calms the pup and says they have to wait for an opening. While No thinks about his situation inside the minscape, he spots Isaac carving symbols into his bones and asks what he's doing. Surprised that he's still aware, the mage says he's making the body more useful, and No should be thankful. He warns that if MC resists, Raina dies. When Isaac realizes he truly cares about her, he says it would be fun to kill her using No's own skills. Then he carves blood vessels into the protagonist's arm, fills them with Rurum, and explains what he's doing. When MC protests, Isaac cuts him off. He says Rurum is the blood of the apostle killed by the first emperor, and as As it sinks into the carvings, he tests the arm by freezing a mirror. When No asks why he's doing all this, Isaac introduces himself as the Lord of the Golden Dawn and High Priest of the King's Tabernacle. He reveals that he plans to use No's body to bring demons to Grasmere. He had been controlling the Chandler family and waiting, but once he proved to be the perfect vessel, the job got much easier. He asks for the protagonist's name, but the protagonist says he truly doesn't know it. Isaac reads his mind, finds where his grave is, and rushes there to get the name and unlock his full power. MC tries to calm himself, thinking at least Reyna is safe far from Grasmere. Then a series of windows appears, showing the skills he has because he's soul-bound. He regrets that he may not get to use them, and that he missed the chance to study the blood carving process for using magic without an arcane heart. Still, he figures Isaac might be useful, so he asks if the mage can read his mind. Isaac says he can't unless he asks a simple question or there is a clear answer, and adds that he doesn't care about No's thoughts. He realizes the sorcerer knows nothing about his many past lives or the blue window, and even a great mage like Isaac couldn't explain that. When they arrive at No's grave, Isaac remarks how pathetic it looks without even a tombstone, complaining that finding the skeleton's name is turning into a pain. He also notes how calm No is, and figures it's because he thinks Reyna is safe. Then he tells the skeleton that Reyna followed them. Since she was only pretending to be brainwashed, he told her where they were going so he could destroy No's soul in front of her, forcing her to come. The protagonist calls him insane, but still takes comfort in the idea that he'll revive after death. Isaac senses he isn't afraid and changes his mind, deciding to do something even worse. He says he'll put No's soul into the Chandler family amulet, trap him there forever, and throw it into the ocean once he gets bored, so nobody will ever find it. That finally scares No, and Isaac, seeing that, decides to seal him right away. Just then, Reyna arrives on horseback with the pup, set on stopping the magic circle, and throws a net at him. Isaac destroys the net and floods Reyna's mind with nightmares, dropping her out of the fight before he goes back to sealing No inside the amulet. As the spell continues, MC is wrapped in chains, but then several red windows appear, saying the binding has been denied and reckless sorcery is disabled. While Isaac shouts in shock, another window appears, stating that the caster of the chain of seals will be restrained. The chains turn on him, and a desperate Isaac realizes he needs the skeleton's name fast to stop this, but it's too late. A window tells No the assimilation rate has dropped to 79.4. The sorcerer's soul is sealed into the amulet, and an explosion tears through the area. He stands back up, realizing he controls his body again. The pup runs to him happily, and a blue window reveals its name is Chestnut, and that he unlocked the achievement to recognize his owner, raising Bone Monarch. No praises Chestnut, and another window says the pup is happy. Rena walks over unharmed, apologizes for not being able to help, and says she's glad No is back. Looking at his ruined grave, the protagonist spots a half-buried stone that seems to be a tombstone. Then they dig it out and realize his name was scratched off on purpose, with nothing left behind. They wonder who would do that to an empty grave, and No decides they won't get any clues from this place. Rena is disappointed, since she wanted to know his name too. With nothing else to find there, No says they should leave, and starts wondering where to get more room for Rena. Then he hears a voice calling to him from the Chandler family amulet, which now holds Isaac's soul. As the sorcerer says his mind is fading, Chestnut angrily stomps on the amulet, then bites it. No tells Isaac to shut up, but Rena can't hear him and is amused to learn he's trapped in the amulet. With a cruel grin, she starts thinking up ways to break it while Isaac begs, promising he'll be useful and do anything if they spare him. Not buying it, Rena pulls out a candlestick and burns the amulet, hurting the sorcerer. Isaac keeps insisting he's useful and says he knows where to find more Rurum, offering to lead them to the Church of Malphas that he built. No, and Rena cut through a thick forest. As they move on, Isaac whines and mocks Rena, who says he won't help them anyway, and threatens to torture him with the candle. Isaac tells them to keep going, and after a while they come across several totems. The sorcerer tells them to get closer and inspect them. After Rena notices they were broken on purpose, Isaac starts mourning what Joshua has become, saying he made those totems to keep him nearby. He then admits he lied because he expected Joshua to be there, powering the totem barrier so they would hallucinate and get hunted. When Rena gets ready to burn the amulet again, Isaac promises to guide them properly, saying he needs to learn what happened to his descendants and swearing in the name of Malphas that he's telling the truth. Knowing a priest's oath in a god's name has power, No decides to trust him one more time. Later, they climb down a nearby cliff and enter a cave, where they find a fortress-like temple. MC wonders if there's room inside, and Isaac says yes before they head into the biggest building. Inside, they find dozens of tied skeletons hanging from the ceiling. No concludes they are Isaac's descendants. The sorcerer asks him to show him the floor, and after spotting a pattern drawn there, he concludes his descendants were tortured alive and then sacrificed to Person. No remembers his last run-in with Person's followers and thinks even being eaten by slime would be kinder than this. Isaac then tells him to go to a wall and push his hand through it. When he pulls it back, he finds several vials of Romer. Isaac offers all of it in exchange for help, wiping out every one of Person's followers. Following Isaac's instructions and wanting to learn the skill, No carves more circuits into his bones and pours in more Recruim, greatly boosting his power. A blue window tells him he learned the skill to carve Recruim circuits, and Isaac leads him to dungeons where he can train his magic before fighting Person's followers. In one dungeon, No battles a grotesque monster while Isaac guides him, and he levels up after killing it. This is the third dungeon he's cleared during his magic training. No also notices Rena's stats have gone up, and he gets a new quest to raise his sword skill. Isaac asks how the protagonist feels about using magic, and when the skeleton worries about running out of Recruim, Isaac says the low-level spells he's using won't burn through much. After they leave the dungeon, Rina feels uneasy. Even though they've been killing monsters, she feels like they're still forgetting something, and she passes that feeling on to No. Later they arrive at the Two Narrow Gorge, a name given by Emperor Saron. They figure the next dungeon must be near the capital. Rina says she has only been there twice, since the road to the TNT headquarters runs through it. No suggests stopping by the guild to promote her with the recruit they've gathered. He's glad he avoided slime and person's followers in this life. Then Rina suddenly stops, tense, feeling that something is wrong because Isaac has gone way too quiet. She's afraid something bad is coming, but a hooded man cuts in, accusing them of destroying their altars and swearing to kill them. As No recognizes them as person's followers, the hooded man adds that they left Malphas's mark on every altar. Rena had thought they wiped out all of Malphas's followers, so this shocks her. Now she fears Isaac betrayed them again. No Name tries to clear it up, but he still gets ready to fight. The moment he uses magic, the followers call him a liar. They can feel Malphas's energy in his spells. Since MC Name got his magic from Imperial mages, he realizes the only other source is Isaac's circuits. That leaves one ugly thought. Maybe Isaac tricked him again. At the same time, a cloaked watcher stands above the gorge. No Name and Rena fight off person's followers, but the skeleton's magic keeps getting blocked by a shield until the leader suddenly has his head blown apart by a shot. The cloaked figure drops into the battle with an energy rifle, drawing No Name's eye and taking out 2 more followers without trouble. In the chaos, she tells him and Rena to follow her. Rena still doesn't trust her, so the stranger pulls off her cloak and reveals she's Tropin Nanyao, one of the founders of the TNT Guild, leaving Rena stunned. Without wasting time, Tropin tells them to come with her, and they leave the fight behind. She leads them into a hidden tunnel, then through a network of underground vaults. Tropin says humans built this place 1,000 years ago to hide from the old apostles, and she found it while searching for the world's lost Rook Room. No Name remembers hearing that humans before Saron lived like cattle, so he's shocked they built something like this. When Tropin teases him about the secret Imperial Library, he realizes the world is far more complicated than he thought. After climbing a ladder, the group comes out in a hidden TNT headquarters inside the Imperial capital, a place even Rena never knew about. A man named Persian complains that No Name and Rena interrupted their work, but Tropin shuts him down, saying it's rare to find a newcomer like Rena who hasn't been tainted by Person's side, so they need to guide her properly. Then a cat-like creature named Sharunian checks Rana over, still confused. She asks who all these people are. Persian says he's one of the 7 guild leaders of TNT, and the others are members loyal to Tropin. Rana asks if Tropin is really the same woman who started the guild 300 years ago. Instead of just answering, Tropin pricks her finger and shows that her blood has been replaced with Rurum to keep herself alive longer. When Tropin says she's the guild's top expert on Rurum, No Name asks her to inspect his circuits. The moment she touches him, she recognizes the circuits as Isaac's work, shocked that he's still alive and sealed away. Another sorcerer, Runia, confirms that Isaac is trapped under a powerful seal that could break if even one axis is destroyed. Tropin adds that No Name's circuits carry Malthus's seal, which appears when energy runs through them, meaning Isaac used him as bait for Persian's followers. Runia then asks to test the amulet, and Rena quickly agrees, handing over the candlestick too. After that, Tropin explains that she opposes the followers of Persian inside the guild, but while she focused on Rurum, they slipped in and she lost most of her power because hardly anyone knows she's alive. She won't reveal herself because it would start a civil war inside TNT. Rana says the best move is to crush them all at once, which earns Persian's approval. When Sharunian confirms the amount of Rurum is more than enough under guild rules, Tropin orders Rana's appointment prepared right away. Rana is officially given the 7th Imperial branch of the TNT Guild. A blue window appears for No Name, saying he cleared Rana's story scenario by giving her power inside TNT. It also says she earned the title Beginner Soldier of the Dark Side. That aid within the darkness has started. A new scenario slot has opened, and his assimilation rate dropped to 74.3. As No Name reels from that number, he notices Sharunian asking Rana to work as her information assistant, while the others complain that they can't have her in their branches too. Rana snaps him out of it. Then Tropin asks No Name to become a member. Rana asks for a moment alone with him. She's worried he'll leave now that she's a branch manager, and asks why he felt so responsible for her. Now that the scenario is done, No Name wonders if it's finally time to tell her the truth, so he explains his whole story, including their lives together in the past. Shaken, Rana says that this answers the question of why she always wanted to depend on him. She admits she'd been having dreams about places she'd never seen. No Name asks if she hates him for failing her before. Instead, she opens up about her past, growing up alone, fighting for herself, and killing just to stay alive until she met him. Hearing that, No Name offers to stay, but Rana says that even if he leaves, they'll find each other again in this life or the next. Then she gives him her pendant, the heirloom from her mother. When he promises to protect it, a blue window appears and lists the item's abilities to his surprise. Later, No Name races across the rooftops, remembering Rana's worry about her sister at Slime's orphanage. He promised to bring her back because she means everything to Rena. In the streets, armored people are mourning a death, so No Name decides to wait and use the funeral as cover. While thinking about the meaning of those underground tunnels, he spots a cat that vanishes all at once, leaving a newspaper behind. The paper says Isabel is dead, and that Vatian killed himself after that, at least according to the story. No Name dismisses dismisses it as a rumor until he notices it was written by Kevin Ashton. After reading the full article, his intelligence goes up. That reminds him of the books he read before, and he figures Kevin Ashton is trying to reach him. He thinks about asking Trope and Nanyu about the writer, then drops the idea. Soon his thoughts shift to the powers of Rena's pendant and how it can save him from danger. A blue window asks if he wants to change the pendant settings, but he chooses to keep them the same. Then the funeral starts moving. Just as No Name considers leaving, a knight named Rayleigh begs Vatien not to leave them and insists he didn't kill himself. That makes the protagonist's name think the paper may be right, after all. He decides to look into it, hoping he can still absorb Vatien's essence. As he gets closer, he finds it odd that he can't see Vatien's essence leaking from the coffin. That means there's probably no body inside, so he wonders if Vatien is faking his death or if they're hiding the corpse. While MC Name considers whether Vatien was killed for asking about Isabel, Rayleigh appears behind him and grabs him before No Name can sense him. The knight presses him with questions. Yvmat Name feels danger but not enough to panic, so he looks for a way out. He gambles by using masquerade as he takes off his helmet, pretending to be a relative of Vatien. Rayleigh is stunned and tells him to raise a blade so he can judge his sword skill. It sounds strange, but No Name wonders if absorbing Vatien's power lets him copy his style. Before he can lift his greatsword, Rayleigh breaks the blade in two and gives him one piece. With masquerade slowly running out, No Name shows basic sword moves until Rayleigh is convinced. He puts the helmet back on just in time and tries to leave, but Rayleigh begs him to see Vatien one last time since they were so close. He says he thinks he knows where the body is. Seeing a chance, No Name asks Rayleigh why he caused all that noise. The knight says he wanted to find someone he could trust. Then he says the Imperial House is likely behind all of this, because Vatien had grown distant and uneasy around them. Rayleigh once followed him to the palace in secret. There he saw men carry a coffin out of the palace and into a breeding house. He believes they planned to turn the body into feed. No Name is furious at the thought of losing Vatien's essence, but Rayleigh mistakes it for grief, and a blue window says his affection has increased. Later they reach the place where the corpse should be. No Name recognizes the breeding house lights as arcane lamps when Rayleigh senses something and quickly takes cover with the protagonist's name. As the sound gets closer, a huge massive snake slides by. Seeing the skeleton's confusion, Rayleigh warns him to watch out for snakes in the capital, whether they're real or just a symbol. No Name realizes the Necron Society is involved, and Rayleigh confirms it before charging toward the breeding house and kicking the door open. No Name spots bright essence behind a door, but both of them soon look toward the pens and see small monsters eating corpses. Rayleigh vomits at the horrible sight. Using that moment, No Name slips to the door and finds a cold meat locker filled with upside-down bodies. Among them hangs Vatien, with holes in his neck and chest. The damage surprises No Name, but it doesn't stop him from absorbing Vatien's essence and skills. A blue window lists everything he gained, including the special skill True Sight. Rayleigh enters soon after, apologizing for not getting there sooner. He talks about how he once belonged to the Smooth Scorpions Thieves Guild, and how Vatien forgave him and made him a knight, standing by him whenever others doubted him. While Rayleigh tends to the body, No Name keeps watch outside, thinking Rayleigh could be a useful ally until he hears a scream from inside the building. Right then, Rena's pendant activates and triggers Play Dead with stronger effect, dropping him flat to the ground. As he wonders what could have killed Rayleigh, and whether he should run with another skill, a snake comes near. A red window identifies it as the Serpent Devourer of Dawn. As it nears him, his movement, attack speed, and skills all weaken. Just when No Name thinks he's finished, the serpent leaves, and a blue window says the restrictions are gone. No Name stays still a bit longer, and eventually he sees palace men coming. The men are happy to have the day off, and they mention the farm is being expanded. The larvae they're feeding will be used in the next war, something No Name never saw under Mistress Succubus. He notices they all carry the Necron Society tattoo, so he moves closer using stealth. As they talk about how strong the larvae will become, they get ready to chop up the frozen corpses, and No Name kills them all. Then he takes in Rayleigh's essence and quietly mourns him. Along with it, he gains stealth skills he knows will be a big help. Then No Name thinks about what all this means, but decides to stop digging before he dies, and nobody even knows why. So he chooses to leave the capital and bring back Reyna's sister, using Sprint to bolt away. But Reyna's sister refuses to leave with No Name. A bit earlier, he had gone to her when she was feeling lonely by the orphanage, and gave her a letter from Reyna. The girl gets upset because Reyna still hasn't come to see her in this life since she's been out on quests with No Name and hasn't returned. To fix that, MC Name takes the blame for Reyna's absence and promises he'll soon leave Reyna, so she can handle things on her own, asking the girl to protect her. Once Reyna's sister agrees, they leave the orphanage for Grasmere, planning to stay there while Reyna keeps working with Tropin, since they believe the city is safe now that Isaac is gone. When No Name gets near Grasmere, he feels the tension right away. More crossbows line the walls, and Chandler is outside arguing with an officer about the coming war. The man welcomes No Name and says he's now the Lord of Grasmere because his father retired. He also introduces the officer as Baron Lineberg from the Empire, and backs him Name up in front of him. Inside the palace, he Name tells Chandler what he went through while under Isaac's control. Even when he turns down the reward Isaac demanded from Chandler's father, Chandler says he earned it. No Name then asks for Reyna to be protected, and Chandler assures him Grasmere is under Imperial protection, with Baron Lineberg sent straight from the palace. That makes No Name uneasy, and he starts wondering what to do. Still uneasy, he stays a few days. Chandler offers to show him around, but he declines. They do pass by Christina training soldiers in the courtyard, and while No Name notes how well she fits in in, Baron Lineberg shows up with a new order from the Imperial Palace, demanding all of Grasmere's special weapons. Chandler is stunned by the command since it would leave the city exposed. Using his authority, he tells the Baron to report back that he won't obey such a reckless order. After the officer leaves, Chandler says the Baron was never usually like this. He used to be a stubborn cavalry commander, but now he's acting like a puppet of the Imperial Palace and feels like a different person. That alarms No Name, and he wonders how dangerous it is to reject the Imperial Palace. But Chandler shrugs it off, saying they still need him to rule Grasmere because there's no family member who can replace him. Thinking of Aritz, the protagonist's name figures the young man may be right, but he still worries about what happens if the palace acts. Remembering Veichian's death and the Necron Society, he stays on edge. Chandler notices his concern, but No Name keeps his doubts to himself and waits for Rena's pendant to react. That night, MC Name follows Baron Lineberg and notices the Baron's body looks warped, almost unnatural. The Baron goes into a tent covered by magic so No Name can't hear what's being said. After a while, the skeleton sprints back to the castle to warn Chandler. Near the castle, No Name sees the gate guards are already dead. Moving through the empty halls, he finds servants hanging from the ceiling, then turns to see Christina de Bruiser pinned to Chandler's door while crunching sounds come from inside. When he opens the door, No Name finds a giant larva eating Chandler's body and starting to copy his form. He recognizes the larva as one of the creatures raised in the capital and realizes he'd never heard about them under Mistress Succubus because they had been hiding as humans. He kills it when it attacks, noting how weak it is and that this is what happens to anyone who defies the Imperial Palace. Then he realizes Baron Lineberg was replaced too. That thought is cut off by a dagger flying at him. After knocking it away, he notices it carries freezing magic, which he cancels with Blaze. No Name turns and finds masked figures in dark suits, then runs for the basement. He can't sense them at all. He manages to kill 3 of them, but 9 are still left, so he keeps dodging and striking back as he goes deeper into the basement. The pursuers hesitate to follow him into those unknown rooms, but after losing 3 men, they keep coming. No Name finally reaches Isaac's altar, his root who nearly dried up from the strain. He regrets bringing Rena's sister, convinced she's already dead, and decides to make his last stand. A red window warns his stamina is under 15, but he keeps fighting until he slips through a door that opens when he uses magic. He sees his pursuers can't enter, and figures it's because Isaac carved Malthus's seal into his circuits. Now No Name is in a hallway lined with black gold crow statues, ending at a huge door covered in power and unreadable runes. Since he can't open the door, he decides to wait for Rena's pendant and judge the situation. He can hear the pursuers in the tunnel, talking fearfully about, then a scream cuts them off, and the tunnel goes quiet. As the pendant countdown nears 0, a figure in high heels walks down the tunnel after killing the pursuers. The barrier sealing the tunnel explodes, revealing a muscular crossdresser wearing the pursuers' masks like bloody trophies. Just as the pendant finishes cooling down, a red window tells him an answer can be found. The danger is too high. Then the pendant starts breaking apart. The protagonist's name is stunned when Rena's pendant shatters. Seeing the broken masks on her belt and how easily she smashed Isaac's barrier, he wonders how dangerous this person really is. He can't measure her strength or escape from her. She toys with No Name and introduces herself as Charmy. Confused, he decides to gather as much information as he can before dying. When he asks, she explains that strong barriers eat weaker ones. She has 5 layers around her, including one that hides her presence and is even better than the one used by the ghost chasing him. She also says she has a self-force barrier that keeps the world from changing her, and promises to explain more once they get closer. Then she walks to the gate and punches it with all her strength. It doesn't move, so she asks No Name how to open it. As the skeleton thinks about lying, she suddenly closes in and warns him not to try. Her 3rd layer is authenticity, which she uses as the head of the Imperial Palace's intelligence agency to spot lies. Once she realizes he truly doesn't know how to open the door, she decides to kill him, using a sword skill through her fingernail that reminds him of Veandam von Leandro. When the skeleton asks if she killed the Marquis, she sadly admits it. She says his mistakes were her responsibility, because she, as Duke, was the one who recommended him for Marquis. No Name is shocked to learn she's a Duke, one of only 3 in the Empire. She goes on to say she also backed Veandam von Leandro, promising they would conquer the world together. Her anger flares when she recalls their plans falling apart after Isabel was killed. No Name figures she was the one who cleaned up the mess after Veandam von Leandro turned on the Imperial Palace. She tears up over Veandam's death, then regains control and moves to finish No Name, who is still frozen by her rage. He realizes fear will make everything pointless, so he chooses to fight to the end. He activates sword skill, blaze, thunder, acid, sprint, and slice all at once, then rushes the amused Duke. She blocks the attack and tears apart No Name's sword and armor with one punch. After that, she tells MC Name to focus on one skill next time, calling him trash for being only a skeleton. Remembering his past, he swears he'll return, then smashes his own head and dies again. After the darkness, he wakes in his grave in the forest with Rubia over him. As No Name tries to figure out why he's back in the forest, a blue window says his reincarnation succeeded. It explains the necromancer's lover perk is active, and his assimilation rate fell below 75, breaking his first seal and canceling the transfer process. Ignoring the windows, he focuses on the nervous Rubia and sees this as a chance to stop her death. A blue window confirms a servant bond has formed between them, and Rubia's stats are higher than in the last life, something that never happened with Reina before. Then another window appears. It says changes to the world line have been applied. No Name wonders what that means and whether his past lives are already changing the world spoiled from the start, including what will happen to Reina and Mistress Succubus. Rubia's cough pulls him back, and he decides to focus on her. He lights Blaze in his hand and notices his circuits were carried into this life, so he decides not to use too much magic to avoid drawing that person's followers. Then he spots the mercenaries coming and uses his non-magic skills to kill them easily, shocking Rubia and making him level up fast. He puts his points into stats above 80 and, now that the transfer process is cancelled, starts wondering if he can become more than a skeleton, and if the broken seal was what kept him in this form. Suddenly a headache hits, and he starts feeling sick as his assimilation rate drops to 72.7. He feels like he needs to remember something, but doesn't know what. Putting that aside, he goes back to Rubia and assures her that she really is the one who summoned him. That makes the girl offer her soul, saying he's too powerful. Caught off guard, he asks what she wants badly enough to trade her soul, and she says her wish is to reclaim Arist. A blue window announces the Rubia race scenario and says the goal is to make her the Lady of Arist and raise her governance to 10. Rubia tells No Name her uncle is an awful man and she's scared for the people who helped her escape and for the people of Arist, so she wants to save them. No Name figures this change happened because she saw his power. He thinks taking back Arist will be easy, but worries it could draw the ghosts and that person's wrath. The Imperial Palace becomes his next concern. To make up for everything he failed before, No Name decides to stand with Rubia. He tells her to keep walking to Arist and says he'll clear every problem in her way. Later, when Rubia nears the gate, No Name uses the camouflage skill he got from Rayleigh. That amazes Rubia and earns him the title Invisible, a perk tied to serving her. He promises to protect her, and while staying hidden, the two move up to the gate. The guards snap awake when Rubia arrives, begging her to flee because they want to keep her safe. No Name activates fear, and the men instantly crumple in terror as Rubia walks into the city. The townspeople know who she is, and worry about what might happen when her Uncle Kirk shows up with his guards and tells her they're about to kill the people who helped her escape. Rubia spots Chief Minister Iliar and Secretary Mirabule among them and blames herself. When Kirk mocks her, Rubia finally explodes, calling out his crimes and his betrayal of her father. Kirk just orders his men to attack, but they go down at once when No Name fires rocks at high speed, leaving Kirk by himself and terrified. No Name levels up, and then a blue window says Rubia approves of what he did. Another window gives him never-ending thrill, boosting his stats when he's near his master. Shaking, Kirk tells Rubia she'll regret this, but she fires back that he already did his worst and stares him down. More soldiers rush to the square, ready to defend Rubia, then stop when they see what already happened. Kirk orders them to seize Rubia, but she recognizes them as her father's guards and wants to settle this without bloodshed. A blue window tells No Name that Rubia wants his advice, and a link opens between them. Caught off guard, he tells Rubia to ask the guards which side they're really on. She faces the soldiers and asks them to help restore the true heir. At once, they drop to their knees and swear loyalty to her. Kirk flies into a rage, but when he tries ordering them again, the soldiers turn their weapons on him and speak openly about how much they hate him before dragging him away. Then Chief Minister Eliar steps up and asks if Rubia has become a magician. She says she'll explain after they finish cleaning things up, so he calls the ministers together to welcome the new Lord of Arist. As Rubia heads for the council chamber, No Name steadies her through their link and tells her to ask who else they would want if not her. Rubia does, and Eliar says there are no objections, though he warns that the last lord was killed for standing against the royal family. The protagonist Name tells her to make it clear she has the protagonist plan to oppose the crown, and she passes that on. With that settled, the ministers begin reporting on Arist's condition. Too many guards were recruited by forcing young farmers into service, so harvest fell, and Kirk even sold flood control supplies to pay for his own fun. No Name wonders if Kirk meant to ruin Arist on purpose, and sees that Rubia is nothing like him as she quickly starts undoing his choices and proving she truly has the talent to lead. Impressed, the ministers pledge themselves to Rubia, and when she vows to become a good ruler for her people, a blue window says the governance system has activated. No Name decides to help Rubia become a strong lord by handling the dirty work in secret, then heads to the dungeon to question Kirk, thinking the man may know something about the imperial family that could keep Rubia from meeting Chandler's fate. That is his goal. Kirk keeps shouting that he never wanted to rule and demands to be freed, but then a magic attack hits him, fired by a group of ghosts who just entered the room. No Name can't figure out why the ghosts came to Arist. As he gets ready to fight, he realizes they're stronger than the ghosts from Grasmere, and they're not here just to kill Kirk. Their leader is startled that No Name isn't shocked to see them, then realizes the report from the Imperial Secret Service was true. No Name is baffled by what they mean, and while he tries to learn more, he's forced to dodge a strike. After avoiding more attacks, he uses Absorption and Lightning Strike to fry one ghost. Thinking about a weakness, he remembers they feared the Duke and bluffs, claiming he's acting on her orders and they'll be punished for getting in the way. The leader of the ghosts bursts out laughing, pulls off his mask, and demands to know who No Name is. Then he confirms they answer directly to the Duke, yet he clearly can't stand her and hates hearing about her. He snags No Name by the neck with a chain, and the skeleton tries to shock him, but it fails. With an swap up banner option, Name offers a trade, questions for answers. The leader doesn't trust him, so No Name decides to speak first, and reveals he knows about the coming attempt on the Emperor's life, which grabs the leader's full attention and makes him stop his men to hear more. No Name goes further, saying the Emperor is a fake, and Gills is the real killer. That makes the assassin wonder how this leaked, and he worries that Vaughn or the second swordsman may have been taken by the enemy. Feeling satisfied, the leader tells No Name to ask his question. The protagonist Name asks why someone this strong is stuck out in the countryside. The answer: orders from above. Director candidates must spend a year in Arist and remove anything suspicious without asking asking why. Then he gets ready to kill No Name, saying he'll use Ruby as a puppet until one of his men suggests she could just be replaced with worms. No Name understands the danger and tries to break free and escape, but he can't. The ghost manager lifts his spear and kills him. Back in the forest again, MC thinks over the choices he made and decides he died for nothing. A blue window then says Rubia's necromancy skill will rise because he has died for her more than once. He speaks to Rubia and tells her to head for a nearby cave using stealth to hide their trail while they avoid the mercenaries so they don't draw the ghost's attention. He knows the assassins won't leave Ruby alone and will swap her out with a worm if they get the chance. Since he can't guard her properly yet, staying away from a wrist is the safest move. After lighting a fire in the cave with magic, Rubia asks if she really was the one who summoned him. Once he assures her, No Name wonders if he should take her to Gills, but drops the idea because he has no clue how she'd treat Rubia. She might even turn the girl into a living corpse for fun. Set on protecting Rubia, he next considers reaching out to Tropin and the TNT group around her, but thinks that could be worse because the guild is full of conflict, so he chooses Grasmere instead, planning to warn Chandler first and deal with Isaac again, then use the reward to help Rubia. Before leaving for Grasmere, he decides to stop by Ubelum's blacksmith for armor. Rubia goes into Ubelum's blacksmith and asks for armor, stepping inside to buy it while the innkeeper watches. She buys No Name's armor and the blacksmith also gives her a dagger for protection, worried about what the guards might do if she stays too long. The guards arrive before she can leave, but No Name quietly knocks them out. Then while the blacksmith hides the bodies, Name slips into the shop and takes Grasmere's flame, the flamethrower. Rubia needs somewhere to wear the armor, so she heads to the inn, but the innkeeper is stunned to see her still free after sending guards after her. He quickly leads her to a room where food is waiting. Everything is set. Once the door closes and Rubia is alone, No Name drops his stealth and appears beside her. He puts on the armor and tells her to rest. She agrees and starts eating. After only a few bites, she gets drowsy and collapses while No Name can't wake her. Downstairs, the innkeeper decides she must be asleep by now and leads two men upstairs so they can have their fun before handing her over to the Necron Society. No Name checks Rubia and confirms she's only asleep so the food had been drugged. He curses himself for underestimating the innkeeper. Then he hears men forcing the door, and the moment the innkeeper reaches for the handle, No Name kicks the door open and charges into the hall, carrying Grasmere's flame. With Rubia still safe on the bed, the protagonist's name burns two of the men alive, then turns on the innkeeper. He thinks it's fitting that the hunter is now the prey, and with fear forces him to reveal where they plan to take Rubia. In the inn's basement, No Name finds torture tools, and remembering how Rubia died before, he uses fear again, gives the innkeeper paper, and orders him to write every crime he committed. The man obeys right away, and No Name realizes the list must cover over 100 victims. When it's done, the skeleton tells him to end the note like a suicide letter, then strangles him and hangs him from the ceiling, promising him a painful death. A blue window tells No Name he has gained information on the Necron Society and earned interrogation level 1, which he figures could be useful. As he leaves the basement, he starts thinking about clearing Spider's den and leaves the flamethrower behind. Later, at Spider's den, he easily beats the guard captain, who offers nothing new but admits he hid safes near the cave entrance. No Name then throws the vial of spider egg yolk at him, and the Spider Queen tears him apart. A blue window appears, saying MC Name gained punishment, which boosts the chance of receiving a blessing from killing anyone with negative karma. He thinks the whole karma system is ridiculous, and the goddess's blessings are just as dumb when they couldn't even stop the demon kings from wiping out mankind. The next morning, Rubia wakes up at the inn and finds No beside her. He tells her she slept safely and nothing happened, even though gold bars are stacked on the table. He also has a Merchant Union Guild card in hand and thinks back to getting both it and the gold at the Spider's Den, remembering Jinvi and wondering if he should meet him in Grasmere, all while waiting for Rubia to come out of the tailor shop. A flashback shows that No bought Rubia new clothes to thank her for paying for the armor. As the wait drags on, the protagonist starts to wonder why it's taking so long. He notes that he's keeping watch with detection, but still hasn't sensed anything strange. Right when he's about to storm in, Rubia finally steps out in her new outfit. No first wonders why she needed so much time, but one look is enough for him to praise her instead. Rubia thanks him for the gift, while he wonders how someone with such low stamina lasted that long choosing clothes. Later, on the way to Grasmere, they come across the same pup caught in a bear trap. No frees it to repay what he owes the little animal, then sends it off. Rubia asks if they've met it before. That night, while resting at a mountain lodge, No starts reading a book by Kevin Ashton, and Rubia recognizes the writer as the one behind another book she read before. No says he wants to read every one of Kevin Ashton's books, and Rubia admits she wants the same thing, adding that Ashton uses many pen names. That makes MC remember something Slime said, and he wonders if reading books under those other names will raise his intelligence too. He then asks Rubia if she wants to read it together, and she happily agrees. No soon finds out that Rubia can read Eastern languages, since she's studied them for a long time, and together they notice a number 1 out of 7 that never appeared in his past lives. When he asks what the number 7 might mean, Rubia offers several ideas, but No still can't solve Ashton's riddle. He finishes the book and his intelligence goes up. The next day, the two go into a tavern in Grasmere to look for Genie, which quickly draws 3 threatening men. Later, No and Rabia meet Genie in a library, where he welcomes them as honored guests for sparing and forgiving his 3 underlings. Before explaining why he came, No decides to show off his sword skill first so Genie can see his value. Both Rabia and Genie are impressed. After that, the skeleton asks the guild to keep Rabia safe for a few days, offering a gold bar in return. Genie turns the payment down. He's not willing to take money from someone with such great swordsmanship, and instead promises to protect Rabia for free. Then he gives them a Merchant Union guild card, which Rabia recognizes right away. The merchant then realizes who Rabia is, the heir to Arist, and remembers that his father often bought books from her family for her. He offers his condolences and reassures her that No will keep her safe. Sometime later, he arrives at the gates of Grasmere's castle and introduces himself as the Lion of Malphas, here to save their lord. Inside the castle, Chandler's father meets him and doubts whether he can really help. So No decides to speak plainly and shares everything he learned in his past life about Isaac and the Chandler family's curse. That convinces the old lord, and a blue window says a forced quest has been activated. No then asks for weapons from the Hall of the Ancestors and some blood to open the tomb barrier. In the basement, No breaks the seal on the tomb and goes inside, wondering what might change now that he's alone. This time, the golems stay still, letting him reach the middle of the tomb and burn the altar. That brings out Isaac's spirit, and he tries to possess him again. The sorcerer quickly grows suspicious of No's calm reaction and is stunned to see secret circuits and seals carved into his bones. After that, he claims he'll cooperate and says they should work closely. No doesn't understand Isaac's sudden change, but blue windows soon warn him that Isaac is trying to possess him. While he resists, just like he already did once before, Isaac is left shocked and confused by his failure to take over the skeleton. He apologizes for trying to fool him, but No doesn't buy any of it. Instead, he uses a flame spell, opening the door behind the altar. That shocks the sorcerer even more. They move toward the sealed gate, and the skeleton orders Isaac to open it. Isaac says he can't break the gate's barrier until he recovers at least 30% of his old power, and he needs 70% to smash the door outright. Thinking of the Duke, No wonders just how strong Isaac really is, and asks what lies beyond the gate. Isaac says it's a path to the demon world. Summoning demon kings needs huge sacrifices, but weaker demons can still be called. With even a beginner's sacrifice, foreign demons like Behemoth, Dagon, and Malcolm can appear. He adds that he can't open the gate in this form and asks No to help him recover his power. But the protagonist stays wary of Isaac's behavior and chooses to ignore the gate for now. Back at the castle, Lord Chandler is so grateful that No asks Isaac why he cursed Chandler's family. Isaac answers by listing his titles and says they should see their link to No as an honor. MC then asks whether it wouldn't mean more to a high priest to have loyal followers, which makes Isaac take on a human form as he reads his mind and learns what happened to Joshua and the others. Furious, Isaac's power rises, and he finally takes control of No. Using Sprint, he rushes to the inn where Ruby is staying. The skeleton is horrified, and Isaac notices at once using Rubia's safety to threaten him. Not knowing any of this, Rubia hands No a book by Kevin Ashton that Ginny got for her. The name catches Isaac's attention, and he asks what connection No has to Kevin Ashton. With no better option, No decides to use the moment to get information. He explains that his intelligence goes up when he reads Ashton's books, and when Isaac clearly doesn't get it, he adds that a blue window tells him his intelligence has risen by 1. Isaac asks if No sees everything through blue windows, then bursts into wild laughter. To him, that explains the hole in the universe, and all the strange things about MC and his skills finally start to make sense. He says this world may be just one barrier among many. Isaac explains that he long suspected the world was a living trap, and the more aware he became, the more unstable he felt. He believed someone was watching from above and wanted to learn the truth, but he had no real clue until he discovered Kevin Ashton. The writer had built a huge theory and backed it with detailed proof. When Isaac tells No this was 400 years ago, the skeleton remembers a recent newspaper by Kevin Ashton and wonders if the author has been alive all that time. Isaac goes on, saying Ashton believed the world was divided into residents and guests, and that guests were given a special blue window. No then realizes Isaac can't actually see the window at all. As the sorcerer asks when he started thinking this was normal, the skeleton remembers that Mistress Succubus explained the blue window to him in detail. Now he wonders how she knew and why she lied that it was normal. No had never doubted Succubus because she raised him, protected him, and taught him about the world for years. He never understood why she was so kind, since he believed there was nothing special about himself. That makes Isaac mock him and ask how long he let himself be fooled, but remembering his mistress warmly, No shoots back that it doesn't matter if she lied, and tells Isaac to stop insulting her. He tells himself that the time they spent together and the happiness he felt were real. Isaac gets frustrated by that answer and decides to drop the topic and help No instead. He tells the skeleton that to reach the top he needs a vehicle. Isaac says he once formed a strong bond with the Demon King to climb that high. Then he adds that he plans to gain the power Kevin Ashton described by using No as a compass, and for that he'll guide him to power beyond imagination. No thinks it over and decides working with Isaac may bring him closer to the truth, even if the sorcerer is clearly hiding more than he's saying. Irritated at being ignored, Isaac says No should be honored by the offer, and when the skeleton still doubts him, he gives a down payment by leaving the protagonist's body and moving his soul into the greatsword. No finally agrees to Isaac's deal on one condition, that Rubia's safety comes first. After they agree, Isaac tells him what he needs to gather, starting with the temple. No explains to Rubia that Isaac's soul is inside the greatsword, and she, fascinated, reaches for it and even shakes it in wonder, which annoys Isaac. Then he links his mind to Rubia's and repeats all his titles. Instead of being impressed, she asks him something else. She points out that besides being a great sorcerer, he was also a brilliant tactician, and his textbooks are still used today. So why was someone that powerful trapped underground? Maybe, she suggests, he was hiding from something. Isaac suddenly goes quiet, tells No to distract her, and says he will bring back something useful from the temple. No leaves the excited Rubia free to pick anything she wants from Grasmir's special weapons, and is later guided by Isaac leads MC to a crate. Inside is a cannon. Following Isaac's directions, No Name turns it on. Isaac explains it's a Titan sniper, built to destroy the giant machines the Union once used. After that, Isaac says they need to move to another place to get more roba for it and find a better body for his soul. He tells No Name to push the sword into a hole in the wall and twist it, opening a hidden room with a crow doll inside. Then he tells him to use magic on it. When No Name burns the doll with flame, Isaac's soul enters it and makes it grow into a much bigger bird, but it soon runs out of room and shrinks back down. Then Rubia comes in, amazed by the crow doll, and says she picked a necklace from the armory. Isaac tells her the necklace is enchanted and can slightly hide her presence. She asks No Name to put it on for her, and he does, though he sighs that it still won't hide her from ghosts. Realizing he can't leave Rubia and Grasmir, he tells her he needs to leave for a trip and asks if she wants to come. She agrees right away. While they ride in a carriage, Isaac gets annoyed and asks Rubia why she keeps staring at him. She says she's worried about his soul, because every time it's moved its max value drops, and he's already moved it 3 times. Irritated, Isaac flies off for a while. No Name realizes even Isaac can't avoid that rule, so maybe he won't need to fear being possessed again. No Name can't read the book Rubia gave him because it's in a strange language, and he's surprised when she reads it easily and says it's written in rune language. She learned it for fun by reading old books in Arista's library, and only told her father since rune language is banned for everyone except wizards. Impressed, No Name asks her to help read it, and she agrees. As she reads, a blue window tells him his assimilation rate has dropped to 72.14. Even with a headache, he tells her to keep going. She reads about Iron Titans, and how it's possible to form a kind of bond with them so the machines will lend their power. Then Isaac comes back and hears this. He explains that a Titan's bond depends on the soul's wavelength. If the wavelengths don't match, the Titan rejects its rider. In rare cases, it accepts someone with no training at all. That almost never happens. When the protagonist's name closes the book, a blue window says the servant system raised his intelligence by 3 and gave him magic engineering level 0. That makes him praise the system. When they arrive, No Name sends the carriage driver away, and the group heads toward Isaac's temple. Inside, Isaac is stunned by what happened to his followers, seeing that Rubia feels sorry for him and tries to comfort him. At Isaac's direction, No Name pulls a box of room vials from the wall, only to find every one of them empty. Isaac flies around in despair, and No Name wonders what happened to all the room. Isaac explains the box's seal was never broken, and an apostle's blood doesn't change, seep out, or evaporate. Hearing that, No Name wonders if the room in his own veins could last forever. He remembers it drying up when he fought ghosts and pushed his magic too far. Isaac says the liquid only decreases when it's used to transform the world. That makes No Name remember his circuits stayed intact after reincarnation, and he starts wondering what happened to the room he gave the TNT Guild. Then Isaac says the biggest supply of room is in the Imperial Palace, the source of the Imperial family's power. He says the first emperor killed the apostles and took their blood, but it's guarded so tightly it would cost 5 lives to steal. No Name sees that as a chance for the future. If he can move the apostles' blood away from the Empire, he might protect Rubia, but he knows he needs more power first. When asked about other places to look for room, Isaac says they might find some at Kevin Ashton's remains, and MC may also get clues from the blue window. Rubia looks shocked when she hears about the window, and as No Name starts explaining, she blurts out that she'd never met anyone but herself who could see the window. Both he, Name, and Isaac are stunned. Rubia remembers telling her father about the thing she saw in the window, only for him to say he couldn't see it and warn her to keep it secret so people wouldn't reject her. Back in the present, Rubia is relieved she's not alone, and Isaac is amazed to have found 2 window users after centuries of watching the human world through the Chandler family. He says he may finally get to see the hole in the universe by staying with them, and he's excited for it. When the group reaches a waterfall, Isaac says the ruins are below the cliff. As Rubia wonders how they'll get down, No Name grabs her and jumps, making her scream until they land. Isaac warns them not to relax because he can smell blood. Soon they find Kevin Ashton's ruins, surrounded by dead dark elves. Isaac says the ruins are a shrine to Larazir, the devil who hunts birds, and No Name points out Larazir as an enemy of Malphas, making him doubt there would be any room there. Isaac insists there is, and flies to a drop of the stuff hanging from the ceiling, growing larger as he drinks it. At the same time, the bodies in the shrine begin to move. As the undead dark elves close in, No Name asks Isaac if he tricked them again. Isaac denies it and warns that something else is controlling the corpses. No Name activates swordsmanship and cuts into the elves, remembering his fight with the undead Chandler. He uses absorption to shield Rubia from projectiles and tells Isaac to get her somewhere safe. The crow carries her to a column away from the fight. Then No Name uses sprint/absorption, acid, and blaze to wipe out the undead elves fast, leveling up before one last elf attacks. Isaac warns that the elf is wearing a pendant showing he's the top warrior among Larazir's followers, so he won't go down easily. The elf slams No Name across the hall and pins him down. But when Rubia worries about him, a blue window says the servant system boosted his power by 15. As the pressure eases, No Name uses absorption and swordsmanship to force the elf back and kill the dark elf. A blue window then says his absorption reached level 6. He absorbs the dead elf's essence, taking its skills, while Isaac warns that whatever controls the corpses is still watching. They search the room until they spot a childlike figure behind a fountain. It calls them nothing and steps forward. Isaac identifies it as a fragment of apostles. He says he hunted these things when he ruled the Southern Empire, but warns this one may be too strong for No Name. The creature starts growing larger, forming a tail, and then says it's enough to deal with the protagonist. No Name dodges its strike and hits back hard with sprint, blade energy, and acid, but only leaves a scratch. Then he sees the creature is bleeding Rurum and gets knocked away by its tail. As the fragment comes closer, it mocks him for being weak and tells him to make it bleed more before hitting him again. No Name uses absorption and slashes at its neck, barely cutting it. The moment it sees that wound, the fragment grows even bigger and more reptile-like, while a blue window says No Name's assimilation rate dropped to 70.9, and the output code has been recognized. MC Name gets ready to fight and calls the creature weak in a strange voice, then attacks again, thinking that every time he sees it, he is slowly being set free. He lands another blow, makes the monster bleed, and climbs onto its head for the finishing strike, saying it's only a fragment before chopping into it with huge force. The creature crashes down, bleeding from many wounds, still repeating that it wants to live. No Name orders Isaac to stop it from escaping. As the sorcerer holds its head in place, No Name kills it. Then Isaac asks how he pulled that off, and he says he only did what he remembered. Suddenly a red window appears, warning him to freeze the assimilation rate, fix this slave to the world, and erase a shroud of memory. The moment he sees it, No Name collapses. Rubia grips a dagger and wonders if he'll wake up after what they're about to do, but Isaac urges her to begin and not miss. She drives the dagger in, and sometime later, No Name wakes up screaming, completely confused. That makes Ruby and Isaac ask if he's okay. No Name can't figure out why he blacked out, saying it felt like a shock from something that had been holding him down in his mind. Isaac says waking him up took a lot, because he had to expand the protagonist's name's circuits with the fragments Rurum, while Rubia helped carve them and Isaac cast a spell so the apostle's blood could be absorbed and heal him faster. After boasting about it, Isaac tells No Name to test his new circuits with blade energy and mix it with several skills. MC quickly realizes there's zero strain from using that much magic. Then he asks why Isaac helped him at all, accusing him of planning something. Isaac shoots back that No Name impressed him against the fragment, so he decided he was worth spending all the apostle's blood on. Isaac then asks how he managed to beat the monster. No Name says it felt like something possessed him, and none of it felt real. He then absorbs the creature's silver essence and gains the skill to change jobs, letting him switch class from skeleton soldier to skeleton swordsman, knight, or another class. That makes him remember the web slinger's ruby from a past life and how it could change classes, so he decides to check the 3 options, noting that neither state the upsides and downsides of each one. But before he can pick a class, a red window says No Name doesn't have enough Rurum. He asks Isaac where else they can get some, and the sorcerer nearly yells at the question. He starts thinking he might be useless, but Rubia cuts in and says they should go to Daliak for information. She read that Lamplight Daliak is a temporary neutral zone shared by the intelligence agency and the assassins, so it should be a good place to find answers. Isaac warns that not just anyone can get in and they'll be chased out, but Rubia points out that a public lodging area was built over the last 300 years, so they decide to go. Right before leaving, No Name notices a flute. Something about it pulls at him, while Isaac complains that Ashton wrote so much about these ruins without leaving behind a single treasure. After that, the group heads for Daliak. When they arrive, No Name thinks about using Masquerade, but drops the idea. Since using Vacian's face there could backfire, they still get through the checkpoint without being noticed. Isaac then smugly admits he used an illusion on the guards, so No Name decides to be careful around him. The sorcerer tells him to stay sharp because a barrier here makes people too relaxed. Isaac says it only keeps people in line and that they should be fine while he's with them. Rubia laughs that the barrier was made to stop fights, yet strong people like Isaac can push through it without trouble. No Name agrees, thinking only the weak get tamed by that barrier and that he needs to learn how to grow stronger. When they reach the square, everyone is staring at No Name, and he has the protagonist idea why. They go to a tent to buy information, but a man says only one person can enter at a time, so MC goes in alone. Inside, someone behind a curtain asks if he's here to buy information. No Name asks where to find more Rurum, and the figure says that kind of information will be auctioned off to whoever pays the most. Him decides to talk it over with Isaac and hands over a bag of money. Before leaving, he asks if they know anything about Kevin Ashton, but the figure says no and tells him to leave. The answer feels odd, so the protagonist's name tries to dig deeper, but the figure tells him to drop it and adds a free warning. There's a wanted order out on him. That bonus info throws No Name off, since in this life he hasn't met that person's followers or the Imperial Palace. As he steps out of the tent, magic chains snap around him and someone pulls a bag over his head. He wakes up tied up in a room with masked guards around him. They ask if he belongs to the rich family known for illusion magic. music, which No Name finds really strange. He also feels like he's seen them before. Then the door opens and Reina walks in with a cold look. She grabs No Name by the throat. The moment he says her name, she demands to know how he knows it. A blue window tells MC the scenario is already complete and that a clear correction is being applied. When he checks Reina, he sees her stats have risen far beyond before and that her status now marks her as TNT's third general manager. No Name realizes this must be the change the window meant in the world line, and he wonders what kind of life Reina went through. Reina tells the hooded figures this is the one they wanted, especially since the prophet gave the exact date and time. From how close they are with Reina, No Name recognizes them as Tropin and Sharunian. Now he wonders what he did to make them hunt him down and treat him like a lich. Reina admits she can't explain why she feels she knows who he is, then asks the other two to leave them alone. She assures them she'll be fine because No Name is still tied up. Once they're gone, she faces him and asks if he'll stay quiet to the very end. No Name still doesn't understand why he was kidnapped. Reina pulls out a dagger and asks again how he knows her. No Name realizes she's not the Reina he once knew anymore and wonders how he should deal with her now. He asks if knowing her name is really that serious and says he doesn't even know what she wants from him. That only makes her angrier. She demands to know what he wants from her and why he keeps appearing in her dreams. No Name remembers Reina saying something like that once before and realizes the world line may have changed, but pieces of their past lives could still remain as faint dreams. He starts wondering if everything will vanish as the world keeps changing and he keeps dying. So deciding not to affect her anymore in this life, he pretends not to know anything. He says they caught the wrong person. He's an outsider to magic, so he couldn't be showing up in anyone's dreams, and he only knows Reina because she's famous. Reina then tells him to identify her companions, and when he does, they rush back into the room, admitting they had been listening in. Tropin takes off her mask, saying there's no point now, while Sharunian starts talking about tightening guild security. The founder wants the protagonist's name killed, but Reina says she first wants more answers. No Name asks to be untied, telling Reina to trust him because of her dreams. After hesitating, Reina agrees to free him, though MC Name is suspicious of the sudden shift. Even with her companions objecting, Reina insists they should let him go, brushing it off with a smile and saying she wouldn't lie to them. No Name is freed and even given back his weapons, leaving him wondering what Reina is planning. Later, back at the inn, Isaac complains that he took too long, and Rubia says they were worried. Not wanting to upset her, He Name hides the kidnapping and just explains that he couldn't get information on Ashton, and they'll need to go through an auction. Isaac says they should learn how much money the other bidders have and why they want the Rurum. Then he and Rubia plan to use a white rainbow that glows when the substance is gathered in one place to draw them out. No Name has no idea what they mean. Isaac mocks him for being slow, but Rubia breaks the plan down for him. She says she'll be the one spreading the rumor and pulling in the rivals, since she can mix in with humans easily. Rubia goes into a shop and compliments a wreath by the door and the owner who made it, then says she'd love to buy more things. While the owner is distracted, No Name and Isaac talk about how simple the plan looks, though MC worries Rubia could be in danger. Isaac jokes about running into the 4 great Imperial swordsmen, which only makes him more uneasy, but then adds they wouldn't come chasing just one girl. They've got much bigger problems to deal with. Meanwhile, Rubia starts spreading the white rainbow rumor and completely fools the shop owner. No Name is impressed, and Isaac admits he also used a spell to help everything go smoothly. Rubia keeps spreading the white rainbow story in different places all day. By night, they decide to rest a little and wait for the bidders to move. Then Rubia spots a child alone in the street and offers him a loaf of bread. Just as he's about to take it, Reina calls from above and warns that kindness without understanding helps no one. The protagonist's name wonders what the thief is doing there, and Isaac figures she's one of the competitors after the rumor. Rubia tells Rubia that if she gives the boy food, older kids will steal it, and that could push him into begging under even worse conditions. Rubia shoots back that those are just excuses people use, so they don't have to give up their own money. She says she doesn't know anything about the boy anyway. Then the kid stands up and hugs Rubia, who thanks him for calling them and says he earned Rubia's bread for tricking her. Rubia only smiles and gives it to him, happy he at least has some kind of work. Rubia then wonders if it's fate or a curse that she keeps meeting No Name like this. MC Name thinks it actually makes sense that Rubia is after the Rurum. Then she tells him there's zero point in spreading rumors anymore, because her side is going to win the auction, leaving everyone stunned before she leaves across the rooftops. Rubia wonders what kind of person Rena really is, while Isaac is happy the bait worked. As they think over what Rena's words meant, the sorcerer says the reason is obvious, but for now they need to visit the auction house and change their bid. No Name comes out of the auction tent after buying the information, even after lowering the price to 1 Salen. Isaac jumps onto No Name's head and makes magic chains appear around a metal spike. He says it's a tracking tool someone planted on the protagonist's name earlier to follow whoever found the rumor. Realizing Rena put it there, MC asks why Isaac didn't warn him the moment he found it, but Isaac says if he had, No Name would have acted weird and exposed them. Rubia admits she knew too. Isaac then says he bought horses while he was getting the intel, and he ties the tracker to one of them to throw off anyone chasing them. The information says their destination is the Temple of Ymera, far beyond the western desert. While crossing the sands, Isaac tells Rubia the story of how this land became a desert. It was once the richest and most advanced place on the continent, until Ymera punished it and burned everything away with the power of sunlight. Then No Name spots a caravan coming through the dunes. Rubia speaks with the leader, and once they learn both sides are going to the Temple of Ymera, they agree to travel together. The merchant even offers to show her his goods. No Name doesn't trust the caravan, but Isaac says that even if they're hiding something, they're no threat to him, so they may as well use their knowledge of the desert. MC Name agrees, though he's still worried about the presence trailing them as Rena watches from a distance. Then Then the merchants ask No Name which house he belongs to. Later he says they were lucky to meet them, since they alone know the quickest road to the city, and they even offer some water. He Name picks up on how shady they are and thinks about moving first, but before he can draw his sword, a man on a dune shouts that they need to pay to cross his land. Isaac quickly tags them as bandits, and riders start rushing the caravan. No Name remembers this area was marked on the map he got, so he waits to see why. A burly man demands money from the caravan leader, and the leader nervously hands over the usual fee. The bandit wants more because of the extra travelers, but the caravan leader claims they aren't with him and can just vanish. He even says they can take Rubia. The bandit likes that deal and adds that he'll take No Name too. That makes Isaac laugh at how little he's worth. The bandit then tells Rubia they'll be nice to her if she comes quietly. Rubia looks shaken by that offer, and No Name reaches for his greatsword while Isaac excitedly shouts for a fight. Before he can move, a blade cuts through the air and takes off several heads, then returns cleanly to the figure standing in the dust. It's Reyna. She dives into the bandits and carves straight through them, leaving slaughter behind as she rides on. Isaac is stunned, sure he removed the tracker, while No Name realizes why that presence felt familiar. Reyna says they can talk after the bandits are dead, and when the men charge, the protagonist Name pulls out his sword and cuts them down with ease. He and Reyna wipe out the bandits fast, and seeing that, their panicked leader orders the caravan leader to call the god. Reyna spots him pulling a horn from his robe and urgently tells No Name to stop him, but he's too late. The moment the man blows the horn, the sand around them starts moving as a giant sandworm shifts below and bursts out. Rubia cries out in fear. Isaac barely reacts, and Reyna just stares in shock. A blue window tells No Name they've encountered the god of the desert, a special field boss born from the ashes of the ancient people burned by Ymera. The bandit leader cheers when it appears, but that confidence quickly turns to terror when the monster starts eating his own men too. He desperately screams at the caravan leader to control the worm, yelling that they'll all die if nothing is done, right before the monster lunges and swallows them. After eating both men, the worm rises up and slips back under the sand again. No Name asks if it's gone, but Reyna stays serious and says it's still moving underground. MC Name feels the tremors below him and uses detection, concentration, and trace to find where it is. Since its hiding skill is lower than his detection, he tracks it. Using sprint, he rushes to the spot and slashes into the sand, injuring the worm. Reyna and Rubia praise him, but Isaac only notes that the worm is still alive and fine. It tries to swallow No Name, but he jams his greatsword in its mouth to hold it open and barely hangs on. Seeing that, Rubia joins in, throwing a hook into the creature's mouth and pulling it wider. Once free, No Name uses sword skills, acid and lightning for the finishing hit, and the servant system boosts his skill proficiency by 30. Then with dash and a sword skill, he slices the worm apart in one strike, and a blue window confirms the kill. Everyone stares in shock at what they just saw, while another blue window tells No Name he earned 1,936 merit points, raising his store access to normal and warning that apprentice protection is now gone. Thinking back on all the times he died, he figures he wasn't feeling very protected anyway and wonders what changed. Another blue window opens with a percent-based purchase system and an inventory full of blurry items. It says the longer he waits to use his buying power, the better the reward. No Name realizes that killing monsters raises that buying power, and hitting set milestones unlocks more rewards. Knowing how long the higher levels would take, he thinks about picking a lower tier item instead. Then the window starts fading away, beginning with the last option, so he has to choose fast. With no time left, he picks 100, and a blue window says the store won't open until he reaches that buying power and that the items will be labeled anti-world. The protagonist Name has the protagonist idea what that means and wonders if aiming for the top was a mistake, but decides it's too late to take it back. Meanwhile, Reyna holds the caravan leader at sword point as he begs for mercy. Smiling, she says she'll let chance decide with a coin toss, promising to spare him if it lands on the number side. Then she bends the coin in her fingers before handing it over, making that result impossible, and happily cuts off his head. Reyna then tells No Name to stay out of it, and he asks how she followed them without the tracker. She admits that Tropin and Charunian went after the tracker, while Reyna came to warn them about the danger on the desert road. After seeing how he fought, she says he clearly didn't need the warning, though she was worried about Rubia. Reyna explains there are several dungeons in the west because the Emperor has been stirring up monsters and sending them into chaos. She adds that the horn the caravan leader used once belonged to Ymera's priest-craftsman, Gratium the Grey Cardinal, and he was likely forced to give it to a rookie user so the Emperor would have an excuse to gather an army to fight the monsters. She says this is really a setup to attack the Freedom Alliance from the west, with Vachian von Leandro sent to handle the Basilisk in the northwest and other missions. No Name thanks her, and she turns down payment after looting the caravan herself. She praises his fight against the worm, says she should trust her dreams more, and gets ready to leave. Isaac snaps MC Name back to focus, and Reyna tells him to move. They have a better way to get Murmur. Before leaving, she tosses him a new pendant and says to bring it to the capital if he wants to see her again. No Name notices the difference from the old pendant, and a blue window shows its new effects. While crossing the desert, Isaac warns them about the danger of the TNT plan, whatever that is, and No Name asks if he knew Tropin 300 years ago. Isaac says the only place to get a lot of murmur is the Imperial Palace, and suggests contacting Tropin because she knows about the apostles. He also says he can't sneak into the palace until he gets his full power back, and to do that he has to break the curses from the 3 goddesses. Those curses were put on him because he used their temple as a place for fun and pleasure, using each goddess's blessing to keep the party going. Isaac gets angry when No Name judges him, and when Rubia asks if those curses will be a problem once they reach the temple, he just says he has his methods, though getting inside won't be easy. At last they reach the edge of Ymera's temple. As they get near, Isaac tells them the temple is past the hill. Then he flies up and demands entry, but the ground shakes and a voice calling itself Wudulus declares it must destroy all impurities. The hill turns out to be a giant turtle, and a blue window tells No Name it's rank S, stronger than anything he's fought before. No Name yells for Isaac to handle the turtle, but Isaac says if he wants to live he has to shout that he'll play the quiz game. With no time left and the turtle about to attack, the protagonist Name yells that he'll play. Wudulus stops at once, his eyes lighting up with joy at getting a quiz partner again. He explains he's been bound to Ymera ever since losing a quiz to a human, since she stopped playing with him. He's been bored and now makes visiting humans play win and enter the temple, lose and die. The turtle says No Name wins by getting 2 right in a row, but dies if he misses 2 straight. MC Name can barely handle the first question, even though the turtle says it's easy. But just as he starts fearing for his life, Rubia steps in and answers correctly. Wudulus gets mad at Rubia for breaking the rules and warns her not to do it again, then offers the girl the chance to take No Name's place. She accepts without hesitation, and starts answering every question the turtle asks. No Name watches in complete surprise, while Modulus grows more and more thrilled playing with Rubia, and No Name thinks they oddly match well. Tearing up with happiness, the turtle says only Rubia may enter the temple and receive Ymera's blessing, but Rubia asks if her friends can come too. That answer crushes him, and Modulus turns furious. Upset that Rubia refuses to enter alone, he decides to force her inside no matter what. Using his presence, he pins down both Rubia and the protagonist. A blue window tells the protagonist some resistance is possible, and he can break free. He grabs Rubia and tries to run, but the turtle attacks and stops him cold before warning. He'll destroy everything if they keep angering him. Isaac then uses magic to put the monster to sleep and strikes its stomach, successfully knocking the turtle out and revealing he'd been setting this up during the quiz. Then they spot the temple next to the flipped-over turtle. Inside, they find all kinds of torture tools. Rubia says she'd heard Ymera's followers punish themselves for their sins before their goddess. No Name says they should hurry and take the murmur, which is probably inside the statue. Isaac stops them, warning the floor will collapse if they touch it, and instead leads them to where the turtle's tail used to be to get the goods. Following Isaac's lead, No Name moves a boulder aside and finds a hidden path. They head deeper inside and reach a room packed with treasure. Isaac says it was left as penance, and taking it is fine as long as the fee was already paid. He also says there won't be any murmur here, since no one would give that up as penance. Rubia asks if they woke the turtle just for jewels. Isaac says people would kill for treasure like this, and MC Name grabs him by the throat, threatening to kill him. Isaac tells him to go ahead, but reminds him they're out of time. The spell he cast on Wudulus was only temporary. He has no idea when the turtle will wake up, which worries everyone. When they leave the tunnel, Isaac explains that Ymera's statue runs on the apostles' blood. Just as Name moves to break the statue, Isaac flies to its head and starts gouging out the eyes. Black smoke pours from it, and a blue window tells No Name about its power. Then a red window warns that Isaac has been cursed. The crow tears out Ymera's eyes, and the statue starts crying murmur. He lands and says he's fine before telling No Name to gather it. The moment the protagonist's name touches the blood, a blue window says Rubia sees him as a mystery, and his mystery level goes up. While Isaac asks what he's seeing, another blue window says he needs more murmur to change jobs. Then several windows appear, listing the pros and cons of becoming a swordsman, a knight, or a hunter. He looks over each option and thinks the knight's protection skill would help him guard Rubia. But when he picks that class, a red window says he still needs more murmur to switch, leaving him frustrated. Isaac notices and asks what happened. He's stunned when No Name just says they may need to rob the Imperial family. In the Imperial capital, Tropin holds a TNT meeting about stealing the Imperial family's murmur. As the team reviews the plan, Rena listens from a distance, distracted. Her dreams grow clearer every day, and she starts to wonder if giving No Name the pendant was the right move. Tropin notices and walks over, but Rena brushes it off and joins the talk as they go over who should take part in the mission. They expect heavy resistance, including ghosts and maybe the Duke. Rena says they should send a small team of top experts, but another member points out they don't have enough elite people. Thinking No Name would fit perfectly, she starts to bring him up despite Tropin's doubts, saying he's probably already on his way to the capital, and right then the group reaches the city gates. Isaac casts a spell on the guards, so they enter the capital without trouble. While they're walking through the street, a kid stares at Isaac and offers 4 lati to buy him. The group is baffled, but Isaac says the child is a pure werewolf, and even he can't scare him off. He warns No Name that trying to force him away would end badly. MC Name briefly thinks about selling Isaac, then decides to bluff instead, and sadly turns the offer down. The werewolf kid doesn't give up and says he wants No Name as a gift for a girl. Rubia shuts him down for being rude, and the kid quickly backs off. Isaac comments that the stronger a werewolf is, the worse he is around women. Then the kid says a skeleton like this should serve the best necromancer. No Name instantly thinks of Gillet, and the kid confirms it. He asks if he's part of Red Flake too, and the kid transforms, ready to fight so he won't be exposed. Isaac blasts No Name for asking that, but the protagonist's name stays calm and claims he's an undercover agent working for Gillet. The werewolf is shocked, so MC Name lists the 5 Dullahan corpses that guard the necromancer, and even mentions the Starlight light blue fox. That instantly makes the kid change back and beg forgiveness for the mix-up, pleading with No Name to say only good things about him. Boldov, to Gillet. He shoves over 4 Lodi as a bribe and runs off. Rabia laughs it off, but Isaac is surprised he knows so much about someone as dangerous as Gillet and starts to suspect he's hiding something. No Name wonders how much longer he can keep his reincarnation secret, especially since he can't fully trust Isaac. Trying to change the subject, he asks about the sons of Linder. Isaac refuses to answer, and the protagonist's name gets angry, but Rabia steps in and says the sons are the strongest dragons. Isaac adds that nothing like that existed 400 years ago, so they may just be made up. Remembering Gillet's last words, No Name wonders if she is trying to wake dragon bones, and thinks he'll ask her next time they meet. When he says they should find somewhere to rest, Isaac points out that every inn in the city needs a formal introduction. Rubia knows how that works but can't use her family name, so she takes them into a jewelry shop called Garnet Wing. Later, Rubia enjoys the rich comforts of the inn, while No Name thinks how crazy it is that they got a luxury room for free, and even another merchant union guild card. Earlier that night, the clerk at Garnet Wing tells Rubia to leave, saying they only serve select customers and the goods there are too expensive for her. Rubia just smiles, grabs Isaac, and makes him cough up a pile of gold and rare jewels stolen from the Temple of Ymera, leaving the clerk speechless. Then she says they came to handle a few things. A while later, Blackberry, the store manager, apologizes for the staff and offers Rubia tea. Rubia accepts, agrees to the deal for selling the jewels, and the manager gives her a large discount in her own name, plus free lodging while she's in the capital. When Rubia asks why, Blackberry says she likes keeping valuable people close and watching them, and the jewels proved Rubia's worth. She then introduces herself as part of the merchant union and hands over a guild card. Once outside, Rubia says she's amazed they got that far, while Isaac says she just got lucky, still upset about losing his jewels. Then a well-dressed girl walks up and shyly offers Rubia an invitation to her tea party, saying she wants to be friends after what she saw at the store. Introducing herself as a Renge, she asks Rubia to think about it. Rubia tries to turn her down, but the girl keeps insisting for a moment before rushing off, and Isaac jokes with No Name about their new friend. Later at the inn, MC asks Rubia if she'll go to the tea party. When she doesn't answer, Isaac scolds him, Name for not realizing she doesn't have a dress, and says he'll buy one for her. Just as No Name starts to reassure Rubia about what she's wearing, someone knocks and tells the stunned group that the clothes he ordered have arrived. A little later, Rubia tries the dress on and warmly thanks a confused No Name for buying it. Then, a valet gives the protagonist's name a letter, saying the outfit was a gift from Blackberry, and Isaac says he should just pretend it was from him. No Name then remembers Jinne acting a lot like that jeweler, and wonders what happens when he collects 5 guild cards. Rubia puts the dress away and says she loved it. It made her feel like the days when her father was still alive, but now she's a fugitive, and says the rags she has are enough. No Name remembers that Rubia never got to live the life she deserved in any of his past lives. He tells her she doesn't need to worry about her identity, and promises to find a way. After that, he leaves holding Rena's pendant. No Name enters a tavern, and a worker leads him to the basement to meet Rena. On the way down, he thinks about how to ask her for fake papers for Rubia, but when he steps inside, Rena simply says he came for the job and is a little late, leaving the skeleton stunned. He asks if her memories are back. Rena says she only suspected it before, but his reaction proves those dreams were real memories. She explains that every time the dreams came, they grew clearer, and she could tell it wasn't magic, because those old bonds and feelings couldn't be faked that way, so she chose to accept her past lives. She says she's still herself, sure this wasn't a spell, and says No Name proved it by finding the inn without directions, like he'd been there before. Since there's no point denying it, No Name asks how she lived this life. Rena tells him that she met Tropin as a child, and grew up in TNT instead of slime. In this life, the headmaster knows her as someone hard to handle. As he Name thinks about how much the timeline changed, Rena says they should get to the point. She pulls out a blank page, pours a potion on it, revealing a forbidden pledge, and demands a vow before she'll say more. Once No Name signs it, the magic binds him, and Rena starts laying out the plan. She says the underground passage under the inn leads to the Imperial Palace, and they found out the Imperial family will use it to move the Murmur in a week. Their plan is to ambush it. They've prepared sleeping gas for the guards, plus explosives to flood the tunnel and make the Apostles' blood float to the meeting point. Rena explains that No Name's job is to hold up the convoy. Even though he doubts he can do it, he asks who will be guarding the cargo. Rena says it'll be protected by Behagus of Insight, who can see through disguises if he's registered someone beforehand, and the mage Aloe Heath, who specializes in fire. No Name goes tense when he hears assassins and ghost magic will be part of the job. That news puts him on guard, because he has never beaten them before, and knows he'll lose if they're as strong as they were in Erist. He asks if that girl will be there too, but Rena says Duke Lawrence Tardier is nowhere near the capital, so none of the 4 swordsmen will ride with the convoy. 3 of them will stay outside instead. That eases No Name a bit, especially with TNT backing them up and Rena's pendant giving advance warning. Then Rena surprises him by pulling out fake IDs for him and Rubia to use in the capital. The protagonist's Name stares at them, shocked he didn't even have to ask, and Rena shrugs it off. Then he mentions that Rubia can attend the tea party with those papers. Rena instantly snaps and demands the IDs back, accusing him of caring more about that than the mission. Confused, confused. No Name tries to explain what he meant. Back at the inn, Rubia happily says MC must be fixing the identity problem. Isaac, clearly annoyed, warns her not to expect much from him. At the Aringe Sena Ivet family tea party, a group of noble women gossip about how much effort went into it just to show the family's power. A red-headed girl mocks the Aringe Sena Ivet family for falling on hard times, and the others agree. Then Sena Iringe Sena Ivet arrives. She apologizes for being late and introduces Rubia as Countess Grittier. Nearby, No Name hides close enough to step in if needed. He remembers Isaac refusing to get mixed up in this after he signed Reina's contract. Isaac had already guessed the guild's plan and worried about it, especially since the imperial family seemed way too careless with the Rurum. So he chose to tour the capital and left Rubia in No Name's care. At the party, Sena sets the seating and tells the servants to bring one more chair. The red-headed noble takes the seat to Sena's right, but Sena flatly says it's reserved for Rubia instead. Rubia nervously tries to refuse, but Sena insists and says the redhead, Reed Baron, sat there by mistake. She points Reed to the plain, worn chair the servants just brought. No Name can tell the mood has turned ugly. Still, Rubia takes her seat, and Sena cheerfully dares anyone to question the arrangement. The other girls praise her choice, while Reed silently swears she'll find Sena's weakness and make her pay. After thinking it over, Rubia quietly tells Lady Arenge, Sena Ivet she'll play along with this awkward game if she's allowed into the family's famous library. Their huge collection is said to hold nearly every kind of book, including several history volumes written by Kevin Ashton. Rubia settles into the tea party and chats happily with the noble women about dresses, while Reed just watches with contempt. Then one girl asks Rubia what kind of person she likes, and No Name pays close attention. Rubia starts to stammer, but Reed pushes harder, hinting she must be ashamed of her taste. Still, Rubia steadies herself and says she doesn't care if he's not human. What matters is that he protects her, shares a bond with her, and makes her world brighter. The others start guessing what kind of creature she means, until Reed coldly says it might be a demon and reminds everyone that's forbidden. She storms out, smashing her teacup on the way. Sena tells Rubia to ignore her and orders the broken cup burned. Later, while they walk through the estate, Sena apologizes for using her. The Arenge Sena Ivot family is respected across the nation, but without famous mages or knights, they can't let their pride collapse. They've been pushing back against the rising calls for war, and that brought pressure from other lords and the imperial family. Things got so bad they had to sell a family treasure at the jewelry shop where she met Rubia. Reed Baron's family, on the other hand, supports the war. Her father is a well-known inquisitor who wants to spread the imperial religion into Amber and the Freedom Union, so Sena used Rubia to show the Arenge Sena Volfon family still wouldn't bow. After that, Sena takes Rubia to the family library, and Rubia asks for books by Kevin Ashton, making No Name realize she's searching for his sake. Sena says they have plenty of his books and sends them to Rubia's room. Later, he Name and Rubia look over all 20 books. To him, this is a huge chance, and he thanks Rubia for making it happen. But before they start reading, No Name activates detection and tells her they have visitors. Reed Baron walks in with 2 knights at her side, and she comes with a proposal. Claiming the tea party insult wasn't her choice, she offers Rubia a deal: side with her family, and testify against the Arenge Sena Volfon family, and she'll be spared the fallout from today. No Name worries Rubia might be targeted for murder, just like her father and Chandler, but Rubia turns her down without hesitation. She says she doesn't want gains like that. Insulted, Reed orders the knights to seize Rubia. No Name gets ready to jump in, but before he can move, the knights are slammed into the wall. Reed Baron stares in horror at them, then at Rubia, who simply signals No Name to head back with her. Once they're alone, the protagonist Name asks what just happened. When Rubia hints she already knew, he checks her stats and sees every number has gone up. She even gained the stat sharing perk, letting her use 10% of his highest stat, his strength, which is 93. Rubia says she'd never seen the numbers move like that before. She thought it came from traveling with No Name and assumed he would understand. MC then realizes he hasn't checked his own status since starting over, and decides he needs to raise his stats if he wants to protect Rubia later. After that, he starts reading the first volume of the National History Compilation Encyclopedia written by Kevin Ashton. The book blames the Arenge Sena Volfon family for the fall of the Ashton family, but No Name notices parts of it don't add up, and his status window never appears. By the last book, he figures out they're all fake Ashton works. Rubia apologizes, but No Name says they may still help someday. While he thinks about the link between Ashton and the Arenge Sena Vol family, Reina climbs in through the window and says the transport was moved up. They need to get ready now. No Name feels uneasy and wishes Isaac were there, though he's relieved Reina's pendant isn't reacting. Reina says she'll take Rubia to the TNT headquarters to keep her safe, pointing out how important she is to No Name. Feeling useless and in the way, Rubia shyly steps up and gives him a handkerchief, like people once did for knights going off to battle. He thanks her, and Rubia says she'll wait for him to come back. Reina cuts in at once, saying he is not going to die and they need to move. As Reina and No Name race across the rooftops, he thinks about changing jobs if the mission works. That would give him better traits and bring him closer to clearing Rubia's scenario, the one where she becomes the Lady of Arist, and maybe even helps uncover one of the world's secrets. Inside the passage, Imperial Knights carry the Rurum chest under ghost escort. Some complain about the assignment, but Aloheath reminds them how important it is, and Behagus agrees. The two talk about the knight's poor discipline and the coming war, until a sound makes everyone freeze. No Name steps into the corridor, dragging his sword behind him. Behagus doesn't recognize him, since he was never registered. And just as he starts asking how No Name found their route, the skeleton lifts his blade and uses a sword skill. Behagus orders the soldiers to attack, but He Name strikes so fast the man barely avoids it. While No Name keeps the convoy busy, Rubia and one of Reina's allies watch from above, waiting for the bomb. The man praises the protagonist's name for holding off the ghost so well. He says he'd like to fight the skeleton himself, and asks what kind of bond he has with Reina. Rubia jokes that it's something left over from a past life. Then she remembers how easily No Name agreed to the plan, realizing he trusted her enough to jump right in. She decides to thank him once this is all over. Down below, Aloheath complains they are wasting time on one enemy, then notices the knight starting to drop from the sleeping gas. Since it doesn't affect him, he moves to help Behagus, but Reina coldly says it's too late and starts counting down. When she reaches 0, the bomb explodes, blowing apart the floor and dropping everyone except No Name into the level below, while Reina snatches him back with her chain. Below, Aloheath runs into Tropin and gets ready to attack, but she takes him out at once with her advanced weapon. When the others reach her, Tropin praises them for pulling it off. No Name is amazed the plan worked this smoothly, and Tropin says the credit goes to Reina. Just as they prepare to leave, No Name spots a tear in reality, opening up. Everyone freezes as the Black Knight steps out of it. Facing that monster, MC wonders why it's here, and even Reina, stunned, admits she has no information on it. Behagus Name shouts for everyone to run, but Tropin holds her ground and tells the rest to get out. She rushes the knight, but it catches her rifle by the barrel and yanks her close. Then its head opens into a huge maw, and it bites off Tropin's head, rurum pouring from the wound. Reina's ally Stiglitz answers with his Dark Knight's silver fist, landing a hit and slamming 4 heads with it, only to be split in half by the knight's sword. No Name tells the frozen Reina to run while he buys time, but she refuses to leave and says she'll die there with her comrades. So he grabs her by the waist, throws her away, and charges. He charges the Black Knight with his greatsword. The knight marks No Name as a target, but the slash goes straight through and barely does anything. Seeing that, the protagonist's name stops holding back and triggers his sword skills, Blaze, Acid, and Lightning. But the knight lifts into the air before the hit lands and calls down a rain of swords from the rift. They pass through No Name so he isn't hurt at all, but they're flying right at Reina. The knight says MC Name clearly didn't know what he was talking about, and drags him into the rift. No Name looks around, confused to find himself in a bizarre dimension, with he clue what just happened. When he finds Reina's body, he gently closes her eyes and picks her up, blaming himself for not saving her. Elsewhere, Lawrence gets ready while one of her men reports a possible spy among the nobles. Irritated, she tells Baron to handle it before complaining about all the people against them, and asking when they can get his birthday party ready. Still trapped in the rift, No Name holds Reina's body and thinks the pendant was right, because even though everyone else died, he came out untouched. He sees the bodies from the corridor and starts absorbing their essence and skills, including Aloheath's and Stiglitz's, though he notices the absorption rate is dropping. When he takes in Tropin's essence, several windows appear to list the new skills he got, including mastery over her weapon, Reaper Sickle. But when he tries to claim it, a blue window says his magic engineering level is too low, so he can't use it. That leaves him with no choice but to abandon it. Then he looks for the Rurum chest, can't find it, and starts wondering what the knight has to do with the Imperial family and what this failed heist means for the TNT Guild. Worried about Rubia, since she was under the guild's protection, he starts searching for a way out of the rift. Then he's stunned when Reina's pendant starts to fall apart. A moment later, his whole outfit breaks down too, including Rubia's handkerchief. After that, Reina's corpse and all the others vanish, leaving him completely alone. When he notices his Rurum circuits are still fine, he uses Fiery Fist and starts pounding the barrier. Later, he mixes it with Lightning, wildly attacking in every direction to escape. It does nothing except raise his stats, and he loses all sense of time as he keeps launching attack after attack, desperate to get back to Rubia. At last, the barrier cracks and breaks apart. While he wonders if his skills finally did it, Isaac appears through the opening and lands on his arm, telling him to move. Once they step out into a forest, No Name notices Isaac's grim look. The crow just says it took a lot to get him out. He explains they're in the eastern mountains, because the barrier drifts around at random. The protagonist's name asks how long he was gone, where Rubia is, and whether the Imperial family did something. After a heavy pause, Isaac answers them one by one. First, No Name has been gone for 2 years. In a courtroom 2 years earlier, Baron's father gives his sentence on Rubia, naming her crimes as insulting a noble woman, threatening her with unnatural strength, working with traitors, and worshipping and dealing with the devil. He says she deserves death, but at the wizard's request, the injured girl is locked away in the Tower of Asura instead. As she's taken there in a cage, Isaac casts a spell on the soldiers escorting her, and says time is short. Rubia tells him she'll survive, but she's worried about No Name. Since none of the group's bodies were found, she believes he's still alive somewhere, and asks Isaac to find him. Back in the present, Isaac says the knight sounds like a titan, but the size doesn't match, which makes it suspicious. He also points out how strong that barrier had to be to trap No Name and send him so far from the capital. MC Name realizes so much time has passed that Gillis and Chandler are probably dead, and the war must already be underway. Then he asks where Rubia is now, and Isaac grimly asks if he truly wants the answer. He explains that every TNT base in the capital was raided, and most of the members were killed. The Abbott family was also wiped out for treason after passing information from inside the Imperial Palace to the Guild. Then he says Rubia was taken north to Pale Azura's Tower of Wizards, an institute in Boa imperial wood known as the Winter Fortress. She's being held there for study after being accused of demon worship and using unnatural strength. That makes No Name realize Baron must have testified against her. Isaac adds that the imperial wizards experiment on anything unusual, so Rubia will probably stay alive for at least 10 years, but he can't promise she'll still be the same Rubia. By then, hearing that, No Name screams in frustration at how weak he is and swears he'll rescue Rubia. Isaac then admits he had to choose whether to save her or save him, because either choice would expose him to the imperial family. He says his power has limits right now, since he spent all the room he had stored to break the barrier. Saving Rubia would have left No Name trapped forever. The protagonist Name still thinks Isaac chose wrong and should have saved Rubia instead. Still, he can't really blame him. He never revealed that he could reincarnate and try again if he had to, because he still didn't fully trust the sorcerer. Isaac tells him to give up because he can't take on the Tower of Wizards. When No Name refuses, Isaac says the wizards there are beyond anything he's faced and are masters of defense. He compares fighting them to fighting space and causality itself, making the point that it would be hopeless. MC Name only says he needs to get stronger. When Isaac asks how, No Name explains how the blue window lets him level up and absorb skills. Isaac says nobody grows like that, it's an insane advantage, and asks if he really thinks he can save Rubia. When No Name says yes, Isaac says he knows a way to boost his power, attack both the Imperial Legions and the Alliance. Soon after, a Freedom Alliance force marches through the foggy forest. The power armor soldiers talk about the fog and what it might mean. Then they spot No Name, assume he's an Imperial scout, and rush to surround him. But they slow down when they realize something isn't right. A lone skeleton stands among dead Imperial knights, holding a sword, and turns to face them. Earlier, No Name drew a symbol on the ground as Isaac instructed. Isaac explained it would turn the area into an altar for Malphas, and that offering the blood of the dead to the Demon King would make him stronger. Remembering Persian's followers, he listens as Isaac says Malphas will trade power for the offering. No Name asks what Malphas wants in return. Isaac claims it only wants the human blood given to it, then adds that demon worship is banned because it's too powerful. He says if the protagonist Name helps the demon lord grow stronger, this might be solved faster, with Malphas possibly even bringing Rubia to him. No Name remembers the demon lords rise in 8 years and are defeated 10 years later. He wonders if helping Malphas now could change that future. Still thinking it's the quickest way to save Rubia, he agrees to make a pact with the Demon King. Back in the present, No Name stands over the dead Freedom Alliance soldiers. Noting that the slaughter raised his stats, Isaac warns him it won't stay this easy, and points out that power armor runs on Rutum, while Titans hold even more. Then he lands on No Name's head and tells him to begin the ritual. Zamsi is pulled into the mindscape, where he speaks with Isaac, now in human form, who reaches out his hand and takes him flying while telling him to offer all his kills to Malphas. Once he does, a blue window appears with a new skill and says the Demon King is pleased, and his affinity with Malphas has climbed to 10, giving him darkness and charm privileges. Back outside, No Name looks down at the burnt-out Isaac on the ground. The sorcerer says he's leaving and congratulates him on the contract, saying he's gotten power back in his body, as he laughs wildly. No Name checks the effects of his new darkness privilege and tests it on a sword. The blade fills with dark energy and slices through armor with ease. He notices it doesn't drain his own energy, like someone else is handling the power for him. That's when he understands what a Demon King contract feels like. He remembers he never had a chance like this when he served under Demon King Baal, then moves on to test charm to see what it does. The moment he tries it, Isaac is charmed, and No Name shuts it off at once in shock. Isaac quickly claims it was just a joke. He then points out that he gained even more power than expected, and he sees Isaac got much stronger too. That makes him wonder if Isaac received some of the power for acting as the middleman, so they decide to keep using this method and profit from the war. Isaac then says the next battle may not happen soon, since the Empire is focusing on Amber instead. Right then, Persian's followers show up. The monsters accuse them of stealing their altar offerings. No Name looks at Isaac, and the crow admits this was originally Persian's altar because his followers planned to profit from the war too. He even praises himself for turning it into a shrine for Malphas. That little trick worked perfectly. The protagonist Name finds Isaac exhausting and remembers Persian's followers from his past life, glad Slime isn't with them. Just as he starts doubting he'll make it out, Isaac makes fun of him and tells him to try his best before flying off. As the creatures rush him, No Name activates darkness and cuts them down with ease. All of them, while Isaac shouts that he can do whatever he wants now. Standing over Persian's followers, No Name is struck by how much easier this is than their first meeting. When one of them lunges at him, he puts it down fast and uses fear to force out the location of the deer, Patrick. From that, he learns Persian's altar was destroyed by the Imperial family after the failed Rurum heist, weakening them. Their base was shattered, so the deer had to search the battlefields by himself, trying to rebuild the altar and recover their power. The creature adds that Slime left the cult because the war was too cruel. It also says the werewolf Brody Baldov had gone off to handle his own business alone. Then the creature suddenly lunges at No Name, and he has no choice but to stab it through. Isaac praises how cold he is and tells him to absorb its essence. No Name notices the skill is getting harder to use as his abilities keep growing. Then a blue window says he's now an epic skill holder and essence absorption reached level 3. Now he can pull more essence from battlefield corpses, even ones ones that were too weak before. After picking up armor and gear from the field, Isaac suggests they stay quiet for 2 weeks so they don't draw attention. No Name hates losing more time, but he gives in and decides to look for someone else nearby during those 2 weeks. So he starts wandering around, making strange noises while Isaac watches in disgust. He's remembering what the goblins said about Mudcash and the secret password needed to find him. No Name is after Mudcash's magic pouch, a bag that can hold endless gold. Even Isaac admits an item like that would be incredibly useful. Still, he says true infinite space can't exist, so the part about endless coins is probably fake. The sorcerer admits he once tried and failed to make infinite space, but says the search may still be worth it. That makes No Name think the item really is valuable, so he keeps looking. While repeating the password, he hears footsteps coming closer. He activates running and follows the sound until he comes face to face with Brody Baldoff, who's there to avenge his pack. No Name fights Brody in the woods, just barely avoiding his blows and finding his good chance to strike. He wonders why Brody showed up and curses himself for shouting that useless password and giving away his position. When he uses sword thrust, he misreads the distance because he's gotten used to fighting with a greatsword. Brody knocks No Name's weapon away and slams him to the ground, but the skeleton gets force shield up just in time. Then he uses stealth and manages to disappear. As he thinks about what to do next, Isaac shows up and pecks his helmet, scolding him for not using Malphas's power on the werewolf. No Name is scared to use it, knowing the Demon King may be watching, but he finally activates Darkness, Fiery Fist, and Lightning to throw out one huge blow that forces the werewolf back into human form. Brody says he regrets not keeping his promise to Kira and gets ready to die. Instead, No Name asks if he knows Lumen Baldoff. That makes Brody desperately ask where he heard that name, offering anything before he dies. No Name starts to think Lumen might be Brody's son, and since the werewolf reminds him of himself, he tells Brody about meeting Lumen and about Rubia's situation, offering to learn more about Lumen if Brody helps him. Brody agrees while Isaac mocks them from above. The werewolf comments on Isaac's rotten energy and strength, and the crow fires back. Then Isaac tells Brody to break his contract with Person, since Demon Kings can see through their followers' eyes. Brody says the contract can't be broken, but Isaac replies that it can be overwritten with a new one and does exactly that. As the new contract is sealed, Brody coughs up blood and a blue window tells No Name Malphas is pleased to have a new contractor, along with the bonuses that come with it. Isaac explains that this contract is weaker than No Name's. Then a red window warns that he has earned Person's wrath and revenge will come later. The protagonist Name wonders why that message appeared now, and realizes he'll need to be careful. Brody asks MC how he can help. No Name figures it's too soon to strike Asura's tower, so he asks for everything Brody knows about the war. Brody says the front lines are stuck in a deadlock while both armies destroy civilian towns. He adds that Person's followers have been killing humans too, getting ready for the Demon King's arrival, but humans have done an even better job killing each other. No Name remembers the war dragging on for 10 years with neither side gaining much, ending in a costly Imperial win that was then used by the Demon Kings to descend on the world. Brody also says the Imperial army still hasn't been forced to send out Asura's mages, so No Name decides to create that pressure and clear out the tower. Elsewhere, an Alliance soldier reports that the 7th and 8th Imperial companies were wiped out and the Pilnus front has fallen, making a woman realize someone is helping the Freedom Alliance. At an Alliance meeting, a man studies photos of the Iron Men No Name killed and explains their metal armor was sliced clean through. The others note that the Four Swordsmen are all deployed at Amber, so the attack must have been done by a swordmaster and a mage working together. When someone asks if God is helping them, the woman says it's more likely the devil and thinks she'll gladly walk beside him. A brigadier general storms in and calls her Senator Karen Krexel, furious when she ignores him. He demands to know why the military chief was arrested without asking him first. She answers by throwing papers in his face and says the man was arrested for poor leadership and stealing funds because she feared he might cover it up. The brigadier general argues that this isn't the time for that and says he spent years training the man, but Karen Krexel coldly says she'll accept the cost. Then she orders him removed and keeps the meeting going. When a subordinate asks what they should do next, Karen Krexel says they won't report the attack to the main army. Instead, they'll keep advancing and look for more destroyed enemy forces. She also orders them to make sure all of it can be claimed as their achievement, while the brigadier general listens from outside. Later, in her tent, Karen Krexel meets with her aide and bodyguard Louis Claude. They talk about the brigadier general and Karen's standing in the army, and she says her influence comes from being part of the Krexel family, while Louis earned his place by himself. Louis remembers she hired him right after he left the orphanage, and Karen Krexel teases him before getting serious. She needs power of her own inside the family, or her brothers will eclipse her. Then she tells Louis to find the unknown attacker and bring him to her side to lock in her position. Elsewhere, the brigadier general leads a squad of Iron Men through dead Imperial soldiers, swearing he'll steal Karen's results. Nearby, Isaac figures the Alliance will contact them soon, so they should decide what to ask in return for killing Imperial soldiers. A moment later, the brigadier general attacks No Name, hoping a kill will turn things back in his favor. If the name kills him with ease using darkness, and the rest of the Iron Men rush him together as a cloaked figure watches nearby. A blue window says his privilege level has increased, and after No Name wipes out the Iron Men, Isaac demands a dying soldier explain why they attacked. The cloaked figure slips up to the protagonist's name without being noticed and says he came to make a deal, insisting he means harmless. No Name says he can't trust someone hiding their presence, so Lewis pulls off his cloak and introduces himself. Both Hiname and Isaac are impressed by how well the cloak hides its user, and the sorcerer identifies it as a copy of an old legacy item, whose crafting methods were thought lost and would take huge skill and effort to reproduce. Isaac tells No Name to hear Louis out, and the man explains that the Iron Men serve Krexel family members who oppose Karen Krexel. He says the senator wants an alliance with the protagonist and is willing to support his goals. MC Name steps away with Isaac and meets Brody, telling him they'll work with the alliance, which annoys the sorcerer when No Name asks the werewolf what he thinks. Escorted by Louis, he and Isaac reach the alliance camp. On the way to Karen's tent, Isaac complains about the terrible state of the army and starts talking about how to fix it. Senator Karen Krexel welcomes them warmly and asks for his terms, offering support against the Empire. Caught off guard by how direct she is, No Name asks if she isn't afraid he might kill her. Louis is furious, but she only says fate doesn't hold that ending for her. Destiny is on her side. No Name appraises her, and a blue window says the minimum conditions for her scenario aren't met, so it can't begin. He remembers the same thing happened when he met Gilaut Rai, and only a few people he'd met ever triggered a scenario window. Even Isaac didn't get one. Curious about Karen's scenario, the sorcerer calls her cheeky, and No Name asks how much rurum she has ready. When he learns Karen Krexel can only gather 2 bottles, he demands the rurum taken from the future capture of the Imperial City, thinking the Alliance may regret agreeing to that and worrying he could meet the Dark Knight again. Isaac warns him through telepathy that he's not finished and must repeat his next words exactly to get what he wants as fast as possible. So No Name tells Karen Krexel to give him full command of her army, promising to stay in the shadows while she takes all the credit. Louis nearly explodes, but she calms him and agrees to No Name's demand, curious what he plans to do with an army, and telling him to show her true warfare. At an Imperial camp, an officer shouts in rage after 2 straight months of defeats against the Alliance. Lord Reed Baron. Reed tells him to calm down, but the man keeps going, saying the enemy hit their supply depot. When Reed Baron Reed says he should come up with countermeasures, the general angrily vows the Alliance will never step onto Imperial land. At the same time, a supply convoy reaches Karen's camp, and soldiers celebrate their good supplies and the winning streak Karen Krexel has built since taking command. Nearby, No Name praises their plan of using Brody to raid the Empire's supply lines, but Isaac says something feels off. The Empire is acting too stubborn. The protagonist's name remembers the Imperial troops seem desperate, and the sorcerer points that out too. Isaac points out that the whole army seems to have only one commander who really knows what he's doing. The soldiers feel abandoned because the Empire is focused on crushing Amber while leaving its own land exposed, and that starts shaking their trust in the Emperor. Since he has no clear way to know what's happening in Amber, MC decides the best move is to keep advancing toward the Imperial capital. Then Brody shows up and warns that he smells fire and oil above the canyon near camp, telling everyone to get ready. From higher ground, they spot Imperial troops preparing a fire attack to burn the Alliance forces. No jumps straight in. Using darkness, swordsmanship, and dash, he quickly cuts through the soldiers while Brody watches, stunned. Back in camp, Karen gives No a vial of ruum taken from the ruined Iron Man suit and says he'll get more once they reach the capital. She adds that her standing has risen a lot because of him. She thinks it will still take months to reach the Red Fox Plains, the gateway to the capital, and thanks him for bringing her this close to the Imperial family. She clearly knows how to flatter him. Karen also says she can get the Senate to approve whatever plan he makes. To himself, No notes how good Karen is at leading people and winning them over. The senator then gives him information on the Imperial commanders before leaving to present his war plan to the Senate. No and Isaac study the report on Count Oscar Anadol, a cavalry leader of the Heldavasha regiment and the main pillar of the Imperial army. At the same time, the court is upset that the canyon ambush failed. Marquise Reed. Baron Reed tells Oscar not to fuss over the dead soldiers, which makes the Count snap and tell him to face reality instead of acting so relaxed. Insulted, the Inquisitor reminds the Count that he became a Marquise by leading the purge of the Empire's traitors, and even the Imperial family admires him. As he boasts that the Alliance would run at the sight of him, a Necron Society tattoo shows on his neck. Meanwhile, No reads the man's records, remembers he helped condemn Rubia, and decides to kill him. The Imperial and Alliance armies finally stand against each other on the Red Fox Plains. Markers Reed. Baron Reed shouts with joy as the Empire starts taking control of the fight, but Count Anadol thinks the whole thing feels off. Even on the wide open plain, he suspects an ambush, and wonders what the Alliance is hiding. Back at the Alliance camp, other senators press Karen about who will answer for this recent defeat, but she calmly says they were the ones who demanded to hear her plan and agreed to it in advance. According to her, everything is still on track, and the operation will end in a huge win. Flying over the battlefield, Isaac remembers telling No the first rule of gambling. Let your opponent come to the table by losing a little first, so they get cocky. Then even when the stakes jump, they stay in too long and lose everything before they realize it. Back on the field, hidden Alliance soldiers and Iron Man rise from the grass and hit the Imperial army by surprise. Count Anadol stares from the battlements, unable to believe it, shaken that he failed to see this coming, while the Marquis screams for him to fix it immediately. Furious, the Count fires back, saying he already knows the man has no real war experience. He tells him to carry his share of the command, instead of whining about bad luck and poor results without making a counterplan. Before Reed Baron can answer, Count Anadol cuts him off, saying any more talk is useless, then walks away, set on doing doing what he can because his position demands it, while the Marquis watches from far away. From a watchtower, Karin and No study the battle. They watch the fight from above. When Karin asks how it feels with victory so close, he says the enemy commanders still haven't entered the field. He then dashes off, saying he'll return when the battle is over. Karin starts thinking about entering the capital next. No races across the battlefield looking for the enemy commanders, then stops when he spots Kirk desperately shouting at his troops. A huge knight guards Kirk, and No wonders why he's here on the battlefield at all. A wounded soldier begs the protagonist for help, and No considers taking them both while forcing Kirk to reveal where Marquis Reed Baron is. His thoughts are cut off when he has to dodge the knight's attack. MC doesn't remember Kirk having a guard this strong, and he starts thinking about how to beat him. As their blades meet, No says the knight seems familiar and asks if he really plans to keep serving Kirk. Kirk yells back that he should do the job he's paid for, since no one will hire him if the lord dies. The knight only answers that protecting a lord is a knight's duty, and keeps hammering at No with a greatsword. The protagonist admires that loyalty, but he still uses darkness and blasts the knight's helmet off, only to see that the knight is Christina. She shouts that she can still fight, but when she charges No, the wounded soldier stabs her from behind with a spear, and she falls. The soldier snaps MC out of his daze and asks him to put in a good word with Karen. No looks at Christina and mourns her death, wishing he had known sooner. He quietly promises to make it up to her if they ever meet in another life. He realizes that without him or Chandler at the Arist tournament, Christina must have won and become Kirk's knight. Kirk curses Christina for failing him as he tries to crawl away, and while he keeps spitting insults, No tells the soldier to back off so he can deal with Kirk himself. He chases him through the battle, pins him down with a sword, and calls him worthless for what he did to Rubia and to his own people. Panicking, Kirk asks how the Alliance learned about Rubia, and if the rumors of her escape were true, remembering he even hired Eublum's blacksmith to have her killed. As No closes in, Kirk tries to run and screams for someone to save him, then a lance pierces him. He looks up in surprise as Count Anadol rides in on a horse, warning that deserters will die no matter their rank, and ordering the troops to regroup and strike back. Shouting about his roots as a cavalry commander and his will to fight, he charges ahead and cuts a bloody path. No recognizes him and wants to know where the martyr Marquis is. He activates darkness and dash and attacks from above with a heavy clang. Count Anadol rushes deeper into the fight, already realizing the protagonist isn't an ordinary knight. No strikes from above again, but the Count blocks with his pike and counters. MC sees his skill and realizes this army could still threaten the Alliance if left alone. He attacks again, and the Count blocks him once more, still refusing to say where Marquis Reed Baron is. Elsewhere, the Marquis orders what's left of the army to retreat, choosing to save himself even if their headquarters falls. No reminds the Count that he swore to execute deserters, then wanting to end it, unleashes a crushing blow. Knowing nobody can stop the attack, Count Anadol accepts his end and raises his pike, ready to die doing his duty. No stands over the fallen Count after the dust clears. He wipes out the nearby Imperial troops with ease, then absorbs the Count's essence and gains new skills. After that, he goes after the Marquis, who desperately begs for protection, and kills him with couch lance. Seeing the battle is lost, an Imperial mage slips away to report the news to Asura's tower. As Marquis Reed Baron bleeds out, No asks if he remembers Rubia, but the man says he can't be expected to remember such petty matters and even offers to arrange a meeting if he surrenders to him. Seeing the Necron Society tattoo on his neck, No asks the Marquis about it, and the man offers to recommend him to the group. Then the tattoo suddenly comes alive and wraps around his head, killing him as black snakes spill from his mouth. The snakes lunge at No, but he burns them with blaze and jumps back, trying to figure out what he just saw. He realizes the Necron tattoos can be used as weapons too. Even after death, Reed Baron's corpse keeps crawling toward No, spewing snakes, and the protagonist wonders how the Empire turned an Inquisitor into something this demonic. While he uses darkness to wipe out the snakes, the corpse speaks in an inhuman voice and says it recognizes Malphas's power. It claims victory is already his and offers No a chance to become his servant, revealing that he is the Demon King Bottas. Remembering that Demon Kings can see through their contractors' eyes, MC wonders what to do as Bottas pours out like smoke and wraps around him. No refuses to become his servant, uses Raven's wing and slashes Bottas, making the demon cry out in shock. A blue window appears, saying he rejected the Demon King's offer, and dealt minor damage to a fragment of Bottas, raising his affinity with Malphas and strengthening his charm privilege. No thinks over what just happened and notes that people connected to the Necron Society always seem to threaten Rubia. He cuts off the Marquis' head and gives it to a soldier who lifts it on a pike and calls on the remaining Imperial troops to surrender. Back at the Alliance camp, Karin calls for No so she can reward him for the victory, giving him a golden scarab he remembers from a book. She explains that the relic can unlock a legacy and has been in her family for generations. No remembers the legacy items he's seen before and wonders if this scarab is the key to the 10,000 times legacy item Starlight mentioned. Karin says her family never found the door this scarab opens anywhere in the Alliance, so it must be in the Empire, and explains that she's giving it to repay him, curious how he'll react. She's pleased that it catches his interest. As the protagonist starts thinking about accepting the gift, a terrified Louis rushes in and says their spies confirm that Azura's wizards are moving south. Angry, Karin asks how many, and when Louis says dozens are on the way, No is thrilled because that means the tower is now empty. MC asks for a little time to think. Once Karin leaves to call a Senate meeting, No tells Isaac to get ready. They're heading for the tower. The sorcerer turns him down, saying he's still too weak to fight the wizards head-on. Instead, he wants to break through the Imperial Guard, grab Rurum, and pick up anything else that could help. His plan is to use the Alliance army as the front front line to clear the way. No Name still insists on going to the tower, so Isaac tries to hypnotize him and force him to agree, but his stats are too high and he shakes it off. Furious, he shouts at Isaac for stopping him after saying Rubia was in the tower. Isaac coldly answers that there's nothing there, because Rubia died 2 years ago. No Name snaps and refuses to believe it. Isaac insists it's true. He killed her himself. A flashback shows their meeting 2 years earlier, while Rubia was being taken to Asura's tower. Isaac warned her she would be used in horrible experiments, so awful she'd beg to die, even as they ruined her body and mind, but kept her alive. When he asked if she could accept that, the girl only smiled and thanked him when he offered to end her pain. Isaac spread his wings and told her to sleep well. As the truth sinks in, No Name is swallowed by rage, and when Isaac tells him to move on, he realizes he'd been tricked this whole time. He draws his sword and hacks at the crow again and again, while Isaac blocks every strike. The sorcerer tells him he shouldn't be mad. Thanks to him, No Name got stronger and should be thankful for that. The protagonist Name realizes that if Isaac lied, then all the slaughter was pointless. He threw away his time by following and trusting him. Broken, No Name says he wishes he had died too, so he could restart from the very beginning. When Isaac starts asking about that restart, MC Name cuts him off and says he'll spare him if he leaves right now. Isaac hesitates, then agrees. That night, Brody enters the tent and says the wizards are moving out, which means the tower should be empty now. But when he sees No Name, he asks what happened. Name stops him and says Lumen is probably an amber tied to the Red Flake organization. He'll go to the tower alone, and Brody needs to find his son. Brody says he can smell people's feelings and strength, and that their time together wasn't bad. They should meet again someday. Later, No Name questions a knight from the Reed Baron family to check Isaac's story. The knight confirms that one prisoner on the way to Azura's tower suddenly died without a single wound. No Name kills him at once, then leaves thinking about Rubia's last words, and realizing he couldn't protect anything in this life, with the protagonist idea what to do next. Meanwhile, Korean finds the scarab in her tent and clutches it to her chest. The Imperial wizards tear through the Alliance troops sent against them while Karen watches from a distance, and the other senators beg her to act. She asks Louis about No Name, and when he admits he couldn't track him down, Karen decides to handle it herself. She thinks about how she always knew he might vanish, as suddenly as he appeared, and even though she tried to hold on to him, she couldn't rely on him forever. Then she orders the formation changed, brings up the siege weapons, has the infantry fire from the rear, and sends the mechanized unit to the front. With her sword drawn ready to face the wizards, she commands the assault on the Imperial capital to begin. Somewhere else, No Name thinks about his situation, feeling hollow and alone as he senses the battle in the distance. Even without him, the army is holding on despite the bad odds. Since he's lost his goal in this life anyway, he decides it wouldn't be so bad to absorb the wizard's essence and grow stronger, then rushes toward the battle. As medics carry the wounded into camp, Lewis tells Karen the dead are close to 10,000. Karen points out that they've killed 9 wizards and still have 100,000 troops left, but she needs a new plan. Then a war cry rings out and reports come in about an unknown knight on the front lines helping them. The wizards can't stop him. Karen looks up in shock as No Name cuts through the enemy, and with her confidence back, she ignores Louis' call to retreat, set on pressing the attack. No Name notices the arrows are being redirected away from his position, and the mechanized infantry is targeting wizards far from him, orders that must have come from Karen. The final wizard drives ice spikes through MC Name, but they do nothing. He keeps moving and kills him. Then he absorbs all the wizard's essence and skills and declares the fight over. The troops celebrate their win over the wizards, but Karen spots 2 mages floating above the walls. Watching the alliance with mocking amusement, Eland, master of the Tower of Innocence, says the other mages did a poor job and asks Huwain, master of the Tower of Thunder, if they should step in. Huwain agrees. Eland then speaks to the alliance about the battle, and while No Name notes that flying magic burns a lot of power, Eland lifts a bag and says he has something exciting prepared. Black smoke pours from the powder bag when his staff touches it, spreading over the alliance army. Louis tells Karen to get back, but she sees the smoke already thinning. The soldiers laugh, thinking the spell failed, until they start throwing themselves onto their own weapons in mass suicide, while Eland talks about it from above like a sick showman. Karen drops to her knees in shock and terror, but Louis pulls her up and tells her to run. He leaves the mages to No Name since he's still standing after taking the powder head-on. Realizing the powder only affects humans, he sees a chance to fight back. Eland is still laughing when he notices No Name hasn't fallen. Using Gale with double casting, the skeleton sends a tornado at the 2 mages. When they dodge, he chains together Force Shield, Dash, Fiery Fist, and Darkness, launches himself up with sword in hand and slashes at Eland. Horjin yanks Eland out of the way and hits No Name with Detonate, blowing apart his armor and exposing his skeleton body. Huwain says it's strange for an undead to fight beside humans, and seeing the protagonist Name's odd abilities, decides he wants to study him. Eland is furious that No Name ruined his hair and demands Huwain hand him over for torture. He drops to the ground saying the skeleton's crime is too great to just capture him for, and gets ready to smash his head in. As MC Name accepts what seems like the end, Isaac's voice cuts in, asking who'll answer for it if the skeleton gets even dumber than he already is. With a snap of Isaac's fingers, Eland is slammed into the ground. As Huwain wonders who could use that kind of power, Isaac steps out of the woods in human form, smiles at No Name and says he still can't manage anything without him. He stares at him in disbelief, and Isaac tells him to wait while he deals with these mages, which he calls insects. Elin tries to cast at Isaac, but the sorcerer crushes him with ease. Mocking the fact that Harry's color grew from such an empty head, he uses charm magic to make Elin smash his face into the ground again and again, then burn his own head with fire. Hwoarang watches in horror, saying that in 100 years he's never seen power like this, and asks if Isaac is Bodice. Isaac appears behind him, insulted to be mistaken for one of Bodice's followers, and says he'll honor Hwoarang's stupidity by blowing his head off. No Name is stunned by how easily the sorcerer kills both mages, and asks how he can still use his power so well while cursed. Isaac answers with a few smug remarks, then places a hand on the startled skeleton's head, healing him and giving him many new skills. He explains that he recovered enough power to fool the goddesses for a while, and when No Name asks if he did it by offering sacrifices, Isaac laughs, then seriously says even sacrificing the whole army wouldn't let him hold that power for long. There's a difference, he says, between making offerings and using sorcery. As cracks spread across his face and his body starts falling apart, Isaac explains that sorcery depends on causality, and the price for it changes based on what matters most. To Isaac, nothing matters more than himself. He'd sacrifice millions before dying, so sacrificing his own life creates far greater causality. As No Name starts to understand, Isaac says he's trading away his life for nothing, and doing all of it for the protagonist's name's sake. That absurd amount of causality let him briefly manifest his true form. No Name can hardly grasp what he's hearing. Isaac always cheated him, or tried to kill him, so he asks why. Isaac only replies that saying it plainly would be boring, and that he's been giving him the truth little by little. Then he sends a sword flying into the skeleton's hands and makes him grip it tight, before falling onto it himself. He tells No Name that if they meet in another life, they should be more honest, then dies. Isaac's body disappears, and a blue window announces that No Name has killed Malphas's high priest, performed an impossible feat, and escaped the curse while leveling up many times. MC Name is left alone. With Isaac's crow body pierced on his sword, he sees a huge amount of essence pouring from the crow corpse, and when he tries to absorb it, red windows appear, warning that he can't take the essence or the skills. He screams in frustration. After that, he absorbs the essence of the two Tower Masters and takes their skills, knowing they'll be useful. Then he wonders if he should absorb the crow's Rurum, knowing that choice could affect Isaac's next life. In the end, he figures Isaac would probably complain later if he didn't take it, so he goes ahead. That unlocks a new job, Lich. A red window warns he still doesn't have enough Rurum to take that class. Still, other classes are now open to him. No Name pauses to think. His target is the Imperial capital, and he has the idea what waits for him there, so he switches to Skeleton Knight. His bones shift into a new form, and a blue window says his stat gains will now double whenever he levels, and shows the skills he just got. Once the class change is confirmed, No Name stands up and looks over his new body covered in bone armor. Then he calls forth a skeletal horse. A blue window labels it a rare grade mount, which reminds him of Count Anadald's pike. Climbing onto his mount, No Name rides for the capital. When he gets there, something feels wrong. There are the protagonist soldiers guarding the capital, and the whole place is dead quiet. He senses no backup, MC evacuation, and MC magic. As he moves closer, a soldier watches him from the wall. Thinking about the worms, he realizes this feels familiar. Then the gates swing open and Marquis Leandros Von rides out on horseback. The protagonist's name instantly understands why no more troops were needed. But then his thoughts stop when more riders come out behind the Marquis. He starts shaking in disbelief as endless worms with Vachian's face pour from the city. Elsewhere, Lawrence watches from a window, crying because she can't give the Marquis his birthday gift and hating that she's being forced to kill him while the worms close in on No Name. Karen asks Louise how her army is holding up and whether they're ready to take the capital, and he says they won't even reach the gates. Shaken herself but accepting it, the senator says finishing the siege will have to fall to No Name. At the gate, he wonders how he's supposed to handle all these Vachian von Leandro worms. He goes all out, mixing Gale with double casting to land a clean hit. By blending magic with swordplay, he gets a blue notice telling him he can now create new skill combos. The worms survive, though badly damaged, and their bodies start twisting as they mutter they weren't ready yet. No Name answers by combining double casting with lightning to finish things fast, but one worm blocks the attack by copying Vachian's sword skill, and No Name realizes he'll die if this keeps up. The worms circle him without moving, making him wonder why they aren't attacking. Then he activates Force Shield, launches himself into the air, and prepares another double lightning strike. Before he can fire, one worm hurls a sword that cuts off the skeletal horse's head, destroying it and sending No Name crashing down. As he hits the ground, he releases the attack through his lance. He kills one of the worms, and while taking in its essence, he notices the others still waiting. That makes him wonder if they won't attack unless he strikes first. Then he remembers only the worm he targeted answered through the sword, and he figures out they're obsessed with a fair duel, like some part of Vachian's human mind is trying to break free. A blue window tells him Dusk's blessing is shifting the battlefield in his favor. Rain begins to fall, and Zephyr's gift turns the wind his way. He also gains Energy Blade experience. Mixing lightning with Gale, he decides to accept the worm's duel. With the weather helping him, his attack power jumps by 50%. Then he bursts forward and uses Dark Slash on one worm, splitting it in half before absorbing its essence and skills. Now he starts to think he can beat them all one at a time, and even thanks Vachian von Leandro for helping him by accident. Watching this, Lawrence regrets she couldn't make proper use of Vachian von Leandro, and calls No Name attractive, but says that as head of the Shadow Empire she must obey the true Empire, so she orders the worms to attack. They resist as much as they can, but in the end they give in and strike together, killing No Name. He wakes in his coffin in the forest, and a blue window says the inheritance is complete, and his assimilation rate is still under 70%. It also says the scenario has changed, protection is off, memorial is gone, and the necromancer's lover privilege will disappear. He realizes that lost privilege vanished because the protection was removed, and he's shocked to see he kept all the skeleton knight perks, even though he's back to being a skeleton soldier. That means he can pick jobs one by one and keep their bonuses. He also notes that his dark abilities are gone now that Malphus's contract has ended, and thinks that may be for the best. Then No Name starts thinking about what to do next. He knows he can't challenge the Imperial family as recklessly as before, or they'll just send even stronger enemies like they did last time. His thoughts turn to Isaac, remembering the sacrifice he made, though he can't tell if the sorcerer expected No Name to return for him. Maybe he'll understand Isaac's plan later. For now, he wonders why Rubia still hasn't appeared. In the storm, Rubia leaves Arist with two men following behind and trying to stop her. Remembering her past lives with No Name, she is set on summoning him again. Her attendants keep questioning the choice, but they refuse to leave her side. Wanting to repay No Name's loyalty, she reaches the grave and finds it empty. Hidden nearby, MC watches her search in confusion, even checking for another grave. He had expected the mercenaries, so he can't figure out why the reset point changed, especially since he never gave Rubia any Rurum. While she keeps looking, the skeleton appraises her, and a blue window reveals she died waiting for him, which caused adjustments. Now she's a level 1 ruler plus a necromancer and librarian, with stats higher than before. He notices Rubia has much more stamina than last time, and he recognizes one of the men as a loyal minister. Then No Name wonders why he woke up before Rubia even arrived. He starts doubting that his resurrection had anything to do with her. Maybe the servant system only worked because he believed she raised him from the grave. If that's true, then what really woke him up? He can't answer that, but thinks Rubia might know something, so he considers talking to her. Still, he remembers she once died as a demon worshipper because of him, so he decides to watch from a distance instead. One attendant urges Rubia to go back to the castle, worried about what her uncle might do and reminding her she has duties as ruler. Since they can't find No Name, they return. Back in Arist, Rubia gathers her ministers to talk about getting the empire to confirm her late father's succession. They try to guess who will be sent to settle it, saying it should be at least a marquis. No Name thinks imperial approval is a smart way to keep the ghosts in check, but he isn't sure whether the empire will back Kirk. As the meeting goes on, they conclude Marquis Vatien von Leandro will be the one sent to decide the matter. One minister is glad, saying Vatien's sense of honor will help them. No Name, though, is alarmed by the idea of the marquis coming, because when it comes to justice, he's completely insane, so his name starts planning to interfere. Elsewhere, a calm, unarmored Vatien von Leandro reads the letter about the succession review. He figures the Arist case needs someone with the rank of marquis, or higher, and plans to go himself. Then Lawrence enters the room, flirts with him, and insists he call her Laura before telling him about a new assignment. She says the imperial family's regent diamond has been stolen, which left Cardinal Graciem furious. Vatien von Leandro recognizes it as Ilian's tear, and asks why Ymera's cardinal would be so angry. Lawrence answers that he gets touchy about the goddess's authority. She adds that another duke wanted to borrow her ghost for the job, but she pushed for Leandro instead. Then she says someone else will handle Arist, and tells him to focus on the more important mission. The Marquis quickly realizes someone is trying to pull his attention away from Arist, but since he can't refuse an imperial order, he accepts the mission to recover the diamond. Back in Arist, the meeting ends well, and Rubia's secretary asks if she plans to use necromancy again. Rubia says she doesn't need to. Left alone, she sighs and remembers No Name's promise to come back. The protagonist Name hears that, and deciding to stay away until she's safe, he activates damage protection for her and rushes off. He knows he can't beat the ghosts hiding in Arist, so he stays away and keeps watch on Kirk with detection. At a tavern, Kirk meets a man and says he's surprised Rubia dared to defy them. The man asks what happens if Vatien von Leandro gets in their way, since he isn't part of the Necron Society. Kirk simply says he won't interfere, so there's nothing to worry about. No Name decides moving against him now would be risky. If Kirk dies, it has to look natural to fool the ghosts. Wanting to help Rubia without being seen, he steals his purple armor back from Ublam's blacksmith and quietly wipes out whatever Necron Society members he can. He keeps the gold and guild card from the Spider's Den dungeon, then heads to Grasmere to see Isaac. But he remembers Rubia got hurt because he trusted and leaned on the sorcerer too much, so he swears not to get fooled by him again. Using dash, stealth, and leave no trace, he first goes to the tavern where Ginny is staying. He startles the man by climbing in through the window and tossing down a bag of gold. MC offers a deal: use this money to support Rubia in the Arist dispute however he can, and be careful, because the people behind Kirk are dangerous. Ginny is surprised by how much trust No Name places in him, and gives him his guild card. Before leaving, he asks where to hire mercenaries, but Ginny says mercenaries won't help, and instead sends him to Christina, who's training in the mountains. Christina trains alone. She remembers being turned away from becoming a knight just because she was a woman. Christina screams in anger and breaks down, hearing her father's cold words in her head. No Name watches from a distance, not sure if he can bring her in while she's like this. Wanting to snap her out of it, he attacks and tells her to lift her sword. Christina de Bruiser dodges it once and grabs her great sword by instinct. She keeps demanding answers, but No Name tells her to stop talking and attack him so she can regain her confidence. He knows that if he doesn't, she'll end up under the wrong master again, just like before. He remembers how helpless and bitter he once felt, and the promise he made to repay her in his previous life, after killing her without knowing who she was. No Name knocks Christina de Bruiser's sword away, then gives it back, telling her to come again. Calling him crazy, the barbarian still takes the blade. When they clash again, she realizes the protagonist's name never means to kill her. He's teaching her through every swing, and even with his rough attitude, she can't remember the last time fighting felt this fun. After losing for the 5th time, Christina de Bruiser asks for another round without hesitation, and they keep sparring until night. Worn out but smiling, she says he should just kill her, because life can't get better than this. Not wanting to hear that, he throws her a sack of gold and tells her to buy equipment, go to Wrist and give the rest to Ruby as a gift from him. Then he gets ready to leave, telling Christina de Bruiser to say it came from someone Ruby knew in a past life before he rushes off. No Name reaches Daliok, planning to buy information about Vatien von Leandro and make sure Isaac can't fool him again. At the square, he spots 2 people, Tropin and Sharunian, and is shocked that Tropin is still alive after losing all her Rurum to the Black Knight. He starts wondering how this is different from the changes in Reyna's life caused by Rurum, remembering that the substance works as a tool for changing the world. Then he stops and wonders if the only altered Rurum left is the kind he used himself. Could he really affect the world that much? Still, he notices the timeline only shifts when he uses Rurum in a scenario. If everyone caused that same effect, history would already be a complete mess. Putting that aside, he walks up to Tropin and Sharunian and asks if they came to kidnap him. He calls the founder by name, then says he'll go with them on his own. At their hideout, Reyna is surprised he came willingly, while the other TNT members stay wary. She sends them out so she can speak with the skeleton alone, and on the way out, Tropin and Sharunian bicker over who raised Reyna. Both agree. No Name is hard to read. Once they're alone, Reyna sits down and asks if he came because of her, pushing him to admit it and tell her everything he knows. Remembering how she died, he says the best thing she can do is not go through with the Rurum heist. As he explains things and fills in the blanks in her memory, Reyna starts to believe the skeleton might really be someone she knew in a past life. She pulls out a knife and cuts him loose, then thanks him for changing the past so she and her sister could avoid an even worse fate. Reyna says that because of him, all her memories have come back. That makes him wonder if inherited memories grow clearer once a scenario is completed. Then Reyna asks if he wants to know anything from her. No Name asks why Sharunian never warned them the heist would fail. Reyna says her divination gets blurry around things she doesn't understand, like MC and Reyna. He wonders if the Dark Knight was also outside her grasp, and Reyna adds that she asked Sharunian to keep quiet so the Prophet's pride wouldn't be hurt. After that, she asks what happened once she died. Even though her calm reaction surprises him, he tells her everything. When she learns the Empire will attack Amber, she asks if they should warn the TNT headquarters there, then asks why he still hasn't mentioned Rubia. She admits that really bothered her, since Rubia cared deeply about him and she found the girl interesting. No Name admits he's worried about Rubia and explains what's happening now. Reyna then says Marquis Leandro won't be heading to Arist because he was ordered to recover the diamond and kill the basilisk. Relieved they won't meet, he asks who could be sent instead, and she says the only likely choice now is an honorary duke named Vibiro. Duke Vibiro is greeted warmly by children in the city, while No Name watches from above. In a flashback, Reyna explains that Vibora suddenly appeared and got every title the Emperor could give, even while staying out of sight. She says No Name should look for him doing charity work in the slums, near a house hidden in a back alley of the capital, and regrets that they know so little beyond that. Since even the guild struggles to find information on him, the protagonist's name decides to check for himself. Back in the present, No Name grips Reyna's pendant, relieved it still hasn't reacted. He doesn't see a Necron mark on Vibor's neck, so he assumes the man is harmless and decides to watch him for one day before going to wake Isaac. After setting protections for Rubia and using TNT for information, he's sure Isaac won't sway him so easily this time. No Name follows Vibor into the sewers. Ready to leave, the second the pendant reacts. As they go deeper, he wonders what the Duke is doing down there, and he also senses other people nearby. Then Vibor's presence suddenly vanishes. Before No Name can make sense of it, red windows appear, warning him about the Dawn Eater serpent and the penalties tied to it. He dodges the serpent's strike, and it comments that he's faster than he looks. The creature asks why he isn't fighting back. No Name suspects the snake is playing with him and thinks it may know some of the Empire's secrets, while remembering Rayleigh's warning about snakes in the capital. He tries to hit it with energy blade but fails, and the serpent smashes him into a wall. His armor is damaged, though he survives without serious injury, and the snake mocks him again before releasing poison. No Name's force shield keeps the poison back for a short time, but then the shield breaks and his armor starts to melt. Upset over losing darkness, he tries combining gale, blaze, and lightning for a stronger attack. The snake praises his power, but a red window says the pattern was disrupted and magic isn't allowed. Then the snake tells him the attack won't work and hits him with several mental attacks. The skeleton manages to hold on and shove it back with acid. The snake says No Name is at his limit, admits it enjoyed the show, and praises his strength before making an offer. Vibor appears half changed into the snake and introduces himself as the first priest of Bodis. Then he offers the skeleton power from his god. Vibor laughs when No Name notices there's MC Snake tattoo on him, saying those marks are only for slaves. Realizing this man leads the Necron Society, No Name thinks Vibor may be as powerful in Bodis as Isaac was in his own way. He regrets letting his guard down around Vibor and not going to Isaac sooner. Certain he can't escape, he starts thinking of another way out, but the high priest calmly says he likes him and wants to show him his work. Vybor's name follows, wondering what that means, until Vybor leads him to an empty square and asks what he can sense. The place feels strange, so he uses detection and senses the same people from earlier, like the whole square is packed with humans. Then he feels something wrong, and when he nears a clock, a cuckoo bird pops out, screaming like a human in pain. Vybor proudly says the whole square is made from living humans, he altered by hand. No Name can only stare, while the high priest explains that Badas makes this kind of work possible, and claims the protagonist's name could do it too. He goes on to say mankind was made to suffer, and he's only helping that purpose come true. According to him, human pain has no other meaning, so humans must have been created just to feel it. He says that's why he formed the Necron Society, gathering people who enjoy causing pain, because people like that are everywhere. Thinking of everything Rubia suffered because of Vibiro, No Name sees a chance to learn the Necron Society's secrets. He asks Vibiro why he brought him here. Vibiro greets him warmly, then sharply asks why he was being followed, and says he smells like crows. No Name realizes he still has the circuits Isaac carved into him with Malphas's mark, and carefully thinks through his answer. He says he tracked them after learning the Imperial family had joined Bodis, and that a priest of Malphas stabbed him in the back. Vibiro sympathizes, saying Bodis isn't like that and that Malphas won't trouble him anymore. He promises support and asks if he wants anything besides power. No Name does want strength, but he believes that if Rubia becomes Lord and he clears the scenario, her next life will begin under better conditions. With nothing left to lose, he asks for Rubia to be made Lord of Aradist. Vibiro agrees. Then, fully turning into a snake, he says No Name must prove he's worthy of being treated like an ally, not a slave. To do that, he needs a proper sacrifice. Vitian von Leandro. After that, Vibiro gives him power through a temporary contract, promising all his wishes will be granted if he succeeds. Back at his castle, Vatian von Leandro feels something is off. It seems like someone is trying to stop his efforts to recover the Regent Diamond. He's also uneasy about how many new recruits are applying to the Blue Lion Templars. As he starts thinking someone may be targeting him, No Name crawls across the ceiling nearby. In a flashback, Vibiro tells MC the concealment power he gave him can hide his presence even from strong people like Vatian von Leandro. He warns him not to kill the Marquis yet, because even if he's a problem, they still want to see whether he can be won over. Back in the present, No Name trails Vatian while hidden by that concealment. In the flashback, Vibiro also confirms that the ghosts use Bodis's power too. That's why almost nobody even knows they exist. He Name is caught off guard by how easily his questions keep getting answered, and how it all ties back to Vibiro and Bodis. Then a blue window pops up, saying the quest changed after he learned the Empire's secrets and made a contract with Bodis. After clearing it, he gets 23,750 hero points, and his purchase limit jumps to 25.6. No Name stares at it, but he knows he still hasn't figured out the truth about the larva, or why the Imperial family wants Eris, and what Vibiro's power really is. The High Priest says he gave No Name this mission because the ghosts can't be trusted with it, thanks to the Duke's feelings for Vatian. The protagonist's Name figures the Duke is using Bodis's power to hide herself, and can't see why Vibiro doesn't just act freely. Then the High Priest says he trusts MC more than the ghosts, and tells him to prove that trust was worth it. Back in the present, Vatian orders his men away from the diamond case. Even when they object, he argues that since the task was given to him, the Blue Lion Templars won't suffer if he handles it alone. No Name watches from hiding, noting how reckless that is. Since his concealment still has time left, he keeps observing. A knight comes in with a letter from Isabel, but the moment Vajan hears it's personal, he rips it up and says he has no time for it. He Name remembers how Vajan reacted to Isabel's death in the last life, so this response throws him off. Vajan sends everyone else out too, challenging anyone who wants to stop him. Once he's alone, the Marquis pieces the torn letter back together and smiles at what it says. No Name realizes the act was meant to protect her. If people learned about them, she could become his weakness. After that, Vajan burns the letter with Energy Blade, already thinking someone may be targeting him. That night, the Marquis secretly meets Isabel and twists wire into a token, promising to show it whenever he needs to send a message. He warns her not to trust anyone without that token. No Name later shows the token to Viboro, who likes the information and confirms Rubia will become Lord of Arist. But then a man rushes in to report that Marquis Leandro has started moving. Rayleigh is playing with Ilian's tear when one of his men warns that the Blue Lion Templars are coming. Rayleigh just shrugs, saying even the Marquis would get lost in the Scorpion's maze-like hideout. He waves off the warning about Vajan and says they can't simply hand over the jewel. In a flashback, Vajan remembers how Duke Lawrence Tarchier hinted with a smile that the Scorpions had the diamond that she had known the whole time, and pushed him to punish the thieves. Vibiro is furious at Lawrence for that and says they need to stop the jewel from ending up in the Marquis's hands. No Name asks if he can help, and when the High Priest agrees, a blue window tells the protagonist's Name that Bodis trusts him more, and that the corruption in his mind has been revealed. Before he leaves, No Name gets a quick briefing on the Scorpion's maze-like hideout. Back in the present, Rayleigh says the diamond holds the power of the Goddess of Light, and then a blue window tells No Name his concealment has been cancelled, leaving him barely able to endure Ilian's tear. MC Name tracks down Rayleigh and his man. At first, Rayleigh relaxes, thinking the skeleton came from their client because of how the diamond reacts, but that changes fast. No Name melts his partner with acid, and Rayleigh is horrified. He thought the job was only to take the jewel. He Name starts wanting even more pain, then turns to the shaken Rayleigh and demands amusement. Using the jewel as cover, the thief pulls his twin swords and charges, set on killing the skeleton. No Name thinks it's strange that he wants to hear Rayleigh scream in agony, even though he helped him in the last life and once imagined they could be friends. friends, just as a blue window warns him about Bodis's corruption. The Blue Lion Templars get turned around in the maze, but they still refuse to leave their commander behind. With a sigh, Vajan von Leandro draws his sword and fires energy blades through the wall, then lets his eager knights do the same and rip the hideout apart. No Name knocks Rayleigh's swords away and chops into him with the thief's own blades, thinking that since Leandro never brought him into the light, Rayleigh's talent would never grow, and he'd only know the misery of dying forgotten in the underworld. Covered in blood, No Name takes the man's essence and skills and grabs Ilian's tear, all while wanting to kill more humans and steal their power. Then he hears the Blue Lion Templars breaking their way closer and turns. Knights rush into the corridor and spot the blood-stained diamond on the floor, but before they can react, No Name jumps them and kills them all. Vachian von Leandro hears the noise, tells his men to push forward, and supports them by smashing through more walls with energy blade until he stops at the sight of his wounded and dead men. Back at Vibero's house, the High Priest praises No Name for escaping with the jewel. The protagonist's name explains how he pulled it off, thinking about how he used his free experience and the blue window to make it easier, with no regrets after carrying out Vibero's orders. After laughing at what he managed to do, the High Priest seals the diamond and says Vachian von Leandro can MC longer stop him. Sometime later, Marquis Leandro leads his men while piecing everything together. Linking the theft to the heiress case and remembering his talk with the Duke, he decides Duke Lawrence Tarchier would only hide something for one group, so he heads into the slums to search Vibero's house. His men are confused, but they follow, then suddenly spot purple light at the honorary Duke's residence. Ilian's tear has been fully corrupted, turned black, and made concealment possible again. Vibero puts it in a box and sinks it into his desk, mocking Vachian von Leandro as he does. Then he tells No Name to use concealment and welcome their guests. A moment later, Marquis Vachian von Leandro kicks in the door and announces he will search the house. Vibero only smiles and calmly asks what he expects to find, claiming he has no idea why he's there. Vachian says it's just a formality. Then his men start tearing through the house. As Vibero picks up pliers and twists a piece of wire, he tells Vachian von Leandro he should spend more time with the other knights instead of wasting it on him. Then he needles him by bringing up Isabel Simon, while finishing the secret token. Vachian's face turns red with anger, but he keeps it down and coolly joins the exchange. No Name admires that self-control. He thinks Vachian von Leandro wants to check on Isabel Simon, but sees it as pointless given the terrible future waiting for them. To him, the Marquis's life would be easier if he just obeyed Vibero. Still, the protagonist's name can't understand him, and wonders what the High Priest plans next. Vibero gets ready to leave, and after Vachian von Leandro touches him, he says he's on his way to Eris for the succession struggle. While lightly provoking Vachian von Leandro, he secretly tells No Name to stay in the capital and keep watching the Marquis, calling him his most dependable agent. He adds that he'll do everything he can to give her real power and make her greater than some ordinary lord. No Name is thrilled that Rubia's scenario is almost over. Happy that things have worked out so perfectly because of Vibero, he decides he'll do whatever he can later to repay that trust. Vibero leaves the capital by carriage, saying everything is going well. Meanwhile, Vachian's men search the house and find nothing. With a sigh, the Marquis sends them away and keeps searching by himself. That night he begins meditating, while No Name watches. Sure, it won't help against the strong barriers Vibero made. And he is right. Vachian von Leandro senses the barriers, but not how complex they really are. Knowing the place is full of demonic power, he draws his sword and carefully aims to open a gap in space and break the barrier. Just before he strikes, a knight calls for him to stop and says the investigation has been reassigned to Duke Lawrence Tartier. Vachian von Leandro swings anyway, cutting only a single strand of the spiderweb-like barrier. A knight cries out when he sees purple matter smeared on the Marquis's sword, then dropping to the ground and starting to move. Vachian von Leandro says it's corruption and that he failed to finish cutting it because they interrupted him, then stabs it. The knight explains the command changed because Vachian von Leandro was judged unreliable after the Blue Lion Templars' losses. Leandro wonders if the Duke pulled strings. He remembers trying to finish the mission alone so she wouldn't get an excuse, but the Duke's men say they were ordered to use force if he refused. Even as the Marquis steps forward like a threat, he simply walks past them and says he will comply. The knights let out relieved breaths, glad they don't have to face Leandro. They remember their commander was suspended just for saying there was no reason to stop him. One asks what the purple substance was, but another tells him to forget it, while MC runs off. At Eris, the villagers celebrate Rubia becoming the new lord. No Name stands hidden in the crowd, thinking everything is going well and that Rubia will turn Eris into a paradise, the perfect ending to her scenario. Excited to meet the new Rubia, he heads for the castle. There, servants whisper that Rubia has been acting strange, blank-faced, quiet, and unlike herself, and wonder if ruling is getting to her. As No Name moves along the hall, he senses a disturbance. In one room, Duke Lawrence angrily demands that Vibero give back what he stole, but he acts clueless and denies knowing what she means. Furious, Lawrence storms out and warns she'll report him to Cardinal Gracium. Vibero sneers and says the Duke won't be able to ignore him until she gives up Bodis's No Name. Watches Lawrence stomp into the hall and notices she never sensed him, even with her huge power. That makes him think Bodis's divine power puts him above even her, another reason in his eyes to stay loyal to Vibero. The High Priest greets him warmly, then says Rubia has been waiting and is on her way. Rubia walks down the hall without any expression. No Name hears her footsteps getting closer, feeling sure the scenario is about to end. Vibero introduces Rubia, stands there with the protagonist emotion and all. Vibero says he put a lot of work into turning her into a strong ruler. Then he adds that she no longer needs an escort. MC starts wondering where Christina is. He can't feel her presence anywhere. Then he realizes he can't sense the prefect, the secretary, or any of Rubia's trusted servants either. That makes him feel like something is very wrong. Vibiro notices No Name isn't pleased and decides to show him exactly what he's done. He tells him to attack Rubia. The skeleton hesitates, so Vibiro commands 2 controlled maids to strike her with swords instead. No Name tries to step in, but Vibiro forces him to the floor through telepathy and says an attack like that can't hurt the thing he created. The protagonist Name lowers his gaze while the maids cut at Rubia. Then the high priest orders him to look up. When the skeleton sees the maids in pieces, Vibiro explains that he used his valuable materials to turn Rubia into a special lord. The girl just hangs there with 7 blood-soaked blade-like limbs sticking out of her back. No Name stares in horror, and Vibiro tells him through telepathy that he left her nerves working so she can feel her body being torn apart. He adds that the materials were made with great care and cost him a lot. All of a sudden, Rubia starts crying blood. Vibiro demands that No Name tell him what he thinks, and when he senses his displeasure, he calls him a hard-to-please partner. He asks what parts No Name wants changed, and says he'll keep fixing Rubia until he's satisfied. He cheerfully says it's smart to keep your followers happy. Vibiro Name finally raises his sword at the high priest and says Vibiro always showed what he really was, and he never should have trusted him. He screams that this is not what he wanted. Vibiro is annoyed that he couldn't completely convert the skeleton, and decides No Name can still be useful if his mind is erased. He orders him Name to obey and be glad to become a puppet, but the skeleton resists. He knows that if he loses his mind, there's no coming back. Against the Dawn-Eater serpent, he knows he has the protagonist's chance. All he can do is try one attack, sure that otherwise he'll spend a long life as a slave. Rubia slowly walks up to MC Name and places a hand on his back, barely able to speak. The skeleton realizes her scenario still isn't cleared, and believes there may still be a way to fix everything. He quickly points the sword at his mouth and drives it in, while Vibiro screams for him to stop. He kills himself, telling himself that next time he will make it work. A storm crashes over Arist. Rubia wakes up screaming in bed, covered in cold sweat, grabs her cloak and runs barefoot into the forest. When she finds No Name's empty grave, she drops to her knees and calls for him, while he hides among the trees. A blue window tells the skeleton his inheritance is complete, and that his assimilation rate has fallen to 67.74. It also shows his stats and says he overcame Bodice's mind corruption by himself. The message says he gained the anti-enchantment privilege, but No Name thinks Rubia paid far too much for one more notice. He believed this was the right way to reach his goal, but the results showed it was a pathetic lie, and now he wonders why he should keep going after making such a stupid choice. The prefect and the secretary run to Rubia, worried for her safety. The secretary asks if she came here because she had that same nightmare again. Rubia says it was a terrible dream, but someone was trying to save her. That person refused to quit, no matter how hopeless things became, so she can't brush it off as just a dream. She rises and says she's going to find the person from her dreams. No matter what, No Name runs off, sure he can't let this continue. He decides the more he pushes ahead, the more he learns. The protagonist Name steals the purple armor from Ublam's blacksmith, and decides to try again. He removes the same obstacles once more and gathers the people who can help him. He believes that if he can fix his earlier mistakes, he can still make the future he wants. In Grasmere, he again introduces himself to Lord Chandler as Malphas's messenger, forcing Isaac's quest to begin. He collects his usual weapons from the Hall of Ancestors, then stops to get Isaac's crow doll and fills it with magic, before heading to the basement. There, he sets the doll in front of Isaac's altar, calls him by his many titles, brings up his long sleep, asks if it's fun to just lie there, and then burns the altar. After that, he activates Masquerade, taking on a form close to Isaac's human body, and taunts the sorcerer to come bother him for a while. He wonders if Isaac will get angry from the provocation, and keeps staring at the doll, wondering why nothing is happening. By then, he was expecting a long stream of lies. He tells the doll to say something, and Isaac nervously possesses it, asking if he somehow offended No Name. Isaac figures they must have been pretty close, and asks him not to be too mad, since he's wronged plenty of people. MC cuts him off and says he'll explain everything, if Isaac agrees to one condition. After turning off Masquerade, he tells the sorcerer never to trick, lie to, or use him again, or he'll lose the chance to hear the truth. Isaac snaps that he's asking too much, and says if he can't lie, he may as well be dead. Fed up, No Name grabs him by the neck and says that reaction may be expected, but it's still unacceptable, hinting that he can see the blue window. He threatens to tell someone else about it, and the crow quickly screams that he won't lie to the skeleton for 3 years. No Name thinks that's too short, so the sorcerer gives in and makes it 6. No Name then tells him the truth, but Isaac struggles to accept that he isn't the main character. Even so, he believes the skeleton, since the events his name described happened the way he expected them to, including his own sacrifice. That future version of Isaac lost his bet and needed to win back No Name's trust, to avoid payback later. He thought he would come back to life as a copy of his past self, but the current Isaac has no memories or feelings about No Name, so his earlier self didn't gain much from it. No Name realizes that unlike Ruby and Rena, Isaac did not inherit his old memories. Seeing how far he's drifting from the normal path, he wonders if his mind will hold up as more changes stack up. Isaac then perches on top of him and asks what his goal really is. When No Name brings up Rubia's scenario, the sorcerer pecks at him and asks if he knows what he'll do after that. Isaac says the window should be a tool, not the goal, because otherwise MC Name is just following a road made by someone some unknown force. As the crow tells No Name that he must have realized what he truly wants by now, the skeleton thinks back on all the questions he ignored while following the blue windows. He wonders if something is guiding him past the veil or stopping him from seeing beyond it. Then he declares that he wants to learn more about the world and one day go beyond the blue windows. Satisfied, Isaac offers to show him the fastest path to get there. To No Name's shock, he says the first step is falling under Viboro's control and taking concealment protection from him. If that fails, the sorcerer says he'll offer another sacrifice. Later, he must kill Tropin and absorb all of her rumen blood. Isaac repeats that Tropin has to die, pointing out how much absorbing rumen would help the skeleton and saying she's the best source possible. No Name knows he's right, but still refuses. If Tropin vanishes in the next life, it could affect Rena. Expecting that answer, Isaac changes course and suggests they follow Ashton and the blue windows, one step at a time, asking if No Name can show him something like that. At the Forest Lodge, the protagonist's Name reads the Ashton book and sees the number of pieces has gone up to 3 out of 7. He asks the sorcerer if he knows what contact the broken pieces means. Isaac says he has a rough idea. Telling MC to think back on what he's experienced, he says to focus on strange events that had something in common. As a clue, Isaac recites 2 old poems about pieces, assassinations and armed groups. No Name remembers one of those poems from one of Ashton's books and correctly figures out they connect to the Red Flake. Isaac confirms it and explains that Red Flake uses legacy items and now has 7 members after Gil is resigned. No Name concludes the books mean he has to meet every Red Flake member. Even though he remembers only 2, Isaac says it's not strange that one slipped by since they're listed in assassin order. So Hey Name starts wondering who the third was. Isaac suggests getting Gila's help to meet them. No Name remembers there's still time and proposes putting Room in place as Lord of Arist first, with Isaac offering to help. He remembers what happened after clearing Rena's scenario and wonders what several completed scenarios might cause. He also says Ashton's seemingly random directions must connect to the world's secrets. Since he wants to know more about them, Isaac sees no reason not to help. He also points out that the protagonist's Name won't stop complaining if Rumen isn't saved. With their goal set, they head for Dalyuk, planning to use Rena to tell Vachien van Leandro about Ilian's Tier and Vibiro's Square, thinking it will keep both men in check. He also notes Vibiro will be in trouble because Ilian's Tier can cancel Bodis's protection. Isaac worries about how the Imperial family might react, but No Name expects they'll send Vachien van Leandro to arrest if he keeps causing them problems. The sorcerer is uneasy because MC still hasn't seen the real Emperor, and neither has Isaac in 400 years. The only things leaving the palace are man-made dolls. He warns that the Empire's strength hasn't weakened, so No Name needs to stay sharp, and he suggests adding Tropin to his allies. Sensing a spell outside the auction tent, Isaac shows off his power by summoning familiars to find the caster. No Name is surprised he can do that while stuck in a doll, but after bragging and mocking the skeleton, the sorcerer passes out. Seeing that he needs Rumen, He Name starts thinking about where to get it. Then Sharunian and Tropin walk up, with the prophet demanding he reveal who he is right now. At the TNT hideout, Rena says her memory is filling up, while Tropin and Sharunian feel no such change. The founder is amazed by how strong Rumen is. She tells the protagonist's Name to visit her lab when he gets to the capital, while Sharunian can only stare in shock. Tropin points out that No Name shared facts he had no way of knowing unless they were true. Rona then says she'll handle everything with the Marquis and do all she can to help Rubia. She adds that what he told them is more than enough payment, and if he needs another favor, he just has to ask. Then No Name asks for info on the Red Flake, but Sharunian cuts in and flatly refuses. Rona explains that the guilds are bound by an agreement not to share secrets about one another. Tropin adds that it is hard even to talk about them here, since they move around in disguise, and getting profiles would be extremely hard. No Name realizes that saying here must mean members of the Red Flake are in Dalyuk. He decides to dig into that later and asks Tropin if she should really be telling him this. She says he already gave them huge information about Rumrum, the Imperial family and the Dark Knight. Then she holds out her hand and says he'll always be welcome as long as he helps with her search for Rumrum. No Name agrees to visit once things calm down. With that settled, they plan to head to the capital, and Rona says they'll reach out when the time comes. Once he's alone, No Name looks down at Isaac, still passed out, lifts him up, and tries waking him with magic, but nothing works. Nimona starts wondering where he can find more Rumrum, as he considers giving Isaac some of his own. Isaac suddenly wakes up and yells for him to stop. Horrified by what No Name was about to do, he tells the startled protagonist's Name that the fainting was partly a joke and partly a warning. He tells him never to share the apostle's blood inside him with anyone else, because no one knows what might happen after his resurrection if he gives it away. When MC asks if he's worried about him, Isaac snaps that he isn't, though he Name privately doubts the collapse was really just a joke. Isaac then tells the protagonist to follow him below, to his dungeon in Grasmere. As they near the crypt, he asks if No Name really plans to stop at making Rubia a lord. Even if her feelings and memories stay intact, he says the current state of the Empire and the coming war mean a lord's power won't be enough to grow her land or protect it. If she stands against the war, she'll die, but backing it isn't an option either, since Arist is near the Alliance and would be hit first, dragging her in. When No Name asks what else can be done, Isaac says he can show him another path. He opens a hidden door behind the altar. They reach a sealed gate, and Isaac opens a hidden hatch that leads even farther down. At the bottom, they find an abandoned camp covered in human bones. Isaac explains that people built these tunnels to escape the apostles 1,000 years ago.